that's right. Chu Feng nodded and glanced at Chu Feng behind him. I came here today to propose marriage to the saint of the 10,000 demons palace for the young prodigy of my clan. BRBR. As soon as these words came out, the entire 10,000 demons palace instantly fell into deathly silence. BRBR. The Kanglan Imperial clan wants to propose marriage to me, the saint of the 10,000 demons palace? BRBR. How is this possible? I, the saint of the 10,000 demons palace, are the proud daughter of heaven. Who among the Kanglan Imperial clan is worthy of marrying her? BRBR. Which of the Kanglan Imperial clan's darlings has no mirror or even urine? BRBR. Feng Chanyu was also stunned, and then suppressed the surprise in her heart. BRBR. Clan Chief Chu, I wonder which genius of the Kanglan Imperial clan you want to propose marriage to my 10,000 demons palace? BRBR. Chu Feng raised the corner of his mouth slightly and pointed at Chu Feng who was standing behind him. BRBR. Chu Feng of my clan. BRBR. Everyone's eyes instantly focused on Chu Feng. BRBR. Feng Chanyu looked up and down, with a flash of disdain in his eyes. BRBR. Is that the country bumpkin from the eastern region? BRBR. Feng Chanyu's tone was contemptuous, making no attempt to conceal her disdain. BRBR. He is just an inconspicuous bastard from the Kanglan Imperial clan, who luckily awakened the supreme bone. How can he be worthy of proposing marriage to me, the saint of the 10,000 demons palace? BRBR. Hearing this, Chu Feng also refused to say anything shocking. BRBR. Palace Master Feng has misunderstood. I do not want to marry a saint, but to take a concubine. BRBR. Concubine? BRBR. These two words are like thunder, exploding throughout the entire palace of 10,000 demons. BRBR. The demons in the palace of 10,000 demons were instantly shocked, and their angry roars resounded through the sky. BRBR. Take my saint from the palace of 10,000 demons as your concubine? BRBR. A country bumpkin from the eastern region dares to take an idea of my saint and wants to take her as my concubine. It is simply a wishful thinking. BRBR. It's too deceiving. What's more, the Kanglan Imperial clan is openly humiliating our 10,000 demons palace and the three major imperial clans of our demon clan. BRBR. In their hearts, Feng Lingxi is the pride of the 10,000 demons palace. Not to mention being a concubine, even if she is to be a head wife, she must choose the top talent in the three realms. BRBR. Now a bastard from the eastern region wants to take a saint as his concubine. This is a naked provocation. BRBR. A white-haired demon from the Blackbird Imperial clan could no longer suppress the anger in his heart and pointed at Chu Feng and shouted angrily. BRBR. Huangko boy, you just got a lucky chance, so you dare to be so arrogant? BRBR. My saint of 10,000 demons palace is extremely noble. I think you are tired of living, so you dare to come to my 10,000 demons palace to run wild. BRBR. You are such a despicable person. You bastard, you are not even worthy of carrying the saint's shoes, and you still dare to have such delusions. You have completely disgraced the Kanglan Imperial clan. If I were you, I would have committed suicide in shame, so I wouldn't have the nerve to stand here. BRBR. Before Chu Feng could say anything, Chu Feng's face instantly turned cold. BRBR. He didn't even say a word, he raised his hand and struck out with his palm, directly towards the Blackbird demon who humiliated Chu Feng. BRBR. Boom, BRBR. A loud noise resounded throughout the world. BRBR. The Blackbird demon didn't even have time to scream, and was completely annihilated by this palm print, completely disappearing between the heaven and the earth, as if it had never existed. BRBR. With one move, kill a powerful monster. BRBR. The scene made all the demons in the 10,000 demon palace become silent for an instant. BRBR. Feng Chanyu's face turned livid in an instant, fiery red demonic energy surged crazily around him, and there was a murderous intent in Feng Chanyu's eyes. BRBR. Chu Feng, this is the palace of 10,000 demons, not your Kanglan Imperial clan. Do you really think that the palace of 10,000 demons is easy to bully? BRBR. Chu Feng retracted his palm, protected Chu Feng behind him, and said every word. BRBR. The Kanglan Imperial clan cannot be insulted. Chu Feng is the holy son of our clan. Anyone who dares to humiliate him will be insulting our Kanglan Imperial clan. BRBR. All the demons took a breath. Chu Feng is still so domineering. BRBR. Feng Chanyu clenched her fists but did not move rashly. BRBR. I couldn't fight again and again, and I just felt extremely aggrieved. BRBR. Humph. BRBR. Within the ancestral land of the Suenio Imperial clan. BRBR. An old man with white beard and hair slowly opened his eyes. He was the ancestor of the Suenio Imperial clan. BRBR. The elders of the Suenio Imperial clan had already gathered together, all of them looking furious. BRBR. Chu Feng brought that boy named Chu Feng into my 10,000 demons palace, and actually asked Lingxi to be my concubine. BRBR. Old ancestor, the Chu family is simply bullying people too much. They are openly humiliating our Suenio imperial clan and our 10,000 demons palace. BRBR Ling Shishi is pregnant with a phoenix bone, how can he be a concubine to a bastard from the eastern region? BRBR ancestor, you must make the decision for our Suenio imperial clan, and we cannot let the Chu family act so recklessly. BRBR Suenio ancestor sat on the throne, his eyes narrowed slightly, and a suppressed anger emanated from his body. BRBR what the Kanglan imperial clan did was undoubtedly a public humiliation to the Suenio imperial clan. If they agreed, the Xian Neo-imperial clan would become the laughingstock of the three worlds and would never be able to hold their heads up again. BRBR but he also knows in his heart that the Kanglan imperial clan has a profound foundation. If they really break up with the Kanglan imperial clan, once a war breaks out, the Suenio imperial clan and even the 10,000 demons palace will not get any benefits. BRBR in the end, Ancestor Suenio took a deep breath and suppressed the overwhelming anger in his heart. BRBR that's enough. BRBR the hall instantly became quiet, and all the elders looked at the ancestor, waiting for his decision. BRBR Ancestor Suenio looked solemnly and said slowly. BRBR, the Chu family is so powerful that we, the Suenio imperial clan, cannot completely break up with them. BRBR, but ancestor, are we going to let them humiliate our clan? An elder asked unwillingly. BRBR it is absolutely impossible to agree to this matter. Just send the people from the Kanglan imperial clan away, and don't let the situation escalate. BRBR the ancestor of Suenio sighed slightly, and then closed his eyes. BRBR in the palace of 10,000 demons, on the Wenyu platform, there sat a stunningly beautiful figure that could make the geniuses of the entire palace of 10,000 demons fall in love with her. BRBR Feng Lingxi wore a gilt phoenix dress that trailed to the floor, with a pair of phoenix eyes that looked down on the world with arrogance. BRBR the original power of the innate phoenix bone flows slowly, causing the spiritual energy between heaven and earth to pour into her body like a tide. BRBR at the critical moment when Feng Lingxi was immersed in her cultivation and was about to break through the bottleneck, a maid in light green palace clothes ran in. BRBR Saint, no, something big has happened. BRBR a hint of anger flashed across Feng Lingxi's eyes, and the aura flowing around her body suddenly converged. BRBR the flow of spiritual power was abruptly interrupted, and a trace of anger passed through her eyes. BRBR what she hates most in her life is that someone interrupts her when she is concentrating on her practice. This will not only cause her to miss the opportunity for breakthrough, but may also cause her spiritual power to backfire and damage the foundation of her practice. BRBR how rude is it to panic? If nothing serious happens, I will train you. BRBR the maid was glanced at by Feng Lingxi, and she shuddered all over, and she quickly knelt down on the ground in fright. BRBR holy girl, people from the Kanglan imperial clan are here. They said they came to my 10,000 demons palace to propose marriage. BRBR proposing marriage? BRBR Feng Lingxi raised her eyebrows slightly, but her face was still indifferent. BRBR she is unparalleled in beauty, and countless forces come to propose marriage. Almost every few days, prodigies of all races send people to propose marriage. BRBR she has long been accustomed to this, and even feels extremely bored. BRBR in her opinion, no one is qualified to step into her sight, let alone marry a proud daughter like her. BRBR what a genius, they are just a bunch of trash, and it is worthy of you to disturb this saint's practice. BRBR seeing that the saint was so calm, the maid couldn't help but feel a little anxious in her tone. BRBR the person who came to propose marriage this time is Chu Feng from the Kanglan imperial clan, the man who awakened the supreme bone some time ago. BRBR hearing Chu Feng's name, Feng Lingxi's originally indifferent face instantly showed a hint of contempt. BRBR there was even a hint of disgust in those proud phoenix eyes, as if they had heard something dirty. BRBR a country bumpkin from the eastern region, a humble descendant of a commoner branch, just wants to marry me? BRBR in her eyes, the eastern region is a remote and a Ren land, and the people there are like ants, not even qualified to carry her shoes. BRBR the maid looked at the disdainful look on the saint's face, and felt even more uneasy. She knew that the next words would make the arrogant saint completely furious. BRBR unexpectedly, the maid gritted her teeth and said the most crucial sentence. BRBR that Chu Feng said he wanted to take the saint as a concubine. BRBR concubine? BRBR Feng Lingxi, who had been calm just now, suddenly became furious. BRBR she suddenly stood up from the Wenyu platform, and the real fire around her body burst out instantly, as if it was going to melt the void. BRBR that alluring face was instantly red with anger. BRBR she is the holy maiden of the 10,000 demons palace, the apple of the Blackbird imperial clan's eye. She is pregnant with the bones of an ancient phoenix and has peerless talent. She is the hope of the future of the demon clan and the existence that countless geniuses look up to. BRBR, let alone a country bumpkin from a remote place in the eastern region, not even the holy son of the Kanglan imperial clan, or even the future emperor's son, is worthy of marrying her. BRBR, what's more, let her condescend to be a concubine for a concubine and a loser. BRBR, this is not a proposal of marriage, this is clearly a naked humiliation. BRBR, it's too much to bully demons, it's simply too much to bully demons. BRBR, who is that Chu Feng? A waste from the eastern region, he dares to think of taking me as a concubine? BRBR, this group of people from the Kanglan imperial clan clearly don't take my 10,000 demons palace seriously. BRBR, the maid was so frightened that she trembled all over and tried to dissuade her. BRBR, saint, calm down. The patriarch has already negotiated with them in the main hall. You are in a critical period of cultivation, so you must not get angry. BRBR, get out of here. BRBR, Feng Lingxi kicked the maid in front of her away. She was so angry that she couldn't care less about the dissuasion of others. BRBR, today I will let that loser know the consequences of humiliating this holy girl. BRBR, after her words fell, Feng Lingxi turned into a red gold stream of light and sped away in the direction of the meeting hall of the 10,000 demons palace. BRBR, the palace of 10,000 demons, the main meeting hall. BRBR, the heads of the three major demon clans were all present, with Feng Chanyu taking the main seat. BRBR, Clan Chief Chu, I would like to ask, are you sincerely proposing marriage, or are you here to humiliate our demon clan? BRBR, sitting on her left are Su Jui, the patriarch of the Nine-Tailed Emperor clan, and Long Yuan, the patriarch of the Taimong Emperor clan. BRBR, Su Jui gently shook the jade fracture fan in his hand, with a soft sound in his voice. BRBR, marrying a wife is all about flattering him. If you want to take a concubine, you are using your power to bully the monster, right? BRBR, Long Yuan even slapped the stone table in front of him, which made the stone table buzz. BRBR, I am the first to refuse to agree to this matter. BRBR, Chu Tsongshuan was about to explain that Chu Feng had awakened the immortal bone, but the door of the main hall was directly shaken open. BRBR, a red gold figure burst into the hall with overwhelming anger. BRBR, Feng Lingxi stood at the door of the hall, her eyes sweeping across the hall. BRBR, she directly ignored Feng Chanyu's warning gaze, without even looking at Chu Tsongshuan and Chu Xianchao, and fell directly on Chu Feng. BRBR, are you the loser Chu Feng from the eastern region? Immediately send someone to the White Tiger Royal Clan to ask Bai Zizai, the leader of the White Tiger Royal Clan, to come to see me in the meeting hall. BRBR, the guards did not dare to delay at all, and quickly accepted the order and turned into a stream of light and left. BRBR, at the same time, Feng Lingxi was also forcibly taken away. BRBR, just when she passed by Chu Feng, she glared at Chu Feng full of hatred. BRBR, I, Feng Lingxi, will remember today's humiliation in my heart. BRBR, I will definitely repay you 100-fold at the Imperial Clan Conference 1 year later. BRBR, however, Chu Feng was stunned because he had never heard of the Imperial Clan Conference. BRBR, seeing a flash of doubt in his eyes, Chu Xianchao on the side opened his mouth to explain. BRBR, this Imperial Clan Conference is a grand gathering of geniuses held by the 9 Imperial clans every 3 years. All young geniuses from the 9 Imperial clans can participate. BRBR, at the conference, the geniuses duel to compete for the leader. BRBR Emperor, the leader of the clan assembly, can not only receive the supreme honor bestowed by the 9 Imperial clans, but also receive the immortal inheritance left by the ancient immortals. This is an opportunity that countless geniuses dream of. BRBR, there was a hint of yearning in Chu Xuanxiao's tone. BRBR, obviously this immortal inheritance has a very high weight among the 9 Imperial clans. BRBR, but after hearing this, Chu Feng's face showed no emotion at all, instead showing a faint look of boredom. BRBR, immortal inheritance? BRBR, he is the rebirth of the alchemy emperor, and the opportunity that others dream of is nothing more than worth mentioning in his eyes. BRBR, not long after, a middle-aged man followed the guards into the hall. This man was Bai Zizai, the leader of the White Tiger royal family. BRBR, there was always a hint of sadness between his brows. After all these years of hard work, he could only watch the White Tiger royal family decline step by step, becoming a fringe force in the 10,000 demon palace, and even about to fall out of the top 10 royal families. BRBR, especially after their daughter Bai Qingjue awakened the White Tiger body and became a useless person, the White Tiger royal family was even worse. BRBR, so, he really doesn't know whether it is a blessing or a curse for the Kanglan Imperial clan to see him? BRBR, the moment he stepped into the hall, he was stunned. BRBR, the person who sent the message only said that a distinguished guest from the Kanglan Imperial clan wanted to see him, but did not say that the person who came was actually the patriarch and great elder of the Kanglan Imperial clan. BRBR, the leaders of the 4 Imperial clans gathered in the main hall. He had never seen such a battle in his life. BRBR. What made him even more confused was why Feng Qianyu looked at him as if he wanted to kill someone. BRBR. I have met the palace master. I wonder what the palace master's instructions were for me to come here. BRBR. BRBR. Feng Qianyu sneered, and then said meaningfully. BRBR. There is great news. BRBR. Immediately afterwards, Chu Feng took over the words and went straight to the point. BRBR. Today I brought Chu Feng, the genius of our clan, to the palace of 10,000 demons just to propose marriage to your daughter by Qingjue. BRBR. Proposing marriage? BRBR. Propose marriage to Qingju? BRBR. Bai's eye was completely confused, his mind went blank. BRBR. Who among the 9 imperial clans didn't know that his daughter had awakened the white tiger body? Her cultivation was stuck at the first level of the golden core, and she had already become a laughingstock. BRBR. That was a shame that even the white tiger royal clan didn't want to mention. How could the Kanglan imperial clan's genius take a fancy to her and let the Kanglan imperial clan's clan chief P. personally propose marriage? BRBR. After a brief moment of confusion, his throat rolled, and then he was trembling with excitement. BRBR. If it is really the genius of the Kanglan imperial clan who wants to marry his daughter, then wouldn't the white tiger royal family be able to become the in-laws of the Kanglan imperial clan? BRBR. With this relationship, who in the entire 10,000 demons palace dares to underestimate the white tiger royal family? BRBR. After coming back to his senses, he remembered that Chu Feng's name sounded familiar. BRBR. When he saw Chu Feng, he immediately remembered the genius of the Kanglan imperial clan who had awakened the supreme bone. His name was Chu Feng. BRBR. Gudong. BRBR. His throat rolled hard, feeling as if he was dreaming. BRBR. The genius of the Kanglan imperial clan who wanted to marry his daughter turned out to be Chu Feng who had awakened the supreme bone. BRBR. Clan Chief Chu, my daughter has awakened the white tiger body. BRBR. He was afraid that the Kanglan imperial clan didn't know about this. If they were blamed afterwards, the white tiger royal clan would not be able to bear the anger of the imperial clan. BRBR. Alas, BRBR. Chu Feng also sighed slightly in his heart. How could he not know that Bai Qing's supreme cultivation had stopped at the golden elixir realm? BRBR. However, Chu Feng's attitude is resolute, and Feng Lingxi's attitude is like that. If he does not make mistakes today, it will not be the Suenio imperial clan that will be embarrassed, but the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR. Chu Feng has already known about this, you only need to nod. BRBR. It is her blessing that my little girl Qingjue can be favored by Chu Xiaoyu. BRBR. Don't talk about proposing a marriage. Even if I want my little girl to get married, you can follow little friend Chu back to the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR. This is an excellent opportunity for the white tiger royal clan to join the Kanglan imperial clan. As long as they can marry with the Kanglan imperial clan, the white tiger royal clan can use the power of the Kanglan imperial clan to get rid of the current predicament of decline. BRBR. Even if it costs him everything, he is willing to do it. BRBR. What's more, being able to marry a genius with supreme bones is something that no one can ask for. BRBR. His daughter has a white tiger body, and it is absolutely impossible to find a better husband than Chu Feng in the future. BRBR. However, Chu Feng quickly poured cold water on him. BRBR. One thing I want to make clear in advance is that Chu Feng is already the holy son of our Kanglan imperial clan, and this proposal of marriage is not about marrying a wife but taking in a concubine. BRBR. As soon as these words came out, Bai's eye, who was still trembling with ecstasy, the smile on his face froze instantly. BRBR. He knew very well that although his daughter could not improve her cultivation now, she had an unimaginable stubbornness hidden in her bones. BRBR. If she was asked to be a concubine, she would rather die than agree. BRBR. But the olive branch offered by the Kanglan imperial clan in front of him was the white tiger royal family's only chance to change their fate will only decline forever if it is missed. BRBR. Clan leader Chu Qingju is too cold and stubborn. If she is allowed to be a concubine BRBR. Before he could finish his words, Chu Feng glanced at her with a cold look. BRBR. Is it wrong for a person who cannot practice to become the concubine of the holy son of our clan? BRBR. That's not what I meant. BRBR. Bai's eye was so frightened that he was a little incoherent. Before he could think of how to explain, Chu Feng suddenly stepped forward and handed a concubine ring into his hand. BRBR. I really want to marry Miss Bai, but I have already married a wife, so I can only take a concubine. This is the betrothal gift of my Kangla, an imperial clan. BRBR. As soon as these words came out, not only Bai's eye was stunned, but also Chu Feng and Chu Xianxiao. BRBR. Although they had prepared betrothal gifts, they were not in Chu Feng's hands. BRBR. Chu Feng subconsciously glanced at the ring on his finger. It was the one he originally gave to Feng Lingxi. The betrothal gift prepared. BRBR. But where did the betrothal gift in Chu Feng's hand come from? BRBR. Bai's eye was shocked and saw that everyone was staring at him, so he had no choice but to take out the contents of the ring. BRBR, it was a scroll of skills. BRBR, seeing this, Chu Feng also understood that this must be the betrothal gift prepared by Chu Feng himself. BRBR, however, he did not pay too much attention to it. Chu Feng had just come to the Kanglan Imperial clan and it was impossible to give out a too expensive betrothal gift. BRBR, however, he did not say much. Bai Qingjue was just a useless person and was not worthy at all. He had to take out the betrothal gift that he had prepared in advance. BRBR Feng Qianyu was slapped in the face by Chu Feng, and she naturally wanted to take revenge. BRBR, she saw at a glance that the technique was just a mortal thing, so she asked BRBR, clan leader Bai, why don't you open it quickly and let me see what it is? BRBR Chu Feng glanced sideways at Feng Qianyu. How could he not see what this woman was thinking? BRBR, he was already ready. Just take out a few treasures from the ring in a while. BRBR, however, when Bai Zizai unfolded the scroll and saw the name of the technique, everyone couldn't help but take a breath. BRBR White Tiger's world-suppressing technique. BRBR, this is a long-lost fairy method from ancient times. BRBR, it's just that useless girl as my concubine, and this betrothal gift is too expensive. BRBR, it is rumored that White Tiger's world-suppressing technique is a supreme skill that only the ancient White Tiger clan can practice. BRBR, if you practice this skill to the extreme, you can activate the power of the White Tiger stars, conquer the world, destroy enemies, and achieve the position of the great emperor. BRBR, this technique was lost in the ancient catastrophe. Unexpectedly, there is a complete rubbing in the hands of Chu Feng. BRBR, the White Tiger Zhenshiju has been lost for a long time. How could Chu Feng have the rubbing? Could it be a fake? BRBR Feng Qianyu really can't accept that a long-lost immortal method was actually used by Chu Feng as a betrothal gift. BRBR, if this is true, she will regret it in her heart. BRBR, if Feng Lingxi can marry Chu Feng, the Suanio Imperial clan will not only get a son-in-law with immortal bones, but also obtaining this immortal technique. BRBR, however, all of this has passed by Suanio map. BRBR, before Chu Feng could speak, Chu Feng sneered and asked. BRBR, what a big joke. How could I, the Kanglan Imperial clan, do something like this with a fake technique? BRBR, immediately afterwards, he continued. BRBR, this White Tiger's world-suppressing secret is a complete rubbing obtained by our ancestor in the ancient secret realm. Today I am willing to give it to the White Tiger royal family as a betrothal gift. BRBR, of course this technique is real. Chu Feng wrote it down based on his memory on the way here. BRBR, originally he planned to give it to the Suanio Imperial clan, but unexpectedly, it ended up in the hands of the White Tiger clan. BRBR, Chu Feng said it loudly, but the corner of Chu Feng's mouth twitched slightly. As the leader of the Kanglan Imperial clan, how could he not know the White Tiger clan? BRBR, despite all the doubts in his mind, he would not choose to make trouble at this time. BRBR Feng Qianyu wanted to step forward to check the authenticity of the technique. BRBR, but Bai Zizai just glanced at it and immediately put it into Neji. BRB. It's absolutely true. Although he has never seen the White Tiger Zhenshiju, based on his knowledge, this technique is definitely real. BRBR, at this moment, his ears were ringing, and he could only hear the beating of his own heart. BRBR, if the people of the Suanio Imperial clan knew that this technique was real, could the technique still be retained in the White Tiger royal clan? BRBR, seeing this, Feng Qianyu suddenly narrowed his eyes. BRBR, originally, she did suspect that this technique was fake, but looking at Bai Zizi, it seemed to be real. BRBR, Su Ji and Long Yuan looked at each other, and they were already thinking about how to get the technique. BRBR, Bai Zizai didn't know about the demons. He only knew that this betrothal gift, let alone his daughter as a concubine, was more than enough to marry a saint from the Suanio Imperial clan. BRBR, he originally wanted to put away the wedding ring, but because he was too excited, he actually took out another betrothal gift from the wedding ring. BRBR, it was an elixir. There was a strong medicinal fragrance lingering on the elixir. Just one whiff made people feel refreshed. BRBR, when he saw the pill, Suji couldn't help but exclaimed. BRBR, this is the Wuji Shou Yuan Dan with 100% efficacy. He didn't dare to stay for a moment longer, he just wanted to leave the place of right and wrong as soon as possible. BRBR, everything in the Neji is a valuable treasure that can lead to death. The more you wait for a second, the more dangerous you will be. BRBR, this is the only hope for the White Tiger royal family to change their fate against the odds, and it is also the basis for their daughter Bai Qingjue to rely on in the future. BRBR, Bai Zizai bowed deeply to the three clan leaders, Feng Qianyu, Hu Jui, and Meng Song, his voice filled with urgency. BRBR, Palace Master Feng, fellow clan leaders, if there is nothing else, I will rush back to the White Tiger royal clan to prepare for my daughter's wedding, so I will take my leave first. BRBR, after saying that, he lowered his head and walked out of the hall without waiting for anyone to respond. BRBR, but just when his feet were about to step out of the hall's threshold, Feng Qianyu's cold and strong voice came from behind and stopped him abruptly. BRBR, Clan Chief Bai, stay. BRBR Bai's eyes footsteps suddenly stopped, his heart suddenly sank, and an ominous premonition swept through his body instantly. BRBR he turned around slowly, with a stiff and forced smile on his face, and looked at Feng Qianyu, who was walking slowly, his voice trembling slightly. BRBR, Palace Master Feng, do you have any other instructions? BRBR Feng Qianyu stood in front of him, her tone calm, but with a force that could not be refused. BRBR, the marriage between the 10,000 Demon Palace and the Kanglan Imperial Clan is a major event that the Imperial Clan is paying attention to. BRBRI, the ancestor of the Suenio Imperial Clan, have some important words that I want to tell you face to face. BRBR Bai's eyes throat rolled hard, and he subconsciously hid the hand holding Neji behind his back. BRBR he knew very well that the ancestor was not going to explain the marriage matters, but was clearly eyeing the betrothal gift in the ring. BRBR especially the Wuji Shoyuan pill, which is 100% effective. The ancestor of Suenio is approaching his longevity and has already reached the edge of running out of oil. This pill is enough to make the other party tempted, and even snatch it at all costs. BRBR seeing this, Suji and Long Yuan couldn't help but narrowed their eyes. BRBR they originally wanted to snatch the Wuji Shoyuan Dan and the White Tiger world-suppressing technique, but they did not expect that the Blackbird Imperial Clan would take the lead. BRBR you can tell with your toes that after Bai's eye enters the Holy Land, he will definitely not be able to keep the Wuji Shoyuan pill. BRBR but after all, this is the territory of the Suenio Imperial Clan. Even if they are unwilling to do so, they can't say anything more. BRBR Bai's eye wanted to evade, but when the words came to his lips, he couldn't say a word. BRBR he is just the patriarch of a declining royal family. He has no right to refuse in front of the Suenio Imperial Clan. BRBR Feng Qianyu didn't give him a chance to shirk him at all, and stretched out his hand to gently guide him towards the back of the hall. BRBR you just come with me to the Blackbird Holy Land. The ancestors' instructions cannot be delayed or disobeyed. BRBR Bai's eye stood there, his face turning pale little by little. BRBR he knew that he couldn't hide at all. The Suenio Holy Land was the core forbidden area of the Suenio Imperial Clan. If outsiders stepped in, they could only be at the mercy of others. BRBR, please, Lord Feng, lead the way. BRBR Feng Qianyu said no more, turned around and walked towards the Holy Land. BRBR Baizi followed Feng Qianyu step by step like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. BRBR when the demon guards and elders along the way saw the scene, they all looked surprised and understanding. BRBR Suenio Holy Land is a forbidden land for the direct descendants of Xuanyan. Ordinary demon clans are not even qualified to approach it. Now Feng Qianyu actually took the leader of the White Tiger royal family to the Holy Land in person. BRBR the closer to the Blackbird Holy Land, the thicker the pressure in the air becomes. BRBR that was the supreme coercion derived from the bloodline of the ancient Blackbird. The red gold flames swirled around the Holy Land, turning the entire sky into fiery red. BRBR the gate of Suenio Holy Land is carved from a whole piece of ancient phoenix jade. BRBR the door is closed tightly, cutting off all the hustle and bustle of the outside world, and it also reveals a forbidding solemnity. BRBR Feng Qianyu raised his hand and cast a mysterious spell, then gently tapped on the phoenix jade gate. BRBR buzz, BRBR the thick phoenix jade gate slowly opened inward, and an even more terrifying pressure swept out from the inside of the Holy Land, instantly covering Bai's eye. BRBR Bai's eye's legs went weak and he almost fell to his knees. BRBR follow me. Feng Qianyu said lightly and took the lead in stepping into the Holy Land. BRBR Bai's eye took a deep breath, followed Feng Qianyu, and stepped into this Blackbird Holy Land that he would never forget. BRBR the interior of the Holy Land is quiet, with spiritual springs gurgling and fairy mist rising. BRBR on the high white jade platform in the center, there is an old man with white hair sitting. BRBR the old man's hair and beard are as white as frost and snow. His face may seem rosy, but it exudes an aura of decline that is about to end his lifespan. BRBR this is the ancestor of the Suenio Imperial Clan, the Dinghai Divine Needle of the 10,000 Demons Palace. BRBR ancestor, we have already arrived. BRBR Feng Qianyu walked to the bottom of the white jade platform, bowed and saluted. His attitude was extremely respectful, and he was completely different from the strong O. Any in the meeting hall just now. BRBR ancestor Suenio slowly opened his eyes, his gaze falling on Bai's eye. BRBR, are you Bai's eye? BRBR Bai's eye froze, unable to hold himself up any longer, and fell to his knees directly, his voice respectful and frightened. BRBR late, Bai's eye, the junior member of the White Tiger royal family, has met ancestor Suenio. I wish the ancestor eternal blessings and longevity. BRBR get up. The ancestor raised his hand. The marriage between the 10,000 Demon Palace and the Kanglan Imperial clan is the fate of the White Tiger royal family. BRBR by Zai slowly stood up, still lowering his head, not daring to raise his head to look directly into the ancestor's eyes. BRBR, it's all thanks to the blessing of the ancestor and palace master Feng that my little girl Qingju has such an opportunity. BRBR the ancestor nodded lightly, without saying any more polite words about marriage, and the conversation suddenly changed. BRBR the Kanglan Imperial clan's betrothal gifts are generous. I heard that there is an immortal secret and a Wuji longevity pill with 100% efficacy, right? BRBR by Zai's heart suddenly rose to his throat. What should come has finally come. The ancestor's goal has always been the Wuji longevity pill. BRBR returning to my ancestor, the Chu family has indeed prepared a betrothal gift. These are the dowries that the Chu family has given to their little girl. The younger generation only keeps them for you and don't dare to make decisions without authorization. BRBR, keep them for you? BRBR the ancestor chuckled lightly, but there was no warmth in the laughter, but it was full of oppression. BRBR, that Wuji Shouyuan Dan is useful to me, please hand it over. BRBR straightforward, tough, without any room for negotiation. BRBR by Zai suddenly raised his head and looked at the blackbird ancestor on the high platform. BRBR the elixir was a betrothal gif. Tea from the Chu family to Qingju. If the junior hands it over privately, he cannot explain it to the Chu family. BRBR Feng Chenyu immediately stepped forward and threatened in a subtle way. BRBR clan chief Bai, you must think clearly about your identity, and more importantly, the situation of the White Tiger royal family. BRBR the ancestor urgently needs this Wuji Shouyuan pill to extend his life. You hand over the elixir to help the palace of 10,000 demons and to find a way out for the White Tiger royal family. BRBR after a brief pause, she continued. BRBR don't forget, Bai Qingjua's cultivation is now stagnant at the first level of the golden core. According to the rules of the 10,000 Demons Palace, he is no longer worthy of the position of saint and should be deposed. BRBR if you insist on it, if she refuses to hand over the elixir, then she will no longer have to keep her status as a saint. BRBR by Zai shuddered. Although Bai Qingjua's status as a saint has long been in vain, she is still the saint of the 10,000 Demons Palace. BRBR if you can't even become a saint, then after joining the Kanglan Imperial clan, you will be bullied even more. BRBR what's more important is that if he doesn't agree, can he really get out of here? BRBR seeing this, the blackbird ancestor also gave his own conditions. BRBR you hand over the Wuji Shouyuan Dan, and I will decide to continue to retain Bai Qingjua's position as a saint, and restore all the saintly training resources that Bai Qingjue originally had. BRBR you have to think clearly, what kind of life would she have lived in the Kanglan Imperial clan without the support of the 10,000 Demon Palace? BRBR by Zai stood there, his eyes slightly red. BRBR this is not a gift at all, but an obvious robbery. BRBR situation is stronger than people. BRBR the Wuji Shouyuan pill with 100% efficacy is a 9th grade top elixir, and its value far exceeds the foul SE reputation of a saint, and far exceeds those so-called cultivation resources. BRBR he hates the Suenio Imperial clan for bullying others, hates his own incompetence, and hates the decline of the White Tiger royal clan. BRBR but no matter how much hatred he felt in his heart, he still dared to get angry but did not dare to speak. BRBR the blackbird ancestor can destroy the entire White Tiger royal clan with just a raise of his hand. If he insists on resisting, there is only death waiting for him and the entire clan. BRBR by Zai held Najia's hand, loosening and tightening, tightening and loosening again. BRBR finally, he handed over the ring. BRBR I just asked the ancestor to keep his promise. BRBR the ancestor of the blackbird raised his hand and waved, and the Na ring automatically flew into his hand. BRBR his soul penetrated into the Neji, took out the Wuji Shouyuan pill, put it on the tip of his nose and sniffed it, and finally a look of joy appeared on his face. BRBR yes, it is the Wuji Shouyuan Dan with 100% efficacy. BRBR ancestor Suenio looked at the Wuji Shouyuan Dan in his hand and couldn't wait to take the elixir on the spot. BRBR boom, BRBR the elixir melted in his mouth, and the majestic vitality swept through his limbs and bones in an instant. BRBR the surrounding spiritual energy poured into the Holy Land crazily, and the wrinkles on the face of the blackbird ancestor were visibly reduced to the naked eye. BRBR what's more important is the rich vitality exuding from his whole body, which is completely different from before. BRBR after a cup of tea. BRBR Suenio ancestor felt that his body was filled with essence and blood, and he couldn't help but clenched his fists, with a look of excitement on his face. BRBR it is indeed the Wuji Shouyuan Dan with 100% efficacy. BRBR as if thinking of something, he couldn't help but sneer. BRBR the Kanglin Imperial clan actually took out the elixir as a betrothal gift. Does the woman from the Kanglin Imperial clan know? BRBR Feng Qianyu lowered her eyes slightly, and she naturally knew that what her ancestor said was the ancestor of the Kanglin Imperial clan, who was also about to live long. BRBR actually, she was also very strange. Since the Kanglin Imperial clan had the Wuji Shouyuan pill, why didn't they give it to their ancestors and instead use it as a betrothal gift? BRBR, could it be that they got two Wuji Shouyuan Dan? BRBR ancestor Suenio nodded, feeling that it made sense. BRBR the Kanglin Imperial clan is really lucky. Not only did they get the immortal bones, but they also got two Wuji Shouyuan pills at once. BRBR by Zizai thought that handing over the pills would end the matter. BRBR but he never expected that the greed of the Blackbird ancestor was much more than that. BRBR ancestor Suenio took the opportunity to take out the White Tiger's world-suppressing technique from the Neji, and spoke to Bai Zizai in a serious voice. BRBR the White Tiger world-suppressing technique remaining in the White Tiger royal clan will only attract the covetousness of other forces. The technique will be temporarily handed over to our Suenio Imperial clan for safekeeping. BRBR if you are a descendant of the White Tiger royal clan in the future if you need to practice, you can come to the Holy Land to borrow it, and we, the Suenio Imperial clan, will also give you guidance. BRBR by Z's eyes were full of disbelief and despair. White Tiger's world-suppressing technique is the only hope for the rise of the White Tiger royal clan. BRBR with this technique, the children of the clan can change their destiny against the will of heaven. BRBR now the ancestor of Suenio has not only taken away the Wuji Shouyuan Dan, but also this technique. He clearly wants to firmly control the last hope of the White Tiger royal family in the hands of the Suenio Imperial clan. BRBR ancestor, this is absolutely impossible. BRBR ha, BRBR Feng Qianyu sneered and then said. BRBR by Zizai, don't be ignorant. Our ancestor is also doing good for the White Tiger royal family. BRBR don't disobey the ancestor's wishes again, otherwise, the promise just made may be voided at any time. BRBR by Zizai gritted his teeth, but still mustered up the courage to speak. BRBR the technique can be kept, but I need to make a copy of the rubbings. BRBR boom, BRBR the pressure of the Mahayana realm around ancestor Suenio immediately pressed on him, as if to crush Bai Zizai. BRBR however, Bai Zizai looked directly into the eyes of ancestor Suenio, and would rather die than kneel down. BRBR, if the ancestor really wants to leave no way for the White Tiger royal family to survive, you can kill me now. BRBR the ancestor of the Blackbird narrowed his eyes slightly, he did not expect Bai Zizai to dare to be so tough in front of him. BRBR the White Tiger royal family is one of the 10 royal families in the 10,000 Demons Palace. How could I not leave you a way to survive? BRBR he turned to look at Feng Qianyu and ordered. BRBR, Qianyu, you immediately copy a copy of the technique and ask him to bring it back to the White Tiger royal family. The Wuji Shouyuan pill is a top-level 9th grade elixir. Even among 9th grade alchemists, very few people can refine it to be 100% effective. This is why GC made an exception to see Chu Feng. BRBR Chu Feng straightened up, nodded calmly, and gave a positive answer. BRBR yes. BRBR after finishing his words, he raised his hand and turned it over, and a Wuji Shouyuan Dan appeared in his palm. BRBR the elixir exudes a faint medicinal fragrance, and it is the finished elixir he prepared before. BRBR Chu Feng raised his hand and handed over the elixir. BRBR GC's eyes fell on the elixir, a subtle fluctuation flashed in his eyes, but he did not take it immediately. BRBR she also raised her hand and turned it over, and a Na ring appeared in her palm. BRBR immediately, a complete set of Wuji Shouyuan Dan refining medicinal materials fell in front of Chu Feng. BRBR the medicinal materials are of extremely high quality, 1 grade higher than those used by Chu Feng for refining before. BRBR, I want you to personally refine a Wuji longevity pill in front of me. BRBR before Chu Feng could speak, Chu Tsongshuan at the side quickly stepped forward and reminded Chu Feng in a low voice. BRBR the ancestor is a 9th level alchemy master. His attainments in the art of alchemy are very few compared to those of the 9 imperial clans. BRBR the ancestor wants to personally inspect you and give you some advice on the way to alchemy. BRBR when Chu Feng heard this, he couldn't help but twitch the corner of his mouth slightly, and there was a trace of helplessness in his heart. BRBR any advice on how to make alchemy? BRBR he is the rebirth of the alchemy emperor, and his alchemy skills have already reached the realm of transformation. Who among the 9 emperors is qualified to guide him in alchemy? BRBR of course he didn't dare to say these words. BRBR in front of the ancestor of the Kanglin Emperor clan, revealing the identity the Dan Emperor is too shocking and will only cause endless trouble. BRBR Chu Feng suppressed the complaints in his heart, his face remained respectful, and he nodded slightly to GC. BRBR, I will obey my ancestors' instructions. BRBR. After saying that, Chu Feng raised his hand and called, and the purple gold furnace of the universe flew out from his ring. BRBR. As soon as the alchemy furnace appeared, a vast and unparalleled pressure of the holy weapon instantly swept across the entire holy land. BRBRGC's originally calm eyes shrank in an instant, and for the first time there was an obvious look of shock on his face. BRBR. She stared at the purple gold furnace of the universe, her voice trembling slightly. BRBR. This alchemy furnace is actually a holy weapon? BRBR. It is difficult for a 9th grade alchemist to find a holy weapon alchemy furnace in his life. The holy weapon alchemy furnace can greatly increase the success rate and efficacy of alchemy. In the entire Kanglan imperial clan, she was the only one who accidentally obtained a quasi-sacred weapon alchemy furnace. BRBR. Chu Feng is so young, but he actually owns a holy weapon level pill furnace. BRBR. Chu Feng on the side was completely stunned. His eyes widened and he was speechless for a long time. BRBR. He never expected that Chu Feng would even use the alchemy furnace as a sacred weapon. BRBR. Sacred alchemy furnace. BRBR. Chu Feng didn't pay attention to the surprise of the two people, and started to activate the Qianquan purple gold furnace to refine the elixir. BRBR. He turned his palm, and a wisp of blazing golden flame rose from the palm of his hand. BRBR. The flame was not big, but it contained the ultimate pure yang power. It was a kind of power that surpassed all the supreme pressure above the flames. BRBRGC's eyes fell on this flame, and her expression that had just calmed down once again stirred up trouble. BRBR. She stood up suddenly. Andy walked quickly in front of Chu Feng. BRBR. Daohua. Chiyang Daohua ranked 3rd on the Dao Fire list. BRBR. Chu Feng was completely confused. Although he didn't know how to make alchemy, he had heard the legend of Tao Fire. BRBR. Tao Fire is the purest source energy between heaven and earth. It contains the power of the laws of heaven and earth and is far beyond the comparison of ordinary fire. BRBR. There are only a handful of alchemists with Dao Fire in the entire 9 imperial clans, and the ancestor is one of them. BRBR. However, the ancestor's Dao Fire ranks at the top 36 on the Dao Fire ranking. BRBR. But Chu Feng's Dao Fire is actually the 3rd on the Dao Fire ranking. Chiyang Dao Fire. BRBR. This kind of Dao Fire only exists in ancient legends and has long since disappeared. Unexpectedly, it appeared on Chu Feng's body. BRBR. Chu Feng did not say anything, and the Chiyang Dao Fire flew out from his palm and landed at the bottom of the Qianquan purple gold furnace. BRBR. Then, the medicinal materials in front of him flew into the alchemy furnace one by one. BRBRGC stared at Chu Feng's alchemy movements without blinking, and the look of shock on her face became more and more intense. BRBR. She was a 9th grade elixir master who has been refining alchemy for thousands of years, and thinks that her technique has reached its peak. BRBR. But now she sees Chu Feng's alchemy process, and she understands what true alchemy is. BRBR. Chu Feng's method is more sophisticated than hers, and is more in line with the origin of elixirs. RBR. And every step was just right, without any unnecessary movements, as if he was born for alchemy. BRBR. Although Chu Feng didn't understand the art of alchemy, he saw the increasingly shocked look on GC's face and knew Chu Feng's alchemy. The alchemy technique was far more terrifying than he imagined. BRBR. After a while, the Dao Fire in Chu Feng's palm slightly closed. BRBRB. BRBR. With a soft sound, the lid of the Qianquan purple gold furnace automatically opened, and a Zhao pill emerged from the furnace. Flying out. BRBR. The aroma of 100% medicinal effect instantly filled the entire holy land. BRBR. Chu Feng raised his hand and handed the Zhao, which was still warm from the alchemy, in front of GC. Old ancestor, the elixir is ready. BRBR. Is this a pill? BRBR. Chu Feng couldn't help but exclaimed. He had also seen those 9th level alchemy masters refining Zhao, which took at least half an hour. BRBR. However, it was less than a quarter of an hour since Chu Feng took out the alchemy furnace. BRBR. Is this the genius of alchemy? BRBR. Even if he saw Chu Feng refining pills with his own eyes, GC felt as if he was in a dream. BRBR. Chu Feng's alchemy speed was so fast that she didn't even fully understand the alchemy techniques before it was over. BRBRGC stretched out his hand in a daze and took the warm elixir. BRBR. After careful inspection, the elixir in my hand is definitely a perfect elixir with 100% efficacy. BRBR. She couldn't even find any flaws. This elixir was perfect from any angle. BRBR. Obviously, Chu Feng's alchemy skills are far superior to hers, and have even surpassed the category of a 9th grade alchemist. BRBRGC glanced at Chu Feng beside him, and then waved. BRBR. Xian, you go down first. BRBR. Hearing this, Chu Feng was stunned for a moment, then immediately bowed and saluted, and then exited the cave. BRBR, he was well aware of his ancestor's temperament. Since he was asked to step down, there was a top-secret matter to discuss. BRBR, just before leaving, Chu Feng took a deep look at Chu Feng. BRBR, Chu Feng brought him too many surprises. Who would have thought that Chu Feng, who came from the eastern region, would be a 9th-grade alchemist, and his alchemy skills were even better than those of Hai's ancestors. BRBR, even if Chu Feng does not have a heaven-defying talent, it is still enough for the Kanglin imperial clan to rise. BRBR, what's more, Chu Feng has immortal bones and his cultivation talent is far superior to ordinary geniuses. BRBR, after walking out of the cave, Chu Feng suddenly knelt on the ground, looked up to the sky and sighed. BRBR, thank God for sending Chu Feng back to our Kanglin imperial clan. BRBR, the stone gate closed, completely isolating the inside and outside of the Holy Land. BRBR, in the huge Holy Land, only Chu Feng and GC were left, and the atmosphere instantly became subtle. BRBR, Chu Feng stood with his eyes lowered and did not take the initiative to speak, quietly waiting for his ancestor's instructions. BRBR, he could feel that what the ancestor was going to say next must be related to a huge secret, otherwise he would not go out of his way to send Chu Feng away. BRBR, after GC was silent for a moment, he slowly spoke. BRBR, you not only possess the Jiyang Dao fire, which is ranked 3rd on the Dao fire list, but also hold the sacred alchemy furnace in your hand, and your alchemy skills are far superior to mine. BRBR, I would like to ask you, can you refine the elixir? BRBR, the elixir? BRBR, after hearing these 2 words, Chu Feng suddenly raised his head, with a look of shock on his face. BRBR, as the alchemy emperor, he naturally masters the method of refining the elixir. BRBR, it's just that he has never refined immortal elixirs. At most, he has only refined Wuji Shouyuan Dan. BRBR, at his current age, being able to refine the invincible Shouyuan pill is already terrifying enough. BRBR, if he said that he could refine immortal elixirs, everyone would doubt his origins. BRBR, Chu Feng's reaction was all in GC's eyes, and she explained calmly. BRBR, my longevity has long been exhausted. I took the Wuji Shouyuan pill hundreds of years ago. The efficacy of that pill has now been completely exhausted. BRBR, I have already developed resistance to the 100% efficacy of the Wuji Shouyuan pill you just refined. After taking it, it has no effect on extending my life. BRBR, after a pause, she sighed softly. BRBR, the Wuji Shouyuan pill she took was refined by herself, and its efficacy was only 90%. BRBR, if she could have met Chu Feng earlier, perhaps her lifespan could be extended by another 100 years. BRBR, but she also knew very well that this was absolutely impossible, because Chu Feng was only 20 years old now. BRBR, when she took Wuji Shouyuan Dan, Chu Feng was not born yet. BRBR, my longevity has come to an end now. Only by taking the immortal level longevity pill can I extend my life again. BRBR, speaking of this, GC's eyes dimmed slightly, with a hint of helplessness. BRBR, I have observed the entire process of your alchemy refining. Your attainments in alchemy have already surpassed the limit of a 9th-grade alchemist and touched the true meaning of alchemy. BRBR, if anyone else has the slightest chance of refining the elixir, it is you. BRBR, hearing this, Chu Feng felt a turmoil in his heart. BRBR, originally, he thought that refining a Wuji longevity pill with 100% efficacy would be enough. He never expected that the ancestor of the Chu family had already taken the Wuji longevity pill. BRBR, the 2 Wuji Shouyuan Dan in his hand are of no use to the ancestor. BRBR, he finally understood the reason why his ancestor sent Chu Feng away. It turned out to be for the elixir, the longevity elixir that would extend his life. BRBR, but it is not easy to refine the immortal longevity pill. BRBR, although he knows the recipe for refining the immortal longevity pill, with his current mental strength, it is absolutely impossible to successfully refine it. BRBR, unless an unconventional alchemy method is used. BRBR, Chu Feng did not answer immediately, but after pondering for a moment, he raised his eyes to look at GC and asked seriously. BRBR, I wonder, ancestor, have you prepared the medicinal materials for refining the immortal Shouyuan Dan? BRBR, when GC heard that Chu Feng did not refuse directly, but asked about the medicinal materials, his eyes instantly lit up. BRBR, the original nervous look was gone, and his face revealed a look of uncontrollable excitement. BRBR, since Chu Feng asked this question, it means that he is really capable of refining the elixir. BRBR, if he is not sure, he will definitely refuse directly without asking any more questions. BRBR, GC was so excited that her feet trembled slightly. She quickly raised her hand and turned it over, and a Nai ring appeared in her palm. BRBR, she handed the ring to Chu Feng, her voice trembling slightly. BRBR, I read the records about the immortal Shouyuan Dan in an ancient alchemy book. After spending nearly 1,000 years, I finally gathered together a set of medicinal materials for refining the immortal Shouyuan Dan. BRBR Chu Feng took the Neji and put his soul into it. Just one glance and he was shocked by the medicinal materials inside. BRBR in the Neji, there are more than 10 kinds of heavenly materials and earthly treasures neatly placed, all of which are extinct fairy materials in ancient times. BRBR, not to mention ordinary cultivators, even powerful ones in the Mahayana realm would frantically fight for any of these elixirs. BRBR Chu Feng withdrew his spiritual thoughts and spoke with a determined tone. BRBR, I can refine the immortal longevity pill. Really? BRBR. When GC heard this, he was so excited that his whole body trembled slightly, a blush appeared on his plain white cheeks, and the joy in his eyes almost overflowed. BRBR, her life was about to end, and she thought she could only sit back and wait for death, but she didn't expect that she actually met someone who could refine the elixir. BRBR, this joy made her, an ancestor who had lived for 100,000 years, unable to contain herself. BRBR. But just when GC was ecstatic, Chu Feng changed the topic and said in an awkward tone. BRBR, although I can refine the immortal Xuelian pill, I cannot help the ancestor refine this pill. BRBR. These words were like a basin of cold water, instantly extinguishing GC's joy. BRBR. The smile on her face froze instantly, and she asked urgently. BRBR, why? BRBR. Before Chu Feng opened his mouth to explain, GC immediately waved his jade hand. BRBR, I know that refining the elixir is very costly. No matter what conditions you put forward, I will agree to it. BRBR, as the Emperor's son of the Kanglan imperial clan, you can choose all the sacred weapons, techniques, and resources in the clan. BRBR, even if you want to be the leader of the Kanglan imperial clan, I can find a way for you. BRBR. At this moment, GC has already put aside the majesty of her ancestor, and only has the obsession to continue her life in her heart. As long as she can survive, she is willing to pay any price. BRBR. Chu Feng shook his head gently, with a look of embarrassment on his face. BRBR, if I can help my ancestor, I will go through fire and water without hesitation, but, BRBR. Seeing Chu Feng hesitate, GC became more and more anxious. BRBR. She took a step forward, grabbed Chu Feng's sleeve, and urged with anxious eyes. BRBR. But what? Don't be hesitant, just say it if you have something to say. No matter what the difficulty is, I can help you solve it. BRBR. Chu Feng felt more and more embarrassed when he saw the anxious look on his ancestor's face. BRBR. He was silent for a moment, his voice gradually lowered, and he almost told the truth through gritted teeth. BRBR. Although I can refine the immortal Xuelian pill, the method of refining this pill is very special and requires the harmony of yin and yang with the person who takes the medicine. BRBR. After he finished speaking, he did not dare to look directly into GC's eyes, feeling helpless. BRBR. The heaven refining diagram can refine all things in the world, and it is not difficult to refine the immortal longevity elixir. BRBR. But this only restriction made it impossible for him to start. BRBR. The person in front of me is the ancestor of the Kanglan imperial clan. There is no way he can do anything beyond his reach. BRBR. In the Holy Land, deathly silence fell instantly. BRBR. GC froze on the spot, and slowly loosened his grip on Chu Feng's sleeve. BRBR. She took a step back with her bare feet and looked at Chu Feng with complicated eyes, thinking over and over what Chu Feng said in her heart. BRBR. Having lived for 100,000 years, she naturally understood what Chu Feng meant by the harmony of yin and yang. BRBR. The silence lasted for half a stick of incense. GC raised his head, as if he had made some determination. BRBR. My name is GC, and I am not a member of the Chu family's bloodline. I am just the widow of the 36th ancestor of the Chu family. BRBR. Chu Feng suddenly started and was completely stunned. BRBR. He never expected that this seemingly aloof Kanglan ancestor was not from the Chu family. BRBR. Before Chu Feng could react, GC had already stepped in front of him. The distance between the two was very close, and her faint fragrance lingered on the tip of Chu Feng's nose. BRBR. GC looked directly at Chu Feng, not the slightest bit shy. BRBR. What happened today is known to heaven and earth. You know it and I know it. BRBR. After finishing her words, GC pulled open the skirt of her plain white dress. BRBR. Chu Feng froze on the spot instantly, as if a restraining spell had been cast on his whole body, unable to move. BRBR. His throat rolled and his mind went blank. BRBR. I never expected that the ancestor would make such a decision. BRBR. Chu Feng looked at GC in front of him, his heart was overturned and he was completely confused. BRBR. He opened his palms and did not activate the Jiang Dao fire, nor did he use the Chankuan purple gold furnace. BRBR. As his mind moved, the shadow of the heaven refining diagram hovered 3 feet above his head. BRBR. The moment the heaven refining diagram unfolded, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth in the Holy Land seemed to be pulled by invisible forces, forming a whirlpool of spiritual energy connecting the sky and the earth. BRBR. GC stood aside, his breathing suddenly stagnant. BRBR she has lived for 100,000 years and has seen countless alchemists making elixirs, but she has never seen anyone use themselves as a furnace to directly swallow medicinal materials to make elixirs. BRBR Chu Feng's whole mind was immersed in alchemy. He flicked the immortal pattern Na ring that GC had taken out before, and the restraint of the Na ring was instantly released. BRBR more than 10 kinds of medicinal materials turned into bright streams of light, flying towards the shadow of the heaven refining diagram. BRBR those heavenly materials and earthly treasures that were enough to drive a strong man in the Mahayana realm crazy were directly swallowed up by the heaven refining diagram. BRBR just when the heaven refining diagram finished devouring the last medicinal ingredient, the sky of the entire Kanglan imperial clan suddenly changed color. BRBR the originally clear sky was instantly covered by thick lead-colored clouds. BRBR the clouds rolled like tides, gathering from all directions towards the Kanglan Holy Land. BRBR in the clouds, purple gold thunder and lightning shuttled like giant dragons, making deafening thunder, and streaks of lightning illuminated the entire Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR everyone in the Kanglan imperial clan stopped what they were doing and looked up at the sky. BRBR what kind of vision is this? Purple lightning surrounds the clouds, and pale patterns are all over the sky. I have lived for 300 years, and I have never seen such a scene. BRBR the aura of the thunder tribulation is so terrifying, I feel my soul trembling just by looking at it. BRBR the breath of the pill pattern has a fairy charm. This is definitely not a thunder tribulation that ordinary pills can induce. BRBR in the crowd, several alchemists with white beards and hair suddenly widened their eyes. BRBR they pointed at the vision in the sky, and their voices changed their tone. BRBR this is the alchemy. And it's the calamity of the immortal elixir. BRBR oh my god, someone in the clan is actually refining the immortal elixir. BRBR being able to trigger the immortal pill tribulation, this alchemist's attainments may have already surpassed the 9th grade and reached the legendary realm. BRBR at this moment, Chu Feng raised his head to look at the vision above the Holy Land, and was immediately shocked. BRBR an extremely absurd idea came to his mind. Chu Feng's alchemy attainments were still among those of his ancestors. Could it be that the person who refines the elixir is Chu Feng? BRBR as soon as this thought came up, he couldn't help but shook his head. BRBR it's scary enough to be able to refine the 9th grade elixir, how could he possibly refine the elixir? BRBR inside the Holy Land. BRBR the shock in GC's eyes has not faded away, and it has added a bit of solemnity. BRBR if the immortal elixir goes against the will of heaven, it will definitely lead to an elixir disaster. BRBR only after surviving the pill tribulation can the pill truly take shape. BRBR but Chu Feng only has the cultivation level of the transformation realm. Can he really withstand this immortal pill tribulation that is enough to kill a powerful person in the Mahayana realm? BRBR Chu Feng, be careful. BRBR the phantom of the heaven refining diagram above Chu Feng's head became even brighter with golden light at the moment when the Dongjia took shape. BRBR finally, the purple gold thunder and lightning in the sky condensed into a thunder pillar as thick as a bucket, and fell in the direction of the Kanglan Holy Land. BRBR the moment the thunder pillar fell, the protective restrictions of the Holy Land instantly lit up, but under the touch of the thunder pillar, it was like paper. It shattered instantly. BRBR the purple gold thunder pillar hit Chu Feng's head without any hindrance. BRBR GC's heart suddenly rose to her throat. She was even ready to help Chu Feng, even if it cost her own strength. BRBR but just when the thunder pillar was about to hit Chu Feng, the heaven refining diagram above her head hit him. The shadow suddenly burst out with a terrifying devouring power. BRBR the scroll of the heaven alchemy diagram was slightly rolled up, and the purple gold thunder pillar as thick as a bucket was directly swallowed by the scroll, without even a trace of aftermath. BRBR thunder and lightning entered the picture, and the star patterns on the heaven alchemy diagram instantly became more brilliant. BRBR there were even small lightning bolts circulating on the scroll, they were completely refined by the heaven refining diagram. BRBR then, the second and third, BRBR a total of 9 immortal pill tribulation thunder pillars fell down one after another, each one more powerful than the previous one, but they were all swallowed up by the phantoms of the heaven refining diagram. BRBR the moment the last thunder pillar was swallowed up, the lead-colored clouds in the sky suddenly dispersed. BRBR the phantoms of pill patterns all over the sky also turned into little auras, gathering towards Kanglan Holy Land. BRBR in the Holy Land, Chu Feng slowly opened his eyes. BRBR the shadow of the heaven refining diagram above his head turned into a golden light and blended into his body. BRBR at the same time, the medicinal materials swallowed by the heaven refining diagram have been tempered into elixir liquid and condensed in his dantian. BRBR the immortal longevity pill is finished. BRBR the elixir was suspended in Chu Feng's dantian, exuding a strong aura of immortality and longevity. BRBR just a hint of overflowing breath made the spiritual energy in the Holy Land warm. BRBR. Chu Feng turned to look at GC aside, and met GC's fiery eyes. BRBR. The atmosphere in the Holy Land became particularly subtle the moment the elixir was completed. BRBR. Ancestor, are you ready? BRBR. GC's cheeks were red and his breathing was a little faster than usual. BRBR. The originally calm eyes now contained a trace of moisture. BRBR. Chu Feng watched her approach, his heart tightened inexplicably, and he spoke subconsciously. BRBR. Ancestor, BRBR. Don't call me ancestor. BRBR. GC interrupted him, his tone trembling. BRBR. She gently touched Chu Feng's cheek, causing Chu Feng's body to freeze instantly. BRBR. Call me Cici. BRBR. GC's voice was as soft as a feather, brushing through Chu Feng's heart. BRBR. As soon as she finished speaking, she threw Chu Feng directly at him without giving him any chance to react. BRBR. Chu Feng looked at GC who was leaning down, his mind went blank. BRBR. The plain white dress slipped down, revealing her fair skin, which was particularly moving under the golden aura. BRBR. The two figures were completely entangled together, and Donxiang wrapped them tightly. BRBR. BRBR. The Palace of 10th. Thousand Demons, the Holy Land of Blackbirds. BRBR. The ancestor Xuelian sat cross-legged on the Phoenix Jade platform. After an extra 1,000 years of life, he felt much more relaxed. BRBR. But at the moment when the calamity of the Kanglan imperial clan appeared, he suddenly opened his eyes penetrated the restrictions of the Holy Land, and looked in the direction of the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR. When I saw the elixir patterns all over the sky and felt the rich fragrance of elixirs. BRBR. The pupils of the blackbird ancestor suddenly shrank, and the greed in his eyes almost overflowed. BRBR. That's an immortal elixir. BRBR. Although he took the Wu Jishu Yuan Dan, his lifespan was extended by 1,000 years. BRBR. But he has already broken through to the Mahayana realm. The lifespan of a Mahayana realm monk is 100,000 years. 1,000 years is still too short for him to reach the Ascension realm. BRBR. If he cannot ascend successfully within 1,000 years, he will not be able to escape the fate of running out of life. BRBR. But the immortal Xuelian pill is different. The immortal Xuelian pill can extend your life by at least tens of thousands of years. BRBR. Immortal elixir. Someone in the Kanglan imperial clan is refining the immortal elixir. BRBR. The ancestor of Xuelian's eyes were red with jealousy. At this moment, he wanted to slap Feng Lingxi to death. Originally, the Kanglan imperial clan came to the Xuelian imperial clan to propose marriage, but Feng Lingxi broke into the hall without permission and messed up everything. BRBR. Who in the Kanglan imperial clan is refining immortal elixirs? Could it be GC? BRBR. She is nearing her end of life, and her attainments in alchemy cannot reach such a level. BRBR. There is no way. It is Chu Feng, right? BRBR. As soon as this thought came out, the ancestor of Xuelian himself found it unbelievable. BRBR. However, he had to admit that except FO. Chu Feng who had awakened the immortal bone, there seemed to be no one else in the Kanglan imperial clan who had this ability. BRBR. Could it be that the Wu Jishu Yuan pill I took was also refined by Chu Feng? BRBR. The other side. BRBR. Feng Lingxi stood beside the bed and saw the vision of Dongjia in the direction of the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR. Although she is not an alchemist, the alchemist has also heard that immortal elixirs can lead to powerful elixirs. BRBR. Someone from the Kanglan imperial clan is refining immortal elixirs. How is this possible? BRBR. Her face instantly turned pale, and then turned red again. BRBR. When she thought of the Kanglan imperial clan, she couldn't help but think of Chu Feng who had humiliated her in every possible way. BRBR. Feng Lingxi clenched her fists tightly, her nails dug into her palms, and blood oozed out, but she didn't notice it. BRBR. She looked in the direction of the Kanglan imperial clan, her eyes filled with resentment. BRBR. The Kanglan imperial clan, the Kanglan imperial clan again. This is your marriage, how can you just give it to someone else? BRBR. By Qingjue shook his head gently and looked at the great elder calmly, without any anger or unwillingness. BRBR. Since the ancestor has decided, I will obey it. BRBR. After saying that, she turned to look at the two maids behind her. BRBR. You all go down, you don't need to wait here anymore. BRBR. The maids did not dare to stay longer and quickly bowed and retreated. BRBR. Seeing his daughters in different appearance, Bai Zizai felt even more guilty. It was because his father was too incompetent. BRBR. As the patriarch, he cannot protect Wu Jishu Yuan Dan. BRBR. As a father, he can't even make the decision about his daughter's marriage, so he can only let others manipulate him and let his daughter suffer such injustice. BRBR. He took a deep breath, and a trace of determination flashed in his eyes. BRBR. Since the ancestor wants to dictate the affairs of the clan, then it's okay for me, the patriarch, not to do it. BRBR. I will go find my ancestor and resign as the patriarch. BRBR. After the words fell, Bai Zizai turned around and rushed out of the room. BRBR in the room, only Bai Qingjue, the great elder and Bai Qingru were left. BRBR Bai Qingru walked up to Bai Qingjue and looked her up and down. BRBR Bai Qingjue, you, a waste with no cultivation, want to marry into the Kanglan imperial clan. It is simply wishful thinking. BRBR only I am worthy of a person like Chu Feng. BRBR when I marry into the Chu family, I will let the Chu family support my grandfather in power. BRBR when the time comes, you and your useless father will be worse than even dogs in the White Tiger royal clan. BRBR speaking of this, she couldn't help but feel more and more proud. BRBR, just hide in the corner and watch me enjoy my glory. BRBR, are you done? Bai Qingjue just glanced at her lightly and said, let's go out after that. BRBR Bai Qingru only felt that sh. He had been punched on the cotton, and she felt more and more unhappy. BRBR at this moment, there was a sudden rush of footsteps outside the room. BRBR here it comes, the wedding team of the Kanglan imperial clan is here. BRBR the sound spread from far to near, and spread throughout the entire White Tiger royal family in an instant. BRBR Bai Qingru's eyes lit up instantly, and she no longer cared about mocking Bai Qingjue. She quickly adjusted her phoenix crown and harem and ran outside. BRBR Bai Qingjue looked towards the sky through the window. BRBR 6 ships were engraved with the Kanglan imperial clan's emblem. The royal skyboats tore through the clouds and descended slowly. BRBR the royal skyboats were surrounded by aura, each 100 feet long, extremely luxurious. BRBR everyone in the White Tiger royal family looked up at the royal skyboats in the sky, and their eyes widened. BRBR not long after, the hatches of the 6 royal sky boats opened at the same time, and 36 strong men in the late stage of the fusion realm came out. BRBR the Kanglan imperial clan sent 36 fusion realm experts to welcome the bride at once. This background directly shocked everyone in the White Tiger royal clan. BRBR, my god, is this the strength of the Kanglan imperial clan? BRBR, by clinging to the Kanglan imperial clan, our White Tiger royal clan is really going to rise. BRBR Bai Qingjue is such a blessing, even if he can't practice, he can still join the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR at this moment, Chu Feng, dressed in a bright red groom's uniform, stepped off the royal skyboat. BRBR he did not release his aura deliberately, but the unique Taoist charm of the immortal bones came out naturally. BRBR the handsome face is somewhat indifferent, but it also reveals a splendor that makes people dare not look directly at him. BRBR the moment the members of the White Tiger royal clan saw Chu Feng, they exploded again. BRBR I didn't expect that the person who awakened the immortal bones from the Kanglan imperial clan would be so handsome. BRBR such a grace is like a descendant from heaven. BRBR immortal bone owners are really different, much better than those geniuses from the 10,000 Demons Palace. BRBR seeing this, the great elder quickly walked forward with Bai Qingru and a smile on his face. BRBR the old great elder of the White Tiger royal family is here to welcome the Holy Sun. BRBR as he said that, he quickly pushed Bai Qingru, who was wearing a luxurious wedding dress, in front of Chu Feng. BRBR Holy Sun, this is the bride you want to marry. BRBR Bai Qingru covered her head with a red hijab, lowering her head and pretending to be shy, but she was filled with pride in her heart. BRBR presumably, Chu Feng would be attracted by her luxurious wedding dress at this moment, so he was speechless. BRBR but Chu Feng, who was standing opposite, his eyes fell on Bai Qingru, his brows frowned slightly for an instant, and an imperceptible coldness flashed in his eyes. BRBR although the woman in front of him was covered with a red hijab and could not see her face clearly, he could see through her luck at a glance. BRBR there is only a thin green halo surrounding the woman, and her luck is extremely ordinary. BRBR Bai Qingjue's awakening Bai Huju's body still has silver luck. He can't think of anything that could cause Bai Qingjue's luck to plummet to green in 10 days. BRBR unless the person in front of you is not Bai Qingjue at all. BRBR Chu Feng looked at the great elder and asked coldly. BRBR is she Bai Qingjue? BRBR the great elder was shocked, but he still pretended to be calm and answered with a smile while avoiding the important matter. BRBR this is the saint of our clan, the bride you want to marry. BRBR he thought that Chu Feng couldn't see the clues and just wanted to deal with it. BRBR but Chu Feng did not give him a chance to say anything more. He raised his hand and directly lifted the red hijab on Bai Qingru's head. BRBR the red hijab fell to the ground, and Bai Qingru's face was completely exposed to everyone. BRBR the moment they saw that face clearly, everyone in the audience widened their eyes. BRBR isn't this Bai Qingru? BRBR the great elder's granddaughter, why is she? BRBR what is the great elder doing? Does he want Bai Qingru to marry him instead? BRBR although Bai Qingru is the great elder's granddaughter, her reputation in the White Tiger royal family has long been bad. BRBR a lewd and despicable woman almost slept with all the young geniuses of the White Tiger royal family, and she even wanted to marry into the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR Bai Qingjue's appearance and temperament are far superior to Bai Qingruo's. Even if her cultivation is completely useless, she is still 100 times stronger than Bai Qingru. BRBR the Great Elder actually dared to hide it from the Kanglan imperial clan and asked his granddaughter to marry him. Is he really not afraid that the Kanglan imperial clan would find out and plunge the entire White Tiger royal clan into a place of no return? BRBR Chu Feng's eyes fell on Bai Qingruo's face. He had seen Bai Qingjue with his own eyes, so naturally she was not the woman in front of him. BRBR he took a step forward, and the aura around him suddenly converged, but Bai Qingru felt an inexplicable palpitation in her heart. BRBR, are you Bai Qingjue? BRBR Bai Qingru shrank her neck subconsciously, but when she thought of her grandfather behind her, and of the glory and wealth she was about to receive, she immediately straightened her back. BRBR she raised her hand to straighten the beaded flowers on her temples, with just the right amount of shyness on her face, and she blessed Chu Feng with a voice that was so soft and greasy. BRBR returning to my husband, I am my concubine. BRBR she deliberately emphasized the word husband for fear that others could not hear clearly. BRBR while talking, he secretly looked up at Chu Feng and sighed in his heart. BRBR what a handsome man. BRBR Chu Feng is more handsome than any man she has ever slept with. He is worthy of being a genius of the human race with immortal bones. BRBR in her opinion, Chu Feng is just a country bumpkin from the eastern region, and may not know the inside story of the White Tiger royal family. As long as she insists on her identity, the marriage will be a foregone conclusion. BRBR however, the surrounding tribesmen exploded instantly. BRBR you are so shameless, you dare to admit this? BRBR it is really a disgrace to the White Tiger royal family, how could the Great Elder teach his granddaughter? BRBR Chu Feng is not easy to fool at first glance, I think she is asking for trouble. BRBR Chu Feng ignored the surrounding discussions and did not look at Bai Qingru again. BRBR his consciousness instantly covered the entire White Tiger royal family, and then his eyes fell on a courtyard deep in the royal family. BRBR there is a faint silver light lingering there, Bai Qingjue must be there. BRBR Chu Feng withdrew his gaze, raised his feet and walked towards the other courtyard. BRBR husband. BRBR Bai Qingru became anxious when she saw that Chu Feng was leaving. BRBR she took 3 steps at a time to catch up, and directly grabbed Chu Feng's arm. BRBR husband, where are you going? BRBR Chu Feng's body froze instantly. He looked down at the hand on his arm and frowned so hard that he could pinch a fly to death. BRBR let go. BRBR Bai Qingru seemed not to hear, but held her arm tighter, and even leaned against him. BRBR husband, the auspicious time is coming, why don't you carry me into the sedan chair? BRBR I say it again, let go. BRBR Chu Feng's tone was a bit colder, and a hint of impatience lashed in his eyes. BRBR Bai Qingru still did not let go, but instead tried harder to hook Chu Feng's neck. BRBR husband, you, BRBR get out. BRBR crack. BRBR Chu Feng's patience was completely exhausted, and he slapped Bai Qingru hard on the face. BRBR Bai Qingru's body was like a kite with its string broken, and she was blown away directly. BRBR she drew an arc in the air and fell heavily to the ground more than 10 feet away. The phoenix crown rolled down, looking extremely embarrassed. BRBR Chu Feng retracted his hand and didn't even look at him. He just warned in a cold voice. BRBR if you dare to act rashly, you will die. BRBR half of Bai Qingruo's cheek was swollen and painful. BRBR she waited for a long time before sitting up on the ground. The shyness in her eyes had long disappeared. BRBR she pointed at Chu Feng and shouted at the top of her lungs, BRBR you, a country bumpkin from the eastern region, dare to hit me. Do you know who my grandfather is? BRBR cold light flashed in Chu Feng's eyes. Ever since he came to Zhongzhou, I don't know how many people have said that he is a country bumpkin. BRBR I didn't expect that a mere first-level god incarnation would dare to talk nonsense in front of him. BRBR then immediately, a strong murderous intention filled the air. BRBR 36 elders stepped forward at the same time. Zhou Bai Qingru was enveloped in pressure, and as long as Chu Feng gave the order, Bai Qingru would die on the spot. BRBR the elder's expression suddenly changed. How dare he let Bai Qingru continue speaking? He rushed over, covered Bai Qingruo's mouth, and bowed to Chu Feng, with a flattering smile on his face. BRBR, sir, calm down, you have a lot of knowledge, don't be the same as her. BRBR as he spoke, he ignored Bai Qingruo's struggle, covered her mouth tightly, and dragged her away forcefully. BRBR Bai Qingruo's curses were blocked in her throat, and she could only make a whining sound, while her eyes stared at Chu Feng. BRBR Chu Feng ignored the ancestor. The two of them turned around and walked towards the remote courtyard. BRBR at this moment, Bai Qingjue was sitting in front of the dressing table. She had already dressed herself and even put on a red hijab. BRBR. For some reason, her heartbeat inexplicably accelerated from the moment Chu Feng stepped into the White Tiger royal family. BRBR. Somehow, she always felt that Chu Feng would definitely find this place and recognize her. BRBR. Squeak. BRBR. At this moment, the door was pushed open from the outside, and a breeze blew in, lifting the hem of her wedding dress. BRBR. By Qingjue's body tensed up instantly. She subconsciously clenched the jade hand on her knee, and even her breathing stopped for a moment. BRBR. Chu Feng stood at the door and his eyes fell on the figure in front of the dressing table. BRBR. Soon, he saw the silver halo lingering around by Qingjue. This was the person he was looking for. BRBR. He walked behind by Qingjue and looked at her with a red hijab in the bronze mirror, with a hint of apology in his tone. BRBR. Madam, I'm late. BRBR. Just 6 words, like a warm current flowing into Bai Qingjue's heart. BRBR. Her grip on the jade hand gradually relaxed, and her shoulders trembled slightly. BRBR. After a moment of silence, she spoke slowly, with a hint of relief in her voice. BRBR. Just right. BRBR. At this moment, there was a rush of footsteps outside the courtyard door, and Bai Zizai also walked in. BRBR. When he saw Chu Feng standing behind his daughter, the anxiety on his face instantly disappeared. BRBR. Holy son, why are you here? BRBR. Chu Feng's eyes have always been on Bai Qingjue. After what happened just now, he also saw that the water of the White Tiger royal family seems to be deeper than he imagined. BRBR. Although Bai Zizai is the patriarch of the White Tiger royal family, he does not seem to be able to truly control the entire White Tiger royal family. BRBR. Today is my special day. I'm not in my wife's room. Where should I be? BRBR. Bai Zizai was stunned for a moment, and then his eyes became hot. BRBR. He walked to Bai Qingjue, gently held his daughter's hand, and then handed it into Chu Feng's hand. BRBR. Holy son, Qingjue has suffered too many grievances over the years. My daughter will be handed over to you in the future. BRBR. Chu Feng held Bai Qingjue's hand tightly. Her hand was slightly cold but very soft. BRBR. From today on, no one will dare to let Qingju suffer any injustice as long as I am here. The token burst out with dazzling white light, soared into the sky, and turned into the shadow of a huge white tiger, hovering and roaring over the royal family, the sound shaking the whole world. BRBR. Seeing this, everyone raised their heads and looked at the sky. BRBR. This is the summoning order of the ancestor. The great elder has summoned the ancestor. BRBR. In the void, when the white tiger's shadow disappeared, an old man stepped out of the shadow and descended over the other courtyard. It was Bai Yutian, the ancestor of the White Tiger royal family. BRBR. The Mahayana pressure lingered around him, causing all the tribesmen to kneel down and salute subconsciously. BRBR. Ancestor. BRBR. Seeing Bai Yutian appear, the great elder seemed to be grasping at a life-saving straw, crawling towards the void with tears streaming down his face. BRBR. Bai Yutian glanced at him condescendingly, frowning slightly. BRBR. Why are you summoning me? BRBR. The great elder immediately seized the opportunity, pointed at the other courtyard and burst into tears. BRBR. Ancestor. This Chu Feng took advantage of his status as the holy son of the Kanglan imperial clan and deliberately ordered people to cause wanton trouble in my royal family. He also allowed his subordinates to beat me seriously and seriously injured me. This shows that he does not take my White Tiger royal family seriously at all. BRBR. Hearing this, Bai Yutian frowned even more tightly. BRBR. He knew Chu Feng's identity. He was the holy son of the Kanglan imperial clan who had awakened his immortal bones. The power behind him was overwhelming and he was not easy to offend. BRBR. Originally, he had made up his mind to reprimand Chu Feng a few words and give the great elder a step down, and then the matter was over. BRBR. But at this moment, Bai Yutian's eyes inadvertently swept across Bai Qingjue's other courtyard. BRBR. When he saw the mountains of spiritual stones and precious tree shores in the courtyard, his eyes widened instantly, revealing a trace of greed. BRBR. Those resources are twice as much as the treasures in the White Tiger royal family's treasure house. BRBR. If they are all put into the treasure house, it will be enough to bring the White Tiger royal family to a higher level. BRBR. Bai Yutian turned to look at Chu Feng and shouted sternly. BRBR. Chu Feng, I order you to hand over all your resources immediately, and then kowtow to the great elder to apologize. BRBR. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude to you. BRBR. Unexpectedly, Chu Feng was not afraid at all. BRBR. Bai Yutian, as an ancestor of the Mahayana period, you don't want to protect your clan, but instead focus on other people's betrothal gifts. Are you worthy of being called an ancestor? BRBR. These resources are the betrothal gifts given to Qingjue by our Kanglan imperial clan. They belong to her personally and have nothing to do with your White Tiger royal clan. BRBR. However, Bai Yutian was furious after his thoughts were exposed. BRBR. As the ancestor of the royal family, when had he been insulted like this in public? BRBR Shuzi is arrogant. BRBR by Yutian was furious, and the Mahayana spiritual power around him suddenly exploded, crushing down like a tsunami, and the air was squeezed to the point of roaring. BRBR he raised his hand and slapped Chu Feng hard. BRBR if this palm hits, Chu Feng will definitely be shattered to pieces. BRBR holy son, be careful. BRBR the expressions of the 36 elders suddenly changed, and they immediately gathered around to protect Chu Feng in the center. BRBR everyone pressed the magic formula at the same time, the golden light surged, and a defensive formation was instantly formed. BRBR boom, BRBR along with a shocking loud noise, it shook the entire White Tiger royal family. A shockwave of terror swept across all directions, and the walls of other courtyards collapsed instant. TLY BRBR it's over, Chu Tianjiao must be defeated. BRBR, the Mahayana stage and the combined stage are so different that they cannot be stopped at all. BRBR 36 people can't catch the ancestors' blow. BRBR after a while, the smoke slowly dissipated. BRBR the sight in front of them shocked all the White Tiger disciples, and they all froze in place. BRBR the formation set up by the 36 fusion realms still stood firmly, without even a crack. BRBR in the formation, Chu Feng was safe and sound. BRBR with just one formation, he could withstand the full blow of the Mahayana ancestor. BRBR the terrifying background of the Kanglan imperial clan was revealed at this moment. BRBR how is this possible? BRBR the formation of the combined realm really blocked the Mahayana attack. BRBR the Kanglan imperial clan is too strong, this kind of formation is unheard of. BRBR by Yutian in the air also looked surprised, obviously not expecting his attack to be blocked. BRBR but he couldn't make the ancestor lose face, so he could only say harsh words. BRBR humph, it was just a casual attack by me, and I didn't use my full strength. BRBR Chu Feng, don't think that you can compete with the formation. You will never be able to cross the gap between the combined stage and the Mahayana stage. BRBR today, I will teach you, an arrogant young man, a lesson. BRBR by Yutian's spiritual power surged again, preparing to use all his strength to crush the formation. BRBR at the moment he was about to take action, the void was forcibly torn apart by a terrifying force. BRBR a white figure stepped out of the crack. She was graceful and graceful. BRBR it was a power that far surpassed that of Bai Yutian, and the spiritual energy of heaven and earth surrendered to it just by its arrival. BRBR the person who came was GC, the ancestor of the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR GC glanced at the scene, and his heart was led with anger. BRBR by Yutian, you are so brave. BRBR she didn't hesitate at all, she raised her hand and struck a palm. BRBR the spiritual power of the world shook, and a huge jade palm print appeared. BRBR by Yutian's face changed drastically, and he had no time to resist, and was hit hard by the palm. BRBR pfft. BRBR by Yutian's body flew hundreds of feet upside down like a kite with its string cut off, and he was even more injured than the great elder. BRBR what's even more terrifying is that the lifespan in Bai Yutian's body was running out like crazy, and that palm actually destroyed his 10,000-year lifespan. BRBR his originally rosy face became much older in an instant. BRBR the scene completely shocked everyone in the audience. BRBR none of them expected that when Chu Feng welcomed the bride, the ancestor of the Kanglan imperial clan would personally escort him. BRBR how much attention is this? BRBR ancestor Kanglan actually came here in person, she is so beautiful. BRBR the Kanglan imperial clan must have valued him too much, no wonder they are so unscrupulous. BRBR she severely injured our ancestor with one palm, and lost 10,000 years of life, she is too strong. BRBR by Yutian, who was paralyzed on the ground, was also confused, and could not believe what he was seeing. BRBR he heard that the ancestor of the Kanglan imperial clan was approaching his end of life, had been in seclusion all year round, and might pass away at any time. BRBR but the aura of GC in front of him was vast, and how could he look like he was about to expire? BRBR GC was suspended in the air, his cold eyes falling on Bai Yutian. BRBR today is Chu Feng's happy day. I don't want to kill, so I count you lucky, get out. BRBR Bai Yutian gritted his molars, feeling extremely humiliated in his heart. BRBR but he knew that the gap in strength between himself and GC was like a natural chasm, and if he dared to stay any longer, he would surely die. BRBR the next moment, his figure disappeared directly from the spot. BRBR when the great elder saw that his ancestors had all run away, his face instantly turned pale, and he rolled and crawled behind him, disappearing from everyone's sight. BRBR by Kingju clenched her hands tightly, and her voice was choked. BRBR husband. If you can't get it out, put down the medicinal materials as soon as possible. Elder Chu Xian won't care about your identity, even if the clan leader comes. BRBR Chu Feng ignored Chu Xian's ridicule, and just lifted his robe gently, revealing the token hanging at his waist. BRBR The Kanglan ancestral pattern on the token shone brightly, and it was the supreme token of the Kanglan imperial clan given by GC himself. BRBR Elder, how many contribution points do I need? BRBR, I said. 1. BRBR Chu Xian was just halfway through his words when he inadvertently caught a glimpse of the token around Chu Feng's waist. His pupils were shocked, and the indifference on his face disappeared instantly. BRBR He suddenly raised his head, widened his eyes, and looked at Chu Feng with a surprised expression. BRBR After confirming that the token was given by his ancestor, the words that were on his lips suddenly changed. BRBR It's not necessary at all. BRBR Chu Feng nodded lightly, without any surprise. BRBR Thank you, Elder. BRBR After saying that, he put away all the medicinal materials, turned around and walked out of the treasure house, without looking at Chu Xian again during the whole process. BRBR Chu Xian, who was originally waiting to see Chu Feng's joke, was completely dumbfounded in an instant. BRBR He froze on the spot, his mind went blank, and the gloating on his face was frozen on his face. It was so ugly. BRBR How is this possible? BRBR Chu Feng was actually able to take away all the medicinal materials without any contribution points, and there were more than a dozen holy medicines among them. BRBR When Chu Xian came to his senses, he immediately rushed to Elder Chu Xian, pointed at Chu Feng's leaving back, and asked with unhappiness, BRBR Why doesn't he need to pay contribution points? Everyone is equal before the clan rules, you are showing favoritism. BRBR Elder Chu Xian glanced at Chu Xian coldly, with a sarcastic smile on his lips. BRBR Just because he has the supreme token given by his ancestor, do you have it? BRBR Chu Xian was shocked and exclaimed, BRBR How could he have the supreme token? BRBR He seemed to have thought of something, and immediately said with determination, BRBR The token must be fake, he actually dared to forge the supreme token. BRBR Elder Chu Xian was too lazy to pay attention to Chu Xian anymore. The token given by the ancestor personally had the mark of the ancestor's soul on it. How could he not be able to tell the authenticity from the fake? BRBR Seeing that Chu Xian ignored him, Chu Xian reminded him sternly, BRBR He forged the token and withdrew so many holy medicines. If the patriarch holds him accountable, can you afford this responsibility? BRBR A chill flashed across Elder Chu Xian's eyes, and a spiritual power surged slightly. BRBR Chu Xian, are you teaching me how to do things? BRBR Chu Xian shuddered instantly and woke up instantly. BRBR Junior dare not. BRBR Seeing Chu Xian's resolute attitude, Chu Xian couldn't help but start to wonder, is the ancestor token in Chu Feng's hand real? BRBR If it is the real ancestor token, wouldn't Chu Feng's status in the clan be unmatched by anyone? BRBR The thoughts in Chu Xian's mind were racing. Since Chu Feng could use the ancestor token to freely withdraw the holy medicine from the treasure house, then if he could borrow the token and use it once, wouldn't he also be able to get the holy medicine he wanted? BRBR Although Chu Feng had taken away the phoenix marrow essence practicing herb, Cook clan could not use it. There are still more holy medicines, and it is not just phoenix essence root grass that can help him break through the bottleneck. BRBR Thinking of this, Chu Xian immediately chased Chu Feng in the direction he left. BRBR Chu Feng was hugging him. Holding Su Jian's waist, she walked chatting and laughing. Did she tease Su Jia? And with a big hand? BRBR Chu Feng leaned close to her ear and murmured in a low voice, BRBR, but why do I think you seem to be more excited? BRBR No. BRBR Although she said so, Su Jian's cheeks became redder and redder, and her heartbeat couldn't help but beat faster and faster. BRBR Her peripheral vision even glanced at a rockery not far away, and the image of Chu Feng behind the rockery came to mind. The scene of wanton ravage. BRBR Just thinking about it, she felt that her legs were weak and she could hardly walk. BRBR At this moment, Chu Xian quickly caught up. BRBR Brother, I want to ask you for something. BRBR Chu Feng stopped and turned to look at Chu Xian. BRBR Even if Chu Xian didn't speak, he knew what the other party was doing. BRBR Third brother, you might as well say it directly. If it's within my power, I will go through fire and water without hesitation. BRBR Chu Xian's eyes lit up and he said quickly, BRBR Ninth brother, can you lend me your token? Just use it once. BRBR Hearing this, Chu Feng had a look of embarrassment on his face, and his tone was a little helpless. BRBR Third brother, it's not that I won't help you, it's actually that the ancestor gave me this token personally. He also specifically told me that this token is of great importance and must not be lent to others. BRBR Taking a step back, even if Chu Xian did not send Su Jian to harm him, he would not be able to lend the token out. BRBR Chu Xian is a competitor for the Emperor's son. How could he help Chu Xian break through the realm before the Emperor's son's ceremony? BRBR I also want to help the third brother, but I am really powerless. BRBR As he said that, he took out the phoenix essence Peiyuan grass directly from Neji. BRBR Third brother wants this holy medicine, right? BRBR, that's right. BRBR. Chu Xian was overjoyed, and his eyes fell on the holy medicine in Chu Feng's hand. BRBR, ninth brother. It doesn't matter if you don't want to borrow the token. I don't need the token for you. I just want this phoenix marrow cultivating grass. BRBR, as long as you give me that holy medicine, I will be grateful to you. BRBR. As he spoke, he stretched out his hand, eager to take the holy medicine in Chu Feng's hand. BRBR. As long as he refines this phoenix essence cultivating grass, his cultivation will be further improved. BRBR. When he becomes the emperor of the Kanglan imperial clan in the future, even Chu Feng will have to kneel down in front of him. BRBR. He will make many sacrifices to him. Jian snatched it back and played with it in front of Chu Feng, letting Su Jian know the price of betrayal. BRBR. Unexpectedly, Chu Feng withdrew his wrist and put the Feng Shui Yuanchao back into the ring. BRBR. Third brother, don't worry, after I finish using this medicine to make elixirs, I will give you a portion of the medicine dregs to thank you for sending Jian to my bed. BRBR. Medicine residue? BRBR. By the time Chu Xian reacted, Chu Feng had already hugged Su Jian's waist and left. BRBR. Su Jian nestled in Chu Feng's arms and looked back at Chu Xian. BRBR. Seeing that his face was ashen, uglier than eating shit, she couldn't help it anymore and burst out laughing. BRBR. She laughed so hard that her branches were trembling, and she didn't care at all. Chu Xian's eyes were almost murderous. BRBR. Chu Xian stood there, watching the two people leaving, and listening to Su Jian's laughter. Humiliation, anger, and jealousy surged into his heart. BRBR. He clenched his fists and let out a vicious roar. BRBR. You two adulterers, just wait, I will make you pay the price. BRBR. BRBR. Night falls. BRBR. The Kanglan imperial clan is decorated with lanterns and colorful decorations everywhere. The red lanterns illuminate the ancestral land in red. The festive atmosphere of the sun's wedding permeates every corner. BRBRT. The red candle was burning brightly in the wedding room, and the candle flame was swaying gently. BRBR. By Qingjue was sitting on the edge of the warm jade bed, with a bright red hijab covering her head, and a bright red wedding dress falling quietly on her face. She didn't have the shyness of an ordinary bride, only full of anxiety and expectation. BRBR. At this moment, her mind replayed this day's experience repeatedly, from the time when the White Tiger royal family was replaced by Qingru, to Chu Feng protecting her in public, and then all the way. Being connected to the Kanglan imperial clan, everything felt like an unreal dream. BRBR. But what she cared about most in her heart was the shackles of heaven that made her useless. BRBR. Can you really help me unlock the shackles of heaven? BRBR. The footsteps outside the door came closer and closer, and Bai Qingjue's heartbeat accelerated instantly. BRBR. She knew that Chu Feng was coming. BRBR. Chu Feng stepped into the house. As the door closed, there was only the crackling sound of red candles burning and the rapid breathing of the two people in the house. BRBR. Chu Feng walked to the bed, picked up Yurui, and lifted Bai Qingjue's red hijab. BRBR. The light of the candlelight fell on Bai Qingjue's face, instantly illuminating her appearance. BRBR. The skin is as white as snow, glowing softly under the red candle. The eyebrows and eyes are still as cold as before, but because of the bright red wedding dress, they are even more bright and charming. BRBR. Bai Qingjue's beautiful eyes were filled with a bit of anxiety, but she was stunned when she raised her eyes to look at Chu Feng. BRBR. It's you. BRBR. When she welcomed the bride during the day, she kept her head covered with a hijab. She had never seen Chu Feng's appearance, only heard his voice. BRBR. It wasn't until the hijab was lifted at this moment that she could see Feng's appearance clearly. BRBR. The handsome face has clear outlines, and the aura of the immortal bones flows faintly, just like a banished immortal. BRBR. She remembers this face. BRBR. 10 days ago, she left the palace of 10,000 demons alone and caught a glimpse of a Kanglan imperial clan royal sky boat cutting through the void, with a handsome figure standing at the head of the boat. BRBR. That figure is Chu Feng. BRBR. The sudden glimpse of Chu Feng left a deep impression on her. It was such a handsome man that it was difficult for people to forget him. BRBR. But she never thought that she would marry this person she had only met once. BRBR. I never thought that the man I had glimpsed would be the holy son of the Kanglan imperial clan with immortal bones, and that he would even personally come to marry her, a waste that everyone despises. BRBR. Chu Feng looked at her shocked look, with a gentle smile on his lips. BRBR. Madam, do you still remember me? BRBR. Bai Qingjue came back to her senses and nodded quickly. BRBR. When I left the palace of 10,000 demons, I saw you standing on the bow of the royal sky boat, so I had an impression. BRBR. Speaking of this, she lowered her eyes. BRBR. My cultivation is completely useless and I have become a waste that everyone laughs at. Why do you want to marry me? Chu Xianxiao nodded, and then explained. BRBR. Before entering the palace of 10,000 demons, Chu Feng asked me about Bai Qingjue. I think he saw how extraordinary Bai Qingjue was at that time. BRBR Chu Feng was right, this Bai Qingjue is the true genius, Feng Lingxi is simply trash, not even worthy of carrying Bai Qingjue's shoes. BRBR in the wedding room. BRBR Bai Qingjue's cultivation level began to skyrocket. His cultivation level at the Golden Core realm, which had been stagnant for 3 full years, instantly broke through the shackles under the dual blessings of the White Tiger Immortal Body and the Tiger Roar Peiyuan Pill. BRBR the second level of the Golden Elixir, the third level of the Golden Elixir, the fourth level of the Golden Elixir. BRBR it was a smooth journey, but in an instant, it broke through to the 9th level of the Golden Elixir. BRBR immediately afterwards, the Golden Elixir in her dantian began to rotate violently, and a large amount of spiritual power boiled and rolled, beginning to impact the nascent soul realm. BRBR above the void, a huge white tiger Dharma phase condensed and formed. BRBR the whole body is white with snow, and it is surrounded by immortal energy. It is exactly the same as the phantom of the white tiger in the vision of heaven and earth just now. BRBR Bai Qingjue felt the nascent soul forming in her dantian, and tears instantly blurred her eyes. BRBR she held Chu Feng's hand tightly, her whole body trembling with excitement, and her voice was even choked with sobs. BRBR husband, I have given birth to a baby, I really have given birth to a baby. BRBR for 3 years, she was trapped in the first level of the Golden Core, being laughed at and looked down upon. BRBR now not only has the shackles of heaven been broken, but she has also successfully given birth to a baby, which is something she never dared to dream of. BRBR but her cultivation did not stop because of the Bai RTH of a baby. BRBR first level of nascent soul, second level of nascent soul, third level of nascent soul. BRBR in a blink of an eye, he broke through the barrier of the nascent soul realm and soared directly to the nascent soul realm. BRBR the first level of divine transformation, the second level of divine transformation, the third level of divine transformation. BRBR every breakthrough is without any bottlenecks, as easy as drinking water and eating. BRBR in just a moment, Bai Qingjue's cultivation level skyrocketed from the Golden Core realm to the 9th level of the divine transformation realm. BRBR transformation into God, 9th level. BRBR feeling the terrifying power of the 9th level of transformation into God within his body, Bai Qingjue could no longer suppress the excitement in his heart and burst into tears. BRBR teardrops slid down her beautiful cheeks, dripping on the red wedding dress, leaving a few wet marks. BRBR she looked at Chu Feng with tearful eyes and choked with sobs. BRBR my husband has renewed my kindness to Qingju. BRBR Chu Feng looked at her expression of pear blossoms with rain, and deliberately teased her. BRBR then, call me daddy. BRBR a trace of doubt appeared in Bai Qingjue's beautiful eyes. She had never heard of this title in all her years of living and did not understand its meaning at all. BRBR but at this moment, she could only obey Chu Feng. She would do whatever Chu Feng said. BRBR the palace of 10,000 demons. BRBR Feng Qianyu suddenly felt a terrifying immortal pressure coming from the direction of the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR immediately afterwards, the deafening sound of tiger roars reached my ears across the endless territory. BRBR Feng Qianyu stood up suddenly and walked quickly to the window. BRBR she raised her head and looked in the direction of the Kanglan imperial clan, a hint of shock flashed through her eyes. BRBR someone fro. The Kanglan imperial clan is actually refining the immortal elixir. The remaining power of the elixir is even more terrifying than 10 days ago. BRBR but when she felt the pressure carefully and heard the roars of tigers, her body trembled, as if she had thought of something. BRBR this is, the vision of the white tiger immortal body coming into the world. BRBR at this moment, she instantly thought of the useless daughter of the white tiger royal family who was abandoned by the palace of 10,000 demons, Bai Qingjue. BRBR, could it be that Bai Qingjue broke the shackles of heaven of the white tiger Ju body and awakened the white tiger immortal body? BRBR when this idea emerged, Feng Qianyu's heart was filled with turmoil. BRBR she finally understood why the Kanglan imperial clan insisted on marrying Bai Qingjue. The white tiger immortal body was enough to drive any imperial clan crazy, and even crush the blackbird and phoenix bones. BRBR Feng Lingxi was soaking in the warm spiritual spring with her exquisite bare feet. BRBR the jade feet swayed gently, causing ripples. BRBR but when the ear-splitting tiger roar came, she stood stunned in the spiritual spring. BRBR she turned her head with a stiff neck and looked in the direction of the Kanglan imperial clan, and a white tiger seemed to appear in front of her eyes. BRBR for some reason, a wave of regret crept into her heart. BRBR Feng Lingxi's feet stopped shaking and her beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. BRBR Chu Feng, is this the result you want? BRBR, since you have the ability to help Bai Qingjue break the shackles of heaven and let her awaken the white tiger immortal body, why didn't you tell her earlier? BRBR, if you had told me earlier, I would definitely give you a chance to lick me. BRBR by Qingjue went from being a trash despised by everyone to becoming the pride of the white tiger immortal physique. BRBR, and she is still the black K-bird saint who was despised by Chu Feng and was not even worthy of being a concubine. BRBR Feng Lingxi clenched her jade hands tightly, her nails dug into her palms and blood oozed out, but she felt no pain at all. BRBR, Chu Feng, are you very proud of making me the laughingstock of the entire Suenio imperial clan? BRBR one day and one night. BRBR by Qingjue woke up leisurely, his limbs and bones showing laziness and fatigue. BRBR by Qingjue subconsciously circulated the spiritual power in her body, and in an instant, the terrifying coercion of the 9th level of the divine transformation realm burst out from her body. BRBR the table and chairs shook slightly, the spiritual mist billowed, and the real sense of power made her instantly feel relieved. BRBR she was afraid that everything last night was just a sweet dream, but the power of the 9th level of divine transformation that she felt personally at this moment made her lips curl up with a smile. BRBR by Qingjue snuggled into Chu Feng's arms and said softly. BRBR, husband, I want to return to the White Tiger royal clan today and tell my father personally the news of breaking the shackles of heaven and awakening the immortal body. BRBR Chu Feng stroked her long black hair and nodded. BRBR okay, I will go back with you. BRBR after receiving Chu Feng's consent, Bai Qingjue felt warm in his heart. BRBR after hesitating for a moment, he finally asked the question that had been lingering in his mind all night. BRBR husband, why are you able to refine immortal elixirs? Are you an immortal? BRBR Chu Feng looked at her serious look in her eyes and couldn't help but chuckle, saying half seriously and half jokingly. BRBR, because your husband is the alchemy emperor. BRBR he thought that Bai Qingjue would just treat this as a joke and laugh it off. BRBR unexpectedly, Bai Qingjue stopped smiling in an instant and muttered again with a serious face. BRBR, my husband is the alchemy emperor. BRBR Bai Qingjue leaned in Chu Feng's arms, recalling the past story about Chu Feng going to the 10,000 Demons Palace to propose marriage, and a relieved smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. BRBR if Feng Lingxi had not made a scene and humiliated Chu Feng that day, perhaps this marriage would not have fallen on her head at all. BRBR Feng Lingxi, I'm afraid you will never know that you missed the best husband in the world. BRBR the White Tiger royal family. BRBR the Kanglin Imperial Clan royal sky boat tore through the clouds and landed on the White Tiger royal clan square. BRBR Bai Zizai had already been waiting on the square with all the elders of his clan. When he saw Chu Feng and Bai Qingjue walking off the royal sky boat side by side, his eyes instantly became hot. BRBR Qingju. BRBR the Kanglin Imperial Clan made such a big noise last night, and he naturally felt it. BRBR recalling that Chu Feng said that he could break the shackles of heaven on Bai Qingjue, he already had a guess in his mind. BRBR however, when he really faced Chu Feng and Bai Qingjue, he opened his mouth, but he didn't have the courage to ask. BRBR Qingjue, the shackles of heaven on your body. BRBR Bai Qingjue looked at his father's expectant eyes, with tears in his eyes, and nodded heavily. BRBR, my daughter's shackles of heaven have been broken by her husband, and she has awakened the White Tiger immortal body. BRBR White Tiger immortal body? BRBR Bai Zizai felt like she was struck by lightning, her mind went blank, and then a surge of ecstasy surged into her heart, making her whole body tremble with excitement. BRBR he has been waiting for this day for 3 full years, and the White Tiger royal family finally has hope of rising. BRBR Bai Qingjue said no more, his spiritual power burst out all over his body, and the terrifying coercion of the 9th level of the God transformation realm swept across the entire White Tiger royal family. BRBR although with her current cultivation level, she is still not as good as most elders in the clan. BRBR but she has embarked on the path of cultivation again, and it is only a matter of time before her strength exceeds that of everyone in the White Tiger royal family. BRBR the White Tiger clan members in the square all widened their eyes, and then there was an uproar. BRBR, the saint actually broke through to the 9th level of divine transformation overnight. BRBR, the White Tiger immortal body is really terrifying, even more powerful than Feng Lingxi's phoenix bones. BRBR, our White Tiger royal family is finally about to rise. BRBR among the crowd, Bai Qingru looked at the dazzling Bai Qingjue in the center of the square, and her eyes were almost red with jealousy. BRBR why? BRBR obviously she should be the one to marry Chu Feng, and he should be the one to awaken the immortal body. But now everything has been taken away by Bai Qingjue. BRBR in the corner of the crowd, Shanyuan Tian, who had a crooked mouth, was holding a toilet and stood there blankly, feeling like his heart was twisting. BRBR only the last day left, the 3-year period will be completed, and he can announce his identity in public and slap everyone who has bullied him in the face. BRBR, he has already planned everything. He wants to refine Fengling Nirvana pill for Bai Qingjue, help her break the shackles of heaven, and capture her heart. BRBR, but Chu Feng took the lead and broke Bai Qingjue's shackles, allowing her to awaken her immortal body. He even married her and became her husband. BRBR, one step slow, every step slow. BRBR, when he thought of Bai Qingjue having sex under Chu Feng last night, Shan Tian felt that his heart was torn apart and the pain made him suffocate. BRBR, he stared at Chu Feng's back, his eyes full of hatred, and his heart roared crazily. BRBR, Chu Feng, you really deserve to die. In the 9th level of divine transformation, every major realm has reached the ultimate realm. How terrifying a foundation does this require? BRBR, his spiritual power is at least 10 times more powerful than that of monks in the same realm. BRBR, Shan Tian's expression also changed. He originally thought that he was in the 9th level of divine transformation, and with his natural sword bones, he was enough to crush those in the same realm. BRBR, but at this moment, when he felt Chu Feng's majestic and almost suffocating spiritual power fluctuations, he realized how wrong he was. BRBR, but he can't retreat. BRBR, as the holy son of the Lixian Emperor clan, he has his pride. BRBR, Shan Tian shouted loudly, and a bright golden light erupted from his body. BRBR, those rays of light condensed behind him, gradually forming a huge sword shadow. BRBR, I was born with a sword bone, how can you compare with me? BRBR, he raised his hand and looked up to the sky and roared. BRBR, the sword is coming. BRBR, buzz, BRBR, the majestic sword intention centered on him and spread in all directions instantly. The long swords around the waists of countless sword cultivators suddenly trembled violently. BRBR, clang. BRBR, the first long sword was unsheathed and flew towards Shanyuan's sky. BRBR, clang, clang, clang. BRBR, immediately afterwards, the second sword, the third sword, the 10th sword, the 100th sword, BRBR, countless long swords soared into the sky, converging into a spectacular sword river in the air, rushing towards Shanyuan's sky. BRBR, my sword. My natal sword. BRBR, someone wanted to recall his sword, but found that the long sword was not controllable at all. BRBR, born with sword bones, thousands of swords come to the sect. In front of Holy Son Shanyuan, all the sword cultivators can only watch as their swords are borrowed by him. No, they are forcibly recruited by him. BRBR, the sword river is getting longer and denser. BRBR, 1,000 handles. BRBR, 2,000 handles. BRBR, 3,000 handles. BRBR, a total of 3,000 long swords were suspended above Shan Tian's head, densely packed, covering the sky and the sun. BRBR, the sword tips were all pointed at Chu Feng, the cold light flashed, and murderous intent soared into the sky. BRBR, oh my god, I actually raised my hand and summoned 3,000 swords. BRBR, each one is a high-grade spiritual weapon or above, and there are more than a dozen heavenly weapons among them. BRBR, this strike is 3,000 swords, who can stop it? BRBR, Shan Tian stands proudly in the void, surrounded by golden light, surrounded by 3,000 long swords, like the arrival of a king in the sword. BRBR, Chu Feng, today, I will let you see what the true way of swordsmanship is. BRBR, as soon as he finished speaking, 3,000 long swords trembled at the same time, making a sword cry that resounded through the sky. BRBR, 10,000 swords returned to the clan. BRBR, boom. BRBR, 3,000 long swords turned into 3,000 streams of light, carrying the power of destroying the world and exploding towards Chu Feng. BRBR, the sword energy spreads across the sky, tearing the sky apart. BRBR, the color of heaven and earth changes, and the situation turns upside down. BRBR, countless people closed their eyes in horror. They couldn't imagine that anyone could survive the rain of 3,000 swords. BRBR, Bai Qingjue clenched her clothes tightly. She believed in Chu Feng, but in the face of such a terrifying attack, she still couldn't help but worry about him. BRBR, on the imperial sky boat of the Lixian imperial clan, a beautiful figure stood against the railing. BRBR, she is the holy envoy of the Lixian Emperor clan and also the protector of Shan Tian, Shan Yun. BRBR, looking at the 3,000 sword rain, a faint smile appeared on the corner of her mouth. BRBR, Wanjian Guizong is the strongest swordsmanship of the Lixian imperial clan. Although Shan Tian has only practiced for 3 years, he has already touched the realm of great achievements. BRBR, this attack is absolutely unstoppable by anyone in the same situation. BRBR, however, in the center of the sword rain, Chu Feng raised his head, with a sneer on his lips. BRBR, 10,000 swords returned to the clan? BRBR, he raised his hand, and a palm-sized long sword fragment appeared in his palm. BRBR, the edges of the fragment were uneven and looked unremarkable. BRBR, but the moment it appeared, the sword power of the 3,000 long swords all stagnated, BRBR this is, BRBR Shan Yuanyuan's pupils shrank suddenly, and the smile on his face froze instantly. BRBR fragments of the sky-splitting divine sword. BRBR behind her, everyone in the Lingxian imperial clan couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. BRBR those are the fragments of our clan's treasure, the heaven-splitting divine sword. How could it be in Chu Feng's hands? BRBR, the fragments of the heaven-splitting divine sword have been enshrined in the ancestral temple, how could they appear here? BRBR, could it be that Chu Feng stole the fragments of our clan's heaven-splitting divine sword? BRBR the moment he saw the fragments of the heaven-splitting divine sword, Shan Yuantian's expression also changed. BRBR the sky-splitting divine sword is the imperial weapon of the Lingxian imperial clan. Unfortunately, the imperial weapon was shattered in a battle, leaving only a longsword fragment. BRBR but even the fragments of the longsword contain imperial power, and are now the most precious treasure of the Lingxian imperial clan. BRBR but, why did Chu Feng have fragments of the heavenly sword in his hand? BRBR Chu Feng raised the fragments of the heaven-splitting divine sword. The fragments hung above his head, and wisps of chaotic light fell down, protecting him in the center. BRBR he pointed his fingers like swords and slashed forward gently. BRBR one sword. BRBR only one sword. BRBR but the moment this sword was struck, the whole world fell silent. BRBR a silver line as thin as a hair shot out from Chu Feng's fingertips, facing the rain of 3,000 swords, and lightly crossed it. BRBR rumble, BRBR the next moment, the sky collapsed. BRBR the 3,000 menacing long swords all shattered the moment they touched the silver line. BRBR 3,000 long swords turned into countless fragments, falling like a heavy rain. BRBR what? BRBR the blood on Shan Yuanyuan's face faded instantly, and she recognized the sword, BRBR, Kanglan sword technique. This is the strongest sword of the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR as the holy son of the Kanglan imperial clan, it is not surprising that Chu Feng practices the Kanglan sword art. BRBR however, Chu Feng has just returned to the Kanglan imperial clan not long ago, how could he possibly practice the Kanglan sword art to such an extent? Desheng? BRBR Kanglan sword technique is known as one sword that can defeat all kinds of magic, and the Kanglan sword technique used by Chu Feng has reached the realm of Daqingcheng. BRBR Shan Yuanyuan's heart twitched fiercely, with an ominous feeling. A premonition came to mind. BRBR Shan Yuantian couldn't stop it. BRBR sure enough, BRBR after the silver thread smashed the 3,000 swords, it went straight to Shan Yuantian. BR no, BRBR Shan Yuantian's eyes widened in horror, and he frantically mobilized his spiritual power to resist. BRBR the golden light around him surged, forming one defense after another in front of him. Barrier BRBR but the silver thread seemed not to exist in this world. BRBR it passed through layers of barriers and finally landed on Shan Yuantian's chest. BRBR blood splattered. BRBR Shan Yuantian flew BA. Quartz and hit the fence at the edge of the martial arts arena. BRBR the thick bluestone fence was shattered by him, and a deep cut was visible on his chest. The sword marks on the bones were shocking. BRBR he struggled to get up, but he spat out a mouthful of blood again. BRBR Shan Yuantian couldn't figure it out. The holy son of the Tang Lingxian Emperor clan is gifted with a sword, and his talent for swordsmanship is the best among his generation. BRBR why can't he even catch Chu Feng's sword? BRBR at this moment, he can only blame his failure on the fragments of the heaven-splitting divine sword. BRBR although he has 3,000 swords in his hands, he does not even have a holy weapon. Compared with the fragments of the heaven-splitting divine sword, they are rubbish. BRBR Chu Feng's figure instantly appeared in front of Shan Yuantian, looking down at him. BRBR a murderer will always be killed. BRBR at this moment, Shan Yuantian was really scared. BRBR because he had felt a strong killing intent from Chu Feng, and this guy really wanted to kill him. BRBR no, you can't kill me. One BRBR he struggled to crawl back, his voice was trembling. BRBR I am the holy son of the Lingxian Emperor clan, if you kill me, the Lingxian Emperor clan will not let you go. BRBR Chu Feng ignored it and held the fragments of the sky-splitting divine sword in both hands and raised it high. BRBR even if I don't kill you, will the Lingxian imperial clan let me go? BRBR ever since the Lingxian Emperor clan sent people to ambush him, there has been a feud between him and the Lingxian Emperor clan. BRBR in this case, it is better to kill Shan Yuantian first and then collect the interest. BRBR seeing the fragments of the sky-splitting divine sword about to fall, Shan Yuantian roared. BRBR Aunt Yun, save me. BRBR boom. BRBR a figure rose into the sky, it was Shan Yuanyun. BRBR she turned into a stream of leg. HT and rushed towards Chu Feng. BRBR stop. BRBR she slapped her palm, and the wind from her palm turned into a huge wave, crushing towards Chu Feng. BRBR however, a figure suddenly appeared in front of her. With an understatement, he waved his sleeves and resolved all the monstrous palm wind. BRBR Shan Yuanyun paused and looked at the beautiful woman in front of him with a mixture of shock and anger. BRBR just glanced at Shan Yuanyun and spoke in an indifferent tone. BRBR, I advise you not to move. BRBR poof, BRBR Shan Yuan Tian was swept away by a sword again, and he was already as angry as a gossamer. BRBR the holy son of the Lingxian imperial clan who stood proudly in the void, surrounded by 3,000 swords, was like a dying dog at this moment, without even the strength to raise his head. BRBR Chu Feng was like a cat playing with a mouse. He could kill Shan Yuan Tian with one sword, but he kept torturing him. BRBR stop. Shan Yuanyun's beautiful eyes were full of anxiety. Shan Yuan Tian has lost, stop it. BRBR hearing this, Chu Feng turned to look at her, with a playful smile on his lips. BRBR I didn't hear him admit defeat. Since he didn't admit defeat, then this gambling battle is not over. BRBR Shan Yuanyun's expression changed, and he immediately turned to look at Shan Yuan Tian. BRBR Tianer, give up quickly. BRBR Shan Yuan Tian opened his mouth with difficulty and moved his lips, trying to say those 3 words. BRBR but before he could finish his words, a big foot suddenly stepped down. BRBR BRBR Shan Yuan Tian's eyes suddenly widened, and he let out a shrill muffled groan. BRBR click. BRBR Chu Feng's foot stepped firmly on his mouth, which made the sound of broken teeth. BRBR blood spilled from the corners of Shan Yuan Tian's mouth, mixed with broken teeth. BRBR his body twitched violently, his hands gripped the ground tightly, and his fingers drew 10 bloody marks on the ground. BRBR he struggled desperately to shout out those 2 words, but Chu Feng's feet completely sealed his mouth, making him unable to even admit defeat. BRBR the whole audience was in an uproar. BRBR this is too cruel. BRBR I don't even admit defeat. I want to kill them all. BRBR didn't you listen to what Chu Feng said, as long as you don't hear to admit defeat, the gambling battle is not over. BRBR by Qingjue stood quietly in the distance, watching this scene, with no wave in her beautiful eyes. BRBR to be kind to the enemy is to be cruel to yourself. BRBR if Chu Feng hadn't been powerful enough today, he would be the one lying on the ground. BRBR and she felt a chill when she thought that a person who spent all day cleaning the toilet was actually coveting her body. BRBR Chu Feng reached out and took off the jade pendant from Shan Yuan Tian's waist. BRBR you're a piece of trash, and you're worthy of coveting my wife? BRBR Shan Yuan Tian's pupils were bloodshot and he stared at Chu Feng, his eyes full of resentment. BRBR but he was speechless and could only moan BRBR next at this moment, Chu Feng slowly raised his feet. BRBR Shan Yuan Tian opened his mouth to shout out those 2 words. BRBR this time he lost, but he lost with the weapon. Afterwards, he returned to the Imperial clan and retrieved the sacred weapon from the Imperial clan. He would surely repay today's humiliation 100-fold. BRBR however, when he was about to press the button, Chu Feng's foot stepped down again, and it was harder than before. BRBR crack, BRBR blood splattered. BRBR Shan Yuan Tian screams echoed throughout the audience, but not a single complete word could be heard in the screams. BRBR you. BRBR the momentum around Shan Yuanyun surged, and his voice was trembling. BRBR, Chu Feng, Shan Yuan Tian is the holy son of my Lingxian imperial clan, do you really want to kill them all? BRBR Chu Feng turned his head and looked at her. BRBR those eyes were as calm as water, but there was a biting chill. BRBR that day, the Lingxian imperial clan sent people to ambush me. Didn't they kill them all? There wasn't even a chance to resist, and it just completely disappeared into the void. BRBR the blood mist filled the air and was blown away by the wind. BRBR Chu Feng took a deep look at GC. The ancestor did not say anything, but he was still angry in his heart. BRBR after GC slapped the palm, his figure turned into a stream of light. BRBR however, the moment her figure disappeared, Chu Feng suddenly felt that his palm was empty. BRBR the fragment of the sky-splitting divine sword flew out of his hand at some point, turned into a rainbow, and disappeared into the sky. BRBR direction, Lingxian Imperial Clan. BRBR the Lingxian Imperial Clan. BRBR the mountains are towering and the palaces are continuous. BRBR a stream of light fell from the sky and hit the mountain guard formation hard. BRBR the entire formation trembled violently, countless runes flashed crazily, and made a harsh buzzing sound. BRBR, who dares to break into our Lingxian Imperial Clan? BRBR at the mountain gate, more than a dozen guarding disciples were shocked, and they all offered their magic weapons and looked at the sky warily. BRBR above the sky, a beautiful figure stood in the sky. BRBR she has a plain white dress, black hair like a waterfall, and a peerless appearance. BRBRGC held a piece of pitch-black fragment. The imperial power could be vaguely seen on the fragment, exuding a heart-stopping aura. BRBR with one sweep of her sword, the dozen disciples turned into blood mist. BRBR, Shanyuan Lang, get out of here. BRBR boom, BRBR the sound was like thunder, echoing among the mountains. BRBR countless members of the Lingxian imperial clan rushed out of the palace, looking up to the sky with horror on their faces. BRBR, Shanyuan Lang, is that the ancestor's name? BRBR who is this person? How dare you call our ancestor by his name? BRBR she is crazy. Our ancestor has been in seclusion for 300 years and has already entered the late Mahayana period. Who dares to be so presumptuous? BRBR a young disciple didn't know the heights of the world and was about to rush forward, but was grabbed by the elder beside him. BRBR don't move. The elder's face turned pale, and his voice was trembling, that is the ancestor of the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR as soon as these words came out, there was an uproar around him. BRBR what? BRBR I heard that she had entered the 9th level of the Mahayana realm 800 years ago, and now she is so terrifying when I see her. BRBR, but, what is she holding in her hand, why does it look so familiar? BRBR someone with sharp eyes saw the dark fragment in GC's hand. BRBR it was a fragment of a sword, only the size of a palm, with ragged edges. BRBR but the imperial power flowing on it makes people feel trembling just by looking at it. BRBR that's a fragment of the sky-splitting divine sword. BRBR someone exclaimed, and the tone of their voice changed. BRBR the fragments of the sky-splitting divine sword, isn't that the treasure of our Lingxian Emperor clan? BRBR countless people looked at each other, with an ominous premonition rising in their hearts. BRBR at this moment, deep in the main peak, an old figure slowly walked out. BRBR it was an old man with white hair, wearing a grey robe and a pale face. BRBR his pace is very slow, but with every step he takes, the void will tremble slightly, as if it cannot withstand his pressure. BRBR it is Shanyuan Lang, the ancestor of the Lingxian imperial clan. BRBR he had just come out of seclusion and had no idea what was going on. BRBR when he saw the beautiful figure in the sky holding the fragment of the sky-splitting divine sword, he couldn't help but be startled. BRBR, GC, what do you mean? BRBR GC sneered and raised his hand to hold up the fragment of the sky-splitting divine sword. BRBR US. And people to ambush the descendants of my clan, why are you pretending to be an old fool now? BRBR Shanyuan Lang was stunned, ambush the descendants of the Kanglan imperial clan? BRBR he has been in seclusion for 300 years. He only wants to ascend and does not care about the affairs of the clan at all. BRBR he has no idea what has happened in the past 300 years. BRBR GC, this matter, BRBR shut up. BRBR GC didn't even give him a chance to explain, he raised his hand and slapped him. BRBR boom. BRBR the palm prints condensed, covering the sky and the sun, and shot directly toward Shanyuan Lang. BRBR Shanyuan Lang's expression changed and he quickly raised his hands to resist. BRBR the two palms collided, causing an earth-shattering roar. BRBR the aftermath spread, and several surrounding suspended peaks suddenly collapsed and turned into rubble all over the sky. BRBR Shanyuan Lang took 3 steps back, his expression slightly changed, what a powerful force. BRBR at this moment, Shanyuan Lang's face was full of horror, because GC's lifespan is logically shorter than his, but how could the spiritual power, energy, and blood of that palm just now be so strong? BRBR both are at the 9th level of the Mahayana, but his chi and blood are comparable to those of GC. BRBR even if you take Wu Jisho Yuan Dan, it is absolutely impossible to achieve such an effect. BRBR unless, BRBR a terrible thought suddenly appeared in his mind, could it be an elixir? BRBR but before he could speak, a strong sense of crisis instantly enveloped his heart. BRBR GC raised his hand, the fragments of the sky-splitting divine sword were suspended in his palm, and the imperial power exploded. BRBR a sword light shot out from the fragments, pierced the sky, and cut Shanyuan Lang straight. BRBR wherever the sword light passed, the void shattered inch by inch, revealing dark space cracks. BRBR Swanua. En Lang was horrified. Bright golden light erupted from his body, condensing into one defensive barrier after another. BRBR but in front of that sword light, those defensive barriers were like paper and collapsed at the first touch. BRBR boom. BRBR the sword light fell and Shanyuan Lang flew backwards, spitting blood. BRBR ancestor. BRBR countless members of the Lingxian Emperor clan exclaimed, their faces pale. BRBR this, how is this possible? Our ancestor is in the late Mahayana stage. BRBR the fragments of the sky-splitting divine sword are too terrifying. They are imperial weapons. BRBR, how could GC be so strong? They are both at the 9th level of Mahayana. The gap is too big. BRBR, not to mention that his energy and blood are far less powerful than GC's now. Even at his peak, he still has to avoid GC's sharpness. BRBR GC held the fragments of the sky-splitting divine sword and slashed them down one after another. BRBR, every sword tears apart the void, and every sword shakes the heaven and earth. BRBR, the sword energy spread horizontally and turned into sword shadows all over the sky, completely covering Shan Lang. BRBR, dark clouds rolled in, covering the sky. BRBR, thunder roared and shuttled through the clouds. BRBR, the void cracked open, revealing pitch-black nothingness. BRBR, you can even vaguely see the runes of the avenue flickering in the void. They are the laws of heaven and earth triggered by the battles in the Mahayana period. BRBR, Shan Lang dodged awkwardly and tried his best to resist. BRBR, but he only had one holy weapon in his hand and could not compete with GC. BRBR, his body was crisscrossed with sword marks, and his grey robe was dyed red with blood. BRBR, GC, what do you want? BRBR, what do I want? BRBR, GC slashed him with his sword again, sending him flying. BRBR, I want you, the Lixian Emperor clan, to give you an explanation. BRBR below. The leader of the Lixian Emperor clan, Shan Ju, was hiding in the crowd, watching this scene with fear. BRBR, his hands were shaking and his back was already soaked in cold sweat. BRBR, because he knew that all of this happened because of him. BRBR, at first, he sent people to the eastern region to ambush Chu Feng. He thought that Chu Feng had not yet risen, so he would just kill him. BRBR, who would have thought that Chu Feng not only survived, but also took away the fragments of the sky-splitting divine sword. BRBR, what is even more unexpected is that Chu Feng awakened the immortal bone again and became the holy son of the Kanglan imperial clan. His rise was almost unstoppable. BRBR, the ancestor, was beaten so badly, if GC came directly to find him, BRBR, Shan Ju shuddered and did not dare to think further. BRBR, with his strength, he couldn't even catch GC's sword. BRBR, hurry up and open the imperial clan formation to help our ancestors. BRBR, boom, BRBR, on the main peak, beams of light soared into the sky. BRBR, that is where the formation eye is. There are 9 light pillars in total, corresponding to the 9 formation eyes of the formation. BRBR, immediately afterwards, countless runes lit up between the mountains, and finally condensed into a huge light curtain. BRBR, above the light curtain, the mountains, rivers, sun and moon can be faintly seen. That is the power of the imperial clan's formation, stimulating the power of heaven and earth. BRBR, countless members of the Lixian imperial clan looked at this scene and felt a little calm. BRBR, the imperial clan's great formation has been activated, there is hope. BRBR, once the great formation is complete, even if she holds the fragments of the imperial armaments, she will not be able to act cruelly again. BRBR, one more breath, and the great formation will be fully activated. BRBR, however, before they finished speaking, GC above the sky H had already raised his hand. BRBR, she swept across the incompletely formed barrier, not even bothering to mock. BRBR, BRBR, she flipped her wrist and the fragment of the imperial weapon moved forward. BRBR, at that moment, the sound between heaven and earth seemed to be taken away. BRBR, everyone only saw an extremely thin silver line passing through the void. Wherever the silver line passed, a straight hole opened in the space like cloth. BRBR, the next moment, before the barrier of the imperial clan's formation could be completely closed, it was like being cut from the middle by a pair of sharp scissors. BRBR, a clear crack appeared immediately and spread rapidly. BRBR, click, click, click. BRBR, the cracks expanded, the runes disintegrated, and the power of the stars lost its traction, turning into an out-of-control torrent. BRBR, the entire sky is like broken glass, with pieces of golden light falling down. BRBR, how is that possible? BRBR, the formation pattern is broken. BRBR, run quickly, the formation's eyes will explode. BRBR, the faces of the elders on the formation platform changed drastically, and black cracks appeared on the formation disc. BRBR, everyone in the Lixian imperial clan looked up at the imperial clan's formation that was chopped into pieces by a sword, with only confusion in their eyes. BRBR, that was their last source of confidence, a heritage passed down through the ages, but in front of GC, they were not even qualified to fully unfold it. BRBR, high in the air, Shan Lang had just stabilized his figure, and when he saw the imperial clan's formation being broken, his heart sank to the bottom. BRBR, at this moment, there was only fear in his heart. Can he survive today? BRBR, it's over. BRBR, GC stepped forward and was already in front of Shan Lang. BRBR, Shan Lang instinctively raised his sword to block. He felt an overbearing and unreasonable force. pressing down along the sword, causing his jaw to crack. BRBR before he could circulate his energy and blood to resolve it, the silver light suddenly pressed down. BRBR bang. BRBR Shan Yuanlang was knocked backwards, his chest felt like being hit by a heavy hammer, his throat felt sweet, and blood overflowed from the corners of his mouth. BRBR he crashed into the sword peaks in the distance and smashed several peaks before he could stop. BRBR GC was hanging in the air, she looked down at the Lingxian Imperial clan and said coldly. BRBR if the Lingxian Imperial clan dares to take action against Chu Feng again, BRBR she lifted up the fragment of the heaven-splitting divine sword, pointing the tip of the sword towards the depths of the Lingxian Imperial clan's ancestral land. BRBR I will use all my strength to destroy the Lingxian Imperial clan. In the worst case, I will sink Zhongzhou. BRBR hearing this, everyone below fell silent. BRBR because they have no doubt that GC can really do what he says. BRBR GC turned around and stepped into the void, disappearing into the cracks in space. BRBR the cracks closed immediately, as if she had never appeared. BRBR Shan Yuanlang's body was embedded in the gravel, and he spit out a mouthful of old blood, feeling extremely aggrieved. BRBR he had never heard of the name Chu Feng, yet he received a severe beating for no apparent reason. BRBR who is Chu Feng? In fact, for him it doesn't matter whether he can get back the Wuji Shou Yuan Dan BRBR because even if you get it back, it will be refined by the ancestor in the end. BRBR the ancestor is of the great elder lineage. If he takes the Wuji Shou Yuan pill to extend his life for 1,000 years, what benefit will it have to him? BRBR unexpectedly, Chu Feng directly hugged by Qingjua's waist and said calmly. BRBR let's go. BRBR yes. BRBR by Qingjue nodded heavily. As long as Chu Feng decided something, even if it was a dragon's pond and a tiger's den, she would definitely follow him. BRBR the royal sky boat broke through the clouds and sped towards the direction of the 10,000 demons palace. BRBR by Qingjue stood at the bow of the boat, controlling the direction of the royal sky boat. BRBR deep in the royal sky boat, in the dim light, Shan Yuanyun huddled in the corner. BRBR the once magnificent protector of the Lingxian Imperial clan was now as miserable as a dying fish, gasping for air. BRBR she hugged her body tightly with both hands, her delicate body trembling violently. BRBR under her fair skin, black lines could be faintly seen moving. BRBR those lines moved crazily inside her body, and she trembled violently every inch they moved. BRBR Shan Yuanyun had long known the cost of using that thing, but she had no choice at the time. BRBR she just wanted to save Shan Yuantian and protect the child she watched grow up. BRBR but she didn't expect, the pain was far beyond her imagination. BRBR it was as if countless ants were gnawing at her flesh and blood, and every strand of her soul was being torn apart by the evil force. BRBR what is even more painful is that the person whom I tried my best to save was ruthlessly abandoned at the critical moment. BRBR Shan Yuantian. BRBR her nails dug into her palms, causing deep blood marks. BRBR at this moment, the door opened. BR Shan Yuanyun raised his head with difficulty and saw a slender figure standing at the door through his blurred tearful eyes. BRBR Chu Feng stood there against the light, his face hidden in the shadows, and his expression could not be seen clearly. BRBR Chu Feng, BRBR Shan Yuanyun struggled to speak, his voice was so hoarse that he could hardly hear it. BRBR kill me, please give me a good time. BRBR she couldn't bear the pain, she really couldn't bear it. BRBR Chu Feng looked at her embarrassed appearance, but was indifferent. BRBR it's not that easy to die. BRBR hearing these words, Shan Yuanyun's heart sank suddenly. BRBR what do you want? BRBR Chu Feng took out the jade pendant that Shan Yuantian lost to him, and then asked. BRBR what is the use of this thing? BRBR although Shan Yuantian said that this jade pendant is related to the inheritance of the great emperor, he did not find out the reason after studying for a long time. BRBR since Shan Yuanyun is Shan Yuantian's protector, then he must know the purpose of the jade pendant. BRBR as expected, Shan Yuanyun's pupils shrank immediately after seeing the jade pendant. BRBR she opened her mouth and wanted to say she didn't know, but when she spoke, she felt a sharp pain. The first attack made her curl up into a ball and let out a heartrending scream. BRBR she finally couldn't help it and let out a heartrending scream. She arched her back and grabbed the jade with her 10 fingers. The bed had 10 blood marks on it. BRBR Chu Feng watched her twitching quietly and said coldly, BRBR if you don't say anything, the magic pattern will directly penetrate into the sea of consciousness and tear your soul apart bit by bit. You can try how long you can hold on. BRBR Shan Yuanyun's chest heaved violently, sweat mixed with tears falling down. BRBR she knew that Chu Feng was not scaring her, the pain was beyond the li. MIT of what she could endure. BRBR, she even began to regret why she had used the Netherworld Evil Escape Talisman in the first place. BRBR, that is, the key inherited by the great emperor. BRBR, Shan Yuanyan's voice was as thin as a mosquito, intermittent. BRBR, what Shan Yuan Tian's mother left to him contained a trace of the emperor's residual thoughts. BRBR, hearing this, Chu Feng's eyes moved slightly. BRBR, how to obtain the inheritance of the emperor? BRBR, it needs Shan Yuan Tian's essence and blood to activate it. BRBR, Shan Yuanyan's eyesight turned black with pain, and his voice became weaker and weaker. BRBR, his mother said that he must wait until he breaks through the void refining realm before he can activate this jade pendant. BRBR, at this moment, Chu Feng couldn't help but feel lucky that Shan Yuan Tian had escaped, otherwise he would not have been able to obtain the great emperor's inheritance. BRBR, where has he escaped to now? BRBR, Shan Yuanyan laughed miserably, with despair in his laughter. BRBR, the transmission of the Dark Escape Evil Talisman is random. At this moment, he is already millions of miles away, but I don't know the specific location. BRBR, at the end of her words, her voice was already crying. BRBR, I told you, kill me quickly. Please. BRBR, random teleportation. BRBR, millions of miles away. BRBR, Chu Feng's brows frowned slightly, which means that it will be impossible to find Shan Yuan Tian in a short time. BRBR, unless Shan Yuan Tian himself emerged. BRBR, he was silent for a moment and took the jade pendant back into his arms. With Shan Yuanyan as the bait, he was not afraid that Shan Yuan Tian would not come to him. BRBR, so, Shan Yuanyan can't die now. BRBR, I'm very satisfied with your performance. BRBR, Shan Yuanyan raised his head with difficulty, not understanding what he was talking about. BRBR, then she saw a scene that she would never forget. BRBR, Chu Feng raised his hand, and a mysterious halo appeared in his palm. BRBR, the halo slowly rotated and gradually condensed into a mysterious picture. BRBR, on the picture scroll, you can vaguely see the sun, moon, stars, mountains and rivers, as if it encompasses everything. BRBR, Chu Feng raised his hand, the heaven refining diagram glowed brightly, and a terrifying suction force erupted from the diagram, directly covering Shan Yuanyan. BRBR, BRBR, Shan Yuanyan let out a shrill scream, and the raging black lines in her body began to be pulled by the suction force, peeling away from her body bit by bit. BRBR, pain. BRBR, it still hurts. BRBR, but the pain was mixed with a strange sense of relief, as if something was being sucked out of her body. BRBR, looking at the scene in front of him, Shan Yuanyan could not help but widen his eyes with a look of disbelief. BRBR, BRBR, as the demonic power was devoured, the pain on her body was gradually lessening. BRBR, the heartbreaking pain, the torture that makes life worse than death, is slowly receding. BRBR, how is this possible? BRBR, that is the curse of the alien demon. BRBR, after a long time, the last trace of black lines was swallowed up by the heaven refining diagram. BRBR, the room returned to calm, and Shan Yuanyan lay limply on the ground, as if he had been fished out of the water. BRBR, boom. BRBR, the next moment, a majestic momentum burst out of her body. BRBR, without the backlash and suppression, her cultivation was completely restored. BRBR, Shan Yuanyan raised his head and looked at Chu Feng, with a complicated expression on his beautiful face. BRBR, why did you save me? BRBR, Chu Feng looked at her with a faint smile on his lips. BRBR, I want you to help me practice. BRBR, Shan Yuanyan was stunned for a moment, wondering if he had heard wrongly. BRBR, what did you say? BRBR, but the next moment, her eyes suddenly became sharp. BR, no matter what Chu Feng means, this is the best opportunity. BRBR, a cold light flashed in Shan Yuanyan's eyes, and he suddenly raised his hand and struck Chu Feng with a palm. BRBR, this palm gathered all her strength. BRBR, she wants him dead. BRBR, however, at the moment when her palm power was about to fall, bright lights suddenly lit up in the room. BRBR, those rays of light quickly intertwined into a complex formation, covering the entire room. BRBR, the stars are moving in a great formation. BRBR, Shan Yuanyan's pupils shrank, and she could clearly feel that the moment the spiritual power came into contact with Chu Feng's body, it was swallowed up by a terrifying suction force. BRBR, not only that, the spiritual power in her body is also pouring out crazily, like a flood that bursts out of control. BRBR, no. BRBR, she wanted to stop her hand in fear, but her hand seemed to be stuck to Chu Feng and she couldn't pull it back at all. BRBR, the spiritual power was crazily devoured by the formation, and then poured into Chu Feng's body. BRBR, at the same time, Chu Feng's cultivation level began to rise steadily, while Shan Yuanyan's aura was falling crazily. BRBR, don't, stop. BRBR, her legs softened, her whole body went limp, and she happened to fall into Chu Feng's arms. BRBR, her cultivation was completely gone. BRBR, what did you do to me? BRBR, that beautiful face was full of fear, and tears were shining in her eyes. I felt pity for him. BRBR, Chu Feng stretched out his hand to pinch her chin and gently lifted her face. BRBR, you just need to remember that from now on, you are just my cauldron. BRBR cauldron? BRBR, Shan Yuanyan's eyes suddenly opened wide. Of course she knew what the furnace tripod meant. BRBR, no, don't, BRBR, before she finished speaking, Chu Feng had already blocked her mouth. BRBR, Shan Yuanyan's eyes suddenly opened wide, and he beat his chest desperately with both hands, trying to push him away. BRBR, but she has no cultivation and is like an ant in front of Chu Feng. BRBR, Shan Yuanyan's sobs were stuck in her throat. She was once a high-ranking holy envoy of the Lingxian Emperor clan. She was proud, cold, and no one dared to blaspheme her. BRBR, but at this moment, she was deprived of everything, leaving only a body crushed by fate. BRBR, Chu Feng's palms slid down her sweaty back and tore open the long broken white clothes. BRBR, the light from the formation slowly circulated, reflecting two entangled figures. BRBR, Shan Yuanyan's struggle became weaker and weaker. BRBR, her tears fell silently, and a power was being awakened in her body. BRBR, that is her innate physique, the 9 Yin Shan veins. BRBR, Join Shan Mai is a person born with a Yin body, which is an excellent qualification for practicing Yin-attributed techniques. BRBR, those with this physique can practice much faster than ordinary people, and their bodies contain extremely Yin energy. BRBR, of course, this physique is also the rumored peerless furnace physique. BRBR, Chu Feng also felt the extremely Yin energy pouring out of Shan Yuanyan's body. BRBR, he couldn't help but take a breath of cold air. Shan Yuanyan really gave him an unexpected surprise. BRBR, boom, BRBR, the bottleneck of Chu Feng's transformation into the ultimate realm began to loosen. BRBR, the next moment, the room was filled with light, and a terrifying aura erupted from Chu Feng's body. BRBR, the momentum was so strong that it caused the entire Yukongju to tremble violently. BRBR, at the head of the boat, Bai Qingjue turned around suddenly and looked in the direction of the cabin. BRBR, my husband has broken through. BRBR, an hour later, Chu Feng slowly opened his eyes. BRBR, his eyes were shining, and his aura was as majestic as the sea. BRBR, it feels so wonderful to cultivate to the void refining realm again. BRBR, at this time, Xuanyu and Yun in his arms had completely fainted. BRBR, she closed her eyes, and there were still tears in the corners of her eyes. BRBR, there was no pain in that beautiful face, only a deep exhaustion, and a trace of satisfaction that she couldn't even detect. BRBR, Chu Feng straightened his clothes, opened the door and walked out. BRBR, behind you, the door slowly closed. BRBR, Shan Yuanyan slowly opened his eyes empty. BRBR, a long time. BRBR, a tear slipped from the corner of her eye. As the first batch of disciples saw their names condensed in the void, the people behind them couldn't sit still at all. BRBR, the stone platform in front of Chu Feng was quickly filled with spiritual stones, and the colorful light was dazzling. BRBR, at this moment, a slightly old voice sounded. BRBR, my friend, I want to join in the fun, is it okay? BRBR, everyone followed the sound and saw an old man in gray robe walking through the air. BRBR, this is Sunda, the elder of the inner sect. BRBR, Elder Sun is a powerful person in the integration stage, and he is going to end up too. BRBR, the elders actually want to place bets. Are the two holy weapons enough to compensate? BRBR, Sunda walked up to Chu Feng, took out a ring from his sleeve, and placed it on the stone platform. BRBR, there are 3 million spiritual stones in this. I bet on Saint Lingxi to win. BRBR, hiss, BRBR, everyone took a breath of cold air. BRBR, 3 million. BRBR, everyone's eyes fell on Chu Feng, wanting to see if he dared to take it. BRBR, Chu Feng picked up the Neji, swept it with his consciousness, and then put it into his sleeve. BRBR, Elder Sun is so courageous, I accept this bet. BRBR, then Elder Sun's name condensed in the void, and ranked first. BRBR, Sunda stroked his beard and smiled. This was the palace of 10,000 demons, and he was not worried at all that Chu Feng would dare to default on his debt. BRBR, even if Chu Feng cannot afford to pay in the end, the 2 sacred weapons will remain in the palace of 10,000 demons. BRBR, with his share of the bet, he might be able to get a piece of the holy weapon directly. BRBR, Sunda's joining was like igniting a powder keg, and more than a dozen elders fell out one after another, and all of them were wealthy. BRBR, I bet 2 million. BRBR, I bet 2.5 million. BRBR, my 100,000-year-old black jade blood ginseng is worth at least 2 million spiritual stones. BRBR, all kinds of rare heavenly materials and earthly treasures were put on the royal skyboat, and every one of them was enough to drive ordinary monks crazy. BRBR Chu Feng accepted all the orders, and the smile on his face became brighter. BRBR the bets are getting more and more crazy, from spiritual stones to various heavenly materials and earthly treasures, and some people even start to bet on heavenly weapons. BRBR Chu Feng did not reject anyone who came and accepted them all. BRBR the treasures piled up in front of him were already like a hill, emitting all kinds of auras, making people unable to open their eyes. BRBR roughly estimated, the total value has exceeded 80 million spirit stones. BRBR in the crowd, several disciples who had never placed a bet were whispering. BRBR, senior brother, should we bet some too? BRBR, you are stupid, this is obviously a game where you are giving away spiritual stones for free. You would be a fool if you don't bet. Go quickly, it will be too late. BRBR, but, why do I always feel that something is wrong? Isn't Chu Feng too calm? BRBR, that's because he wants to save face. When Saint Lingxi wins, he won't even be able to cry. BRBR more disciples rushed forward, and some even started to borrow money from fellow disciples, just to stake more. BRBR, senior brother Wang, lend me 50,000 spiritual stones, and I will pay you back double. BRBR, go away, I still have to take custody myself. BRBR, the entire 10,000 Demons Palace Square has completely turned into a crazy casino. BRBR, just as everyone was placing bets frantically, a deep voice suddenly sounded. BRBR, little friend, I also want to bet with you. BRBR, everyone followed the sound and saw a purple figure walking slowly. BRBR, it was an old man wearing a purple and gold robe, with white beard and hair, a pale face, and a faint purple halo surrounding his body. BRBR, every step he took was falling. The void trembled slightly, as if it could not withstand his pressure. BRBR, what was even more heart-stopping was his eyes. Just a casual glance made everyone present lower their heads subconsciously, not daring to look directly. BRBR, Tian Wenjing, the Supreme Elder. BRBR, my god, Elder Tian is a peerless powerhouse at the 5th level of the Mahayana stage. BRBR, unexpectedly, his old man was also alarmed? BRBR, the Mahayana stage, BRBR, that is the realm standing at the top of the world, a height that countless monks cannot reach in their entire lives. BRBR, the entire Suenio imperial clan has 10 supreme elders, all of whom are in the Mahayana stage. Each supreme elder is a giant pillar that suppresses the destiny of the clan. BRBR, I am Tian Wenjing, the supreme elder of the Suenio imperial clan, with a 5th level cultivation in the Mahayana stage. BRBR, the whole place fell silent in an instant, and the drop of a needle could be heard. BRBR, everyone held their breath, waiting for Tian Wenjing's next words. BRBR, Chu Feng raised his eyebrows slightly, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes, but he quickly regained his composure. BRBR, he slightly cupped his hands, neither humble nor arrogant. BRBR, I have admired Elder Tian's reputation for a long time, I wonder what the elder would like to pay attention to. BRBR, when Tian Wenjing heard this, a meaningful smile suddenly appeared at the corner of his mouth. BRBR, what I bet with you is people. BRBR, human? BRBR, the whole place was in an uproar, and everyone looked at each other, not knowing why. BRBR, Tian Wenjing raised his right hand and stretched out 3 fingers. BRBR, I can make an oath of heaven. If Bai Qingjue wins, I will volunteer to be your protector for 3 years. BRBR, within 3 years, I will be driven by you without any hesitation. BRBR, boom. BRBR, as soon as these words came out, the whole square exploded. BRBR, wah. The Supreme Elder wants to bet on himself? BRBR, the Supreme Elder is a peerless strongman at the 5th level of the Mahayana stage. If he loses, won't he have to be a slave to this young boy for 3 years? BRBR, no, the Supreme Elder is using his hands empty-handed. BRBR, some people reacted suddenly, and their eyes suddenly widened. BRBR, yes, how can Bai Qingjue win? The Supreme Elder can be worth millions of spiritual stones with just one sentence. BRBR, Elder Tian's move is simply a stroke of genius. BRBR, high, really high. BRBR, as expected of the Supreme Elder, this plan is beyond our reach. BRBR in the crowd, the disciples who had placed bets before all showed annoyed expressions. BRBR, if I had known I could still play like this, I wouldn't have taken the spirit stone. I would have just made an empty promise. BRBR, how much is the promise you made worth? The Supreme Elder is at the 5th level of the Mahayana stage. He has been a protector for 3 years. Do you know how much spiritual stones it is worth? BRBR, this is, TSK, it's still a matter of playing in the Taishan Presbyterian Church. BRBR, when Feng Qianyu heard Tian Wenjing's words, he suddenly felt a sense of absurdity in his heart. BRBR, this bet was one-sided from the beginning. BRBR, Chu Feng took out 2 sacred weapons, and everyone in the 10,000 Demon Palace made crazy bets. Everyone thought they were going to get rich. BRBR, but she didn't know why. Looking at Chu Feng's calm face, she felt a little uneasy. BRBR, could that kid really be so stupid? BRBR, she shook her head and shook this ridiculous thought out of her mind. BRBR, it was impossible. Bai Qingjue can't win. BRBR, Chu Feng suddenly smiled as he listened to the comments around him. BRBR, of course he understood Tian Wenjing's plan. This old guy was really smart. He didn't have to pay anything to participate in this gamble. BR, he got nothing. BR. Losing. He didn't even think about losing. BRBR, it's a pity that Chu Feng sneered in his heart, when you cry later. BRBR, he raised his eyes to Tian Wenjing, stretched out 5 fingers, and said loudly, Elder Tian, I will accept your bet. BRBR, hearing this, everyone was stunned. BRBR, he really dares to accept it? BRBR, this is the protector of the 5th level of the Mahayana stage. How many spiritual stones does he have to pay? BRBR, wait a minute, look at what he means by holding out 5 fingers? BRBR, Tian Wenjing was slightly startled. He just said it casually. He didn't expect Chu Feng to actually dare to accept his bet. BRBR, how much spiritual stone do you think my bet is worth? BRBR, Chu Feng smiled lightly, and then shook his palm. BRBR, the 5th level of the Mahayana stage, if converted into spiritual stones, must be worth 5 million anyway. BRBR, 5 million. BRBR, as soon as this number came out, everyone in the audience called out, good guy. BRBR, 5 million, he said 5 million? BRBR, hearing this number, Tian Wenjing could not help but feel his breath stagnant. BRBR, he did not expect Chu Feng to offer a high price of 5 million spirit stones, and then the last trace of caution in his heart completely dissipated. BRBR, refreshing. BRBR, Tian Wenjing directly made the heavenly Tao oath in public, and as a golden rune poured into his sea of consciousness, the heavenly Tao oath was fulfilled. BRBR, if he loses, he will be Chu Feng's protector for 3 years, otherwise he will suffer the heavenly Tao backlash. BRBR, Chu Feng raised his hand and waved, and a line of golden characters appeared on the list. BRBR, Tian Wenjing, 5 million, 3 years as a protector. BRBR topping the list. BRBR hiss. BRBR, countless people took a breath. He really recorded it. BRBR, he really converted the Elder Taisheng's bet into 5 million spirit stones and recorded it at the top of the list. BRBR, is this kid serious? BRBR, he is crazy, he is really crazy. BRBR, 5 million spiritual stones, plus the mountains of treasures from before. If we lose, 2 holy weapons won't be enough to compensate. BRBR, Tian Wenjing looked at his name on the list, and a strange color flashed in his eyes. BRBR, he took a deep look at Chu Feng and suddenly laughed. BRBR, interesting, I am waiting to see how you will fulfill your bet of 5 million spiritual stones. BRBR, just as he was leaving, another old voice sounded. BRBR, I also want to join in the fun. BRBR, everyone followed the sound and saw another old man in grey robe walking slowly. BRBR, Supreme Elder Li Changkong, this is the 6th level of the Mahayana stage. BRBR, Li Changkong walked up to Chu Feng and said calmly, BRBR, I am also betting on myself. If Bai Qingjue wins, I am willing to be your protector for 3 years. BRBR, Chu Feng's eyes lit up, and he immediately raised his hand, and Li Changkong's name appeared on the list. BRBR, then, one after another, the Supreme Elders appeared in front of Chu Feng. BRBR, the whole audience had completely fallen into madness. BRBR, 10 Supreme Elders. BRBR, oh my god. All 10 Mahayana elders in the Palace of 10,000 Demons have died. BRBR, 10 peerless experts in the Mahayana period all bet on themselves, betting that Bai Qing will lose. BRBR, if we lose. BRBR, someone muttered to themselves, but couldn't continue talking in the middle of the sentence. BRBR, because that possibility is really ridiculous. BRBR, Bai Qing definitely win? BRBR, are you kidding me? BRBR, but what if you really win? BRBR, how terrifying a force it would be if all the 10 Mahayana elders served as protectors for Chu Feng? BRBR, no one dared to think about it anymore, because the scene was too crazy, so crazy that they didn't even dare to think about it. BRBR, Feng Qianyu looked at the 10 fig. You're standing in front of Chu Feng, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. BRBR, she opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but found that she couldn't say anything. BRBR, the 10 supreme elders all died. BRBR, all bet on yourself. BRBR, bet all on Bai Qing and lose. BRBR, I don't know why, but the uneasiness in her heart is getting stronger and stronger. BRBR, she looked at Chu Feng's always calm face and Bai Qingjue's calm eyes, and a terrible thought suddenly came to her mind. What if they really won? BRBR, no, impossible. BRBR, Feng Qianyu shook her head violently, throwing this ridiculous idea out of her mind. BRBR, Bai Qingjue is just a waste in the golden elixir stage and there is absolutely no way he can win. BRBR, Feng Lingxi's chin almost rose to the sky, and she looked at Bai Qingjue with a stern look. BRBR, did you see that? The entire palace of 10,000 demons is betting on you to lose. BRBR by Qingjue pursed her lips tightly. She only dared to raise the corners of her lips when she knew that everyone had placed their bets. BRBR the Yukonju was already filled with spiritual stones, heavenly materials, and earthly treasures. She could not imagine how her husband could come up with such a genius scam. BRBR those things are enough to be worth 10 Wuji show yuan dan BRBR phone Lingxi, I thank you on behalf of my husband. BRBR the next moment, Bai Qingjue's whole body directly erupted with the cultivation level of the divine transformation stage. BRBR feeling the powerful pressure, Feng Lingxi's beautiful eyes widened instantly. BRBR transformation into God, 9th level. Immortal elixir. BRBR some time ago, someone from the Kanglin Imperial clan refined an immortal elixir, more than once. BRBR what if GC took the immortal Shuyuan pill? Thinking of this, his expression instantly became wonderful. BRBR the immortal alchemist is an existence that only exists in legends. BRBR if the Kanglin Imperial clan really had an immortal alchemist, he did not dare to think about it any further. BRBR GC, how did you do it? BRBR GC looked at him, his eyes full of pride. BRBR what do you think? BRBR Suenio ancestor, BRBR but before he could speak, GC stretched out his hand and said coldly. BRBR, stop talking nonsense and take out the Wuji Shuyuan Dan. BRBR the ancestor of Suenio's face froze. If Chu Feng came to ask for it, he would naturally refuse to admit it. BRBR but in front of GC, there was no need to lie. BRBR he was silent for a moment and finally spoke with difficulty. BRBR, that Wuji Shuyuan Dan has been refined by me. BRBR as soon as these words came out, everyone suddenly exclaimed. BRBR ancestor actually took that elixir? BRBR the corner of Chu Feng's mouth curled up slightly. He had long guessed that ancestor Suenio had already refined Wuji Shuyuan Dan, so the purpose of his trip was not to get back the elixir. BRBR, since I can't get the Wuji Shuyuan pill, I'll use a sacred weapon to repay it. BRBR ancestor Suenio's mouth twitched, this kid really dares to speak. BRBR in normal times, a junior in the void refining realm would not even be qualified to talk to him, let alone ask for a sacred artifact. BRBR but now. He looked at the dark fragment in GC's hand. BRBR fragments of the sky-splitting sword. BRBR the imperial power flowing above was like a sharp sword hanging above his head, sending shivers down the spine of ancestor Suenio. BRBR ancestor Suenio took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. BRBRL. Though a sacred artifact is precious, it will not cause him to break up with the Kanglin Imperial clan. BRBR what's more, something is obviously wrong with GC, the old witch. Her longevity problem has been solved, and she may be stronger than before. BRBR in a real fight, he may not be his opponent. BRBR just as he was pondering which sacred instrument to take out, a disdainful voice suddenly sounded. BRBR you really dare to open your mouth. BRBR everyone followed the sound and saw Feng Lingxi standing up unsteadily among the ruins. BRBR she was covered in blood and her face was pale, but her eyes were still full of arrogance. BRBR it's just a Wuji longevity pill, but I actually want a sacred weapon. Why don't you go and grab it? BRBR Chu Feng didn't say anything, but his gaze was like looking at a dead person. BRBR ancestor Suenio's face turned livid instantly, and the anger in his eyes almost burst out. BRBR this idiot. BRBR if he guessed correctly, Chu Feng's alchemy talent is definitely superior to GC's. BRBR the person who refines the immortal elixir is most likely Chu Feng. BRBR otherwise, how could it be possible that Bai Qingjue would have someone refining the immortal elixir just after marrying into the Kanglin Imperial clan? BRBR now, Bai Qingjue not only broke the shackles of heaven, but also awakened the white tiger immortal body. BRBR if all of this has nothing to do with Chu Feng, I wouldn't believe it even if I beat him to death. BRBR when Chu Feng came to the 10,000 Demons Palace to propose marriage, the one he wanted to marry was Feng Lingxi. BRBR but she refused. BRBR I personally recommended such a peerless talent to the White Tiger royal family. BRBR if Feng Lingxi had not refused at the beginning, why would the Suenio Imperial clan be so passive now? BRBR maybe he can also possess an immortal longevity pill like GC. BRBR the more he thought about it, the angrier he became and the angrier he became. BRBR Feng Lingxi, give your sacred weapon to the Kanglin Imperial clan. BRBR what? BRBR Feng Lingxi's eyes widened, her face full of disbelief. BRBR ancestor, that is my sacred weapon. BRBR huh? BRBR ancestor Suenio glanced sideways at her, revealing a murderous intention that hates the iron. BRBR Feng Lingxi trembled all over and swallowed back all the words that came to her lips. BRBR her body was shaking violently, whether it was fear or anger. BRBR under the gaze of countless eyes, a red longsword appeared in Feng Lingxi's palm. BRBR that is her sacred weapon, the Xianfeng sword. BRBR she gave Bai Qingjue a cold look and threw the Xianfeng sword. BRBR this loser who once was not even worthy of carrying her shoes now has to ask her to hand over her sacred weapon. BRBR here you go. BRBR Chu Feng waved towards Bai Qingjue and said softly. BRBR madam, it's time for us to leave. BRBR a sharp shout suddenly sounded, and several figures rose into the sky instantly, blocking the front of Yakongzhou. BRBR the leader was Elder Sunda of the Suenyo imperial clan. Behind him were 7 or 8 elders, all of whom had pale faces. BRBR Chu Feng, leave your things. BRBR Chu Feng looked at the group of aggressive elders in front of him, crossed his arms, and raised a playful smile at the corner of his mouth. BRBR what? BRBR, stop pretending to be ignorant, those spiritual stones and those heavenly materials and earthly treasures are all ours. BRBR and that black jade blood ginseng, I have been keeping it for 10,000 years. BRBR, that heavenly weapon was passed down from my ancestors. BRBR Chu Feng only felt funny when he heard these words. BRBR if I remember correctly, these things were all handed over to me by you just now, right? BRBR he paused, and his tone suddenly turned cold. BRBR what, you want to default on your debt after losing? BRBR Sunda's face froze, then he frowned and said, BRBR who said we lost? BRBR although GC is here, they are a little frightened when facing a powerful person in the late Mahayana period, BRBR but there are all their belongings on the Yukong boat. If it is really taken away by Chu Feng, it will be more uncomfortable than killing them. BRBR at this moment, the long sword in Bai Qingjue's hand is pressed against Feng Lingxi's throat. BRBR who lost and who won? BRBR Feng Lingxi froze. She could clearly feel the sword intent locked on her. As long as she dared to move, the sword would instantly pierce her throat. BRBR but with so many elders staring at her, she did not dare to speak. BRBR seeing her silence, Bai Qing passed the sword forward in his hand. A thin trace of blood was left on Feng Lingxi's neck. BRBR blood seeped out and slid down her fair neck. BRBR Feng Lingxi was shaking, she could feel the killing intent. BRBR Bai Qingjie really dared to kill her. BRBR I give up. BRBR Feng Lingxi couldn't hold back any longer and shouted in a hissing voice. BRBR this woman who she once laughed at as a waste can now kill her with one sword. BRBR what's even more frightening is that even if Bai Qingjie really kills her, he can escape unscathed. BRBR because behind Chu Feng stands GC, the ancestor of the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR that is a terrifying existence that even his ancestors are afraid of. BRBR boom. BRBR the moment the voice fell, a golden thunder suddenly fell from the void and penetrated Tian Wenjing's forehead. BRBR Tian Wenjing's body trembled, and a shackle appeared on his soul. BRBR the oath of heaven has been fulfilled. BRBR from now on, he will be Chu Feng's protector for 3 years, otherwise the oath will backfire. BRBR then, one after another, thunder fell, and the heavenly oaths made by the remaining 9 supreme elders came true. BRBR a huge picture emerged in the VOID, which was 10 old figures, kneeling on the ground. In front of this young man, he bowed his head. BRBR that young man was none other than Chu Feng. BRBR although it only lasted for a short moment, the scene was so clear that thousands of people in the 10,000 Demons Palace could see it clearly. BRBR this is a sign of heaven, and all the 10 supreme elders have become Chu Feng's protectors. BRBR the manifestation of Heaven's Tao is a vision that will appear after the Heaven's Tao oath is established, which means that this oath is recognized by heaven and earth and will be engraved in the rules of heaven and earth. BRBR Feng Qianyu's face is as pale as paper, and the giant pillars of the Blackbird Imperial clan have all become protectors of others at this moment. BRBR although it is only 3 years, 3 years is enough time for too many things to happen. BRBR Feng Lingxi collapsed to the ground as if all her strength had been drained away. BRBR she lost not only a competition, but also the dignity of the entire Blackbird Imperial clan. BRBR it's over, it's all over. BRBR she murmured to herself, her eyes full of despair. BRBR Tian Wenjing felt the restraint of his soul and could not help but clenched his fists and glared at Feng Lingxi fiercely. BRBR if Feng Lingxi wasn't a loser, how could he become Chu Feng's protector? BRBR now that the overflowing water is difficult to recover, the oath of heaven has been fulfilled, and he has no choice. BRBR the elders of the Suenyo imperial clan are like eggplants beaten by frost, with wilted heads and droopy brains. BRBR what the 10 elders lost was only 3 years, and they lost all their savings. BRBR my spiritual stones, I have accumulated spiritual stones for 200 years. BRBR Saint Lingxi lost to a loser, how can she still live? BRBR what I bet on is a heavenly weapon, it is the heirloom my father left me. BRBR Feng Lingxi's lips tremble. But she could not say a word. BRBR, she looked at those people who once treated her with respect, but now they were scolding her with ferocious faces, and she felt an unprecedented sense of humiliation in her heart. BRBR, if you weren't greedy for profit, why would you be like this? BRBR, Feng Qianyu's voice suddenly sounded, overwhelming all the curses. BRBR, I would like to admit defeat. Do you still want to regret the bet you made in public? BRBR, she closed her eyes and took a deep breath. When she opened them again, there was only fatigue left in her eyes. BRBR, let them go. BRBR, the elders looked gloomy, but they did not dare to say anything. BRBR, Chu Feng turned around and held by Qingjua's waist, and jumped onto the royal skyboat. BRBR, everyone, see you later. BRBR, he waved his hand downwards, and the royal skyboat turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the sky in an instant. BRBR, the wailing of the 10,000 demons palace gradually faded away. BRBR, BRBR on the royal skyboat. BRBR GC looked at the piles of treasures curiously and his eyes widened. BRBR, where did these things come from? BRBR, although she had a rough guess in her mind, she didn't understand how Chu Feng allowed these people to send so many treasures to Yukongju. BRBR, Chu Feng laughed, and then told the story of the previous gambling in the 10,000 demons palace. BRBR GC's lips twitched when he heard this, and he couldn't help but speak. BRBR, why would they jump into such an obvious pit? BRBR, I took out 2 holy weapons as a bet. Who can see these 2 holy weapons and not be moved? BRBR GC laughed so hard that her branches trembled, her chest was surging, and her eyes were filled with tears. BRBR, everyone in the 10,000 demons palace was fooled around by a junior of yours. All these things together are almost as much as half of the Kanglan imperial clan's treasure trove. BR Chu Feng raised his eyebrows and said with some pride, BRBR, I earned half of the imperial clan this time. How does the ancestor plan to reward me? BRBR GC rolled her eyes at him and said coquettishly, BRBR, why are you proud? It's not because I support you. Otherwise, do you think the 10,000 demons palace will let you go so easily? BRBR Chu Feng smiled, put his arms around her waist, and brought her into his arms. BRBR, thanks to my ancestor, I was able to return home with a full load. BRBR GC was hugged by him, and his whole body tensed up. He subconsciously looked in the direction of the cabin. BRBR, no, Qingju is in the cabin. BRBR, however, when Chu Feng kissed her thin lips, her body faced him honestly. BRBR, the next moment, her eyes widened suddenly and she exclaimed vaguely, BRBR, not on the bow of the boat, ah. It is said that she was originally a casual cultivator. She was greatly favored by the Lingxian imperial clan when she was young, and later stayed in the imperial clan as a worshipper. It has been tens of thousands of years. BRBR, if she takes action, even if there are other protectors around Chu Feng, they will never be able to escape. BRBR ancestor is still thoughtful. BRBR Xianyuan Lang waved his hand and closed his eyes. BRBR, go ahead, do things cleanly and don't leave any traces. BRBR, the moonlight is like water, falling on the Jingxin garden in the back mountain of the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR Chu Feng was sitting cross-legged on the bluestone platform in the courtyard, with a faint golden halo lingering around him. BRBR, after breaking through to the first level of void refining, the spiritual power in his body became more condensed, and the power of the immortal bones became more powerful. Every breath can cause the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to gather. BRBR, at this moment, a subtle ripple appeared in the void. BRBR, a beautiful figure appeared out of thin air in the courtyard. It was GC. BRBR, she was wearing a plain white dress, her green silk hair was like a waterfall, her bare jade feet gently tapped the ground, and her toes were glowing in the moonlight. BRBR ancestor? BRBR Chu Feng opened his eyes, with a flash of surprise in his eyes. BRBR GC walked up to him and sat down next to him, with a hint of solemnity in his beautiful eyes. BRBR Xianyuan Lang just sent me a message. He has discovered an ancient ruins. It is said to be the resting place of an ancient immortal. It contains the opportunity to break through the Mahayana period. He wants to invite me to explore together. BRBR Tianhuang ruins? Chu Feng's eyes flashed. After a hint of interest, what is the opportunity to break through the Mahayana stage? BRBR, I have been stuck in the 9th level of the Mahayana stage for tens of thousands of years, and I have never been able to touch that barrier. If there is such an opportunity, I really want to try. BRBR GC looked at Chu Feng, with a trace of worry in his beautiful eyes. BRBR, however, this trip will take at least a month. During this period of my absence, you should try not to leave the Kanglan imperial clan. BRBR, the clan has a large formation to protect the clan, and there are many elders stationed there. As long as you don't go out, there should be no danger. BRBR, hearing her words, Chu Feng suddenly felt a trace of doubt in his heart. BRBR tomorrow happens to be the day he and Xianyuan Tian agreed to exchange Xianyuan Yun. BRBR the ancestor of the Lingxian imperial clan invited GC to explore the secret realm at this time. No matter how you look at it, it looks like a plan to lure the tiger away from the mountain. BRBR ancestor, is Xianyuan Tian in the Lingxian Emperor clan now? BRBR GC was slightly startled, then nodded. BRBR he has gone back. But, BRBR she glanced at Chu Feng, with a hint of playfulness in her tone. BRBR you dug out his sword bones and his cultivation was greatly damaged. He has completely lost the qualification to compete for the Emperor's son. In order to appease him, the Lingxian Emperor clan arranged a marriage for him. BRBR marriage? Chu Feng raised his eyebrows. BRBR GC seemed to show a trace of memory, and the face of Yi Qingmei emerged in his mind. BRBR, the other party is the ancestor of the Yi family, Yi Qingmei. Although Yi Qingmei is of high seniority, she has extremely beautiful appearance, and has a rare immortal body that is rare to see in 10,000 years. BRBR this marriage is a blessing in disguise for Xianyuan Tian. It is said that their wedding day will be in 3 days. BRBR hearing this, a glint flashed in Chu Feng's eyes. The ancestor of the Yi family was on his wedding day. BRBR Xianyuan Tian had just returned to his clan, and the ancestor of the Lingxian imperial clan invited GC to explore the secret realm at this time. BRBR the timing was so coincidental that one had to doubt it. BRBR Chu Feng sneered in his heart, even if GC left, he still had a trump card. BRBR of course, he did not express his suspicions, but said sternly. BRBR ancestor, feel free to go explore the secret realm, I will definitely stay in the clan and wait for you to come back. BRBR GC looked at his obedient appearance and couldn't help but reach out and pinch his face. BRBR, when did you become so obedient? BRBR Chu Feng let her squeeze, but stretched out his hand to hold her in his arms. BRBR, I have always been obedient. BRBR GC rolled her eyes at him, then reluctantly got up and left. BRBR, I'm leaving, remember, don't run around. BRBR as soon as she finished speaking, her figure turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the sky. BRBR Chu Feng looked at the direction in which she was leaving, and the smile on his face gradually faded, replaced by a cold smile. BRBR, tune the tiger away from the mountain? Then I will take advantage of it. BRBR in the wing room, the candlelight flickered. BRBR Xianyuan Yun huddled in the corner of the bed, holding her knees with her hands, staring warily in the direction of the door. BRBR her long hair was disheveled, and her face was beautiful but a bit haggard. BRBR ever since she was imprisoned here by Chu Feng, she has always been in this state of vigilance, like a wounded trapped animal, ready to fight to the death. BRBR it's not that she has never thought of escaping, but this is under the nose of GC of the Kanglan Imperial clan, and there is no way to escape. BRBR every time. When she was caught, she was greeted by a stick from Chu Feng. BRBR so much so that she did not dare to take another step out of the door. BRBR the door was pushed open, and Chu Feng's figure appeared at the door. Against the candlelight, the expression on his face could not be seen clearly. Our Xianyuan Yun's body tensed instantly, and a wave of void refining realm pressure burst out from his body. However, just when this pressure was about to touch Chu Feng, a formation suddenly lit up under Chu Feng's feet. BRBR the formation spread rapidly with him as the center, and instantly enveloped the entire room. BRBR on the formation pattern, countless fine runes circulate endlessly, exuding strange spatial fluctuations. BRBR the stars have changed. BRBR the next moment, Xianyuan Yun felt that the spiritual power in his body was pouring out crazily like a flood that burst a dam. BRBR after those spiritual powers left her body, they did not dissipate. Instead, they were pulled by the formations, like silver streams, pouring into Chu Feng's body continuously. BRBR this move again. BRBR a trace of despair flashed in Xianyuan Yun's eyes. She was too familiar with this formation. BRBR last time, she was deprived of all her cultivation by this formation and became a useless person without the power to restrain a chicken. BRBR that nightmarish experience still leaves her with lingering fears. BRBR at this moment, the same nightmare comes again. BRBR she struggled to resist, but found that she could not move at all. BRBR the power of the formation not only deprived her of her spiritual power, but also acted like an invisible cage, imprisoning her in place. BRBR in just a few breaths, the spiritual power in her body was drained again. BRBR the familiar feeling of weakness swept through his body, and a sad smile appeared on Xianyuan Yun's face. BRBR it's time to return to the state of being at the mercy of others. BRBR she took a deep breath, and there was only a numb calm left in her beautiful eyes. BRBR binding, training, ravaging, whipping, just let your horse come over. BRBR Chu Feng couldn't help but low. When he saw her broken appearance. BRBR, you know quite a lot. BRBR he walked to the bed and looked at her condescendingly. BRBR. Shan Yuanyun closed his eyes, waiting for the coming storm. BRBR. However, the expected roughness did not happen. BRBR. She only felt that the skirt belt around her waist was gently untied, and her underwear was slightly opened, revealing a flat and smooth lower abdomen. BRBR. Then, a warm fingertip landed on her abdomen. BRBR. Shan Yuanyun trembled all over and opened his eyes suddenly. BRBR. She saw Chu Feng leaning over her, his right index finger gently pressing on her lower abdomen. BRBR. The fingertips glowed with a faint silver light, moving slowly on her skin, outlining something. BRBR. A slight tingling sensation came from where the fingertips fell, as fine and clear as a needle prick. BRBR. Shan Yuanyun looked down and saw silver lines slowly emerging on his lower abdomen. BRBR. Those lines formed a strange pattern, which made her feel trembling just by looking at it. BRBR. What is this? BRBR. Although she didn't know what the pattern was, she instinctively felt that it was definitely not a good thing. BRBR. Chu Feng did not answer, but continued to write. BRBR. With every stroke he made, Shan Yuanyun could feel a strange force invading his body, leaving a mark on his soul. BRBR. After about a cup of tea, the last stroke was made. BRBR. The silver line suddenly burst out with bright light, then slowly disappeared under Shan Yuanyun's skin and disappeared. BRBR. But Shan Yuanyun could clearly feel that there was an invisible connection between him and Chu Feng. BRBR. What did you do to me? BRBR. Chu Feng clapped his hands and then said meaningfully. BRBR. This is the heart-eating demon pattern. Once this pattern is carved, it will be integrated with your soul. From now on, your life and death will be determined by my thoughts. BRBR. Shan Yuanyun's pupils shrank suddenly, and a trace of panic appeared in his eyes. BRBR. In this way, she will completely become Chu Feng's puppet in the future. She can do whatever she wants and play however she wants. BRBR. This is the secret technique of the demons that Xie Tian told Chu Feng, and it was also the first time for Chu Feng to try it. BRBR. He raised his hand and snapped his fingers. BRBR. Kneel down and call me master. BRBR. Hearing this, Shan Yuanyun's eyes instantly ignited with anger. BRBR. Don't even think about it. BRBR. However, as soon as she finished speaking, her body suddenly stiffened. BRBR. A strange power surged out from the depths of his soul and swept through his body instantly. BRBR. The force ignored her will and forcibly controlled her body, like a big invisible hand, pressing down on her shoulders. BRBR. Shan Yuanyun's eyes widened, filled with fear. BRBR. She desperately tried to resist, but found that her will was as fragile as a candle in the wind in front of that force. BRBR. The next moment, her legs softened and she knelt heavily on the ground. BRBR. She raised her head, her lips parted slightly, and her voice was respectful and submissive. BRBR. Master. BRBR. The moment those two words were spoken, Shan Yuanyun was stunned. BRBR. She looked at Chu Feng in disbelief, her mind going blank. BRBR. Those two words were not what she wanted to say, but what her body said. BRBR. That magic pattern is forcibly controlling what she said. BRBR. BRBR. That feeling is like being trapped in a body that does not belong to you, and you can only watch yourself being manipulated and manipulated. BRBR. Chu Feng looked at her appearance and nodded with satisfaction. BRBR. The effect is good. BRBR. He turned and left without looking at Shan Yuanyun again. BRBR. Shan Yuanyun knelt on the spot, looking at his back, feeling overwhelming humiliation in his heart. BRBR. He took great pains to carve this kind of magic pattern UST to make her kneel down and call her master? BRBR. At this moment, Shan Yuanyun suddenly remembered what he did to her after depriving her of her cultivation last time. BRBR. Those things that made her extremely ashamed, but also made her have some aftertaste. BRBR. She shook her head violently, getting this ridiculous idea out of her mind. BRBR. But those thoughts are like weeds. The more you try to pull them out, the more they grow crazily. BRBR. She bit her lip, feeling a hint of disappointment in her heart. BRBR. Do you just want to leave a mark on me? BRBR. Chu Feng suddenly stopped in his steps and looked back at her. BRBR. I have already sent a message to Shan Yuanyun, and he will come to exchange you back tomorrow. BRBR. After walking out of the room, Chu Feng immediately sent a message to the 10 supreme elders of the Suanio imperial clan. BRBR. Tomorrow, Tianjue Valley will meet. BRBR. The candlelight flickered, reflecting Shan Yuanyun's red cheeks. BRBR. She looked down at her flat belly, a complicated light flashing in her eyes. BRBR. Master. BRBR. She repeated these two words softly, with a hint of self-deprecation in her tone, and a hint of submission that even she didn't want to admit. BRBR. The night wind blew and the candles went out. BRBR. In the darkness, only her faint whisper was left. Shan Yuanyun is dead. BRBR. died in Tian Wenjing's hands. BRBR. Although the fatal blow was caused by Chu Xuanxia's sneak attack, the sword that apparently took Xianyuan Tuan's life was struck by Tian Wenjing. BRBR, if this spreads out, what will the Lingxian Emperor clan think? BRBR, will they believe that Tian Wenjing didn't do it on purpose? BRBR, no. BRBR, they will only think that the Suanio Imperial clan joined forces with the Kanglin Imperial clan to kill their supreme elder. BRBR, do it. BRBR, Zhao Wuji shouted sharply, there was no way out at this point. BRBR, the 9 supreme elders took action at the same time, and 9 bright rays of light burst out, overwhelming the sky and covering the earth towards Yueying. BRBR, Yu Ying's complexion changed drastically, and she glared at Chu Feng fiercely. BRBR, this guy had no intention of letting her leave from the beginning, so when he saw that she was about to make a vow of greatness, Chu Xianxiao immediately launched a sneak attack to muddy the waters. BRBR, however, at this moment, even if she was filled with hatred, she could not care about Chu Feng. BRBR, Yueying didn't have time to think too much, and she formed seals with her hands. BRBR, a palm-sized bronze bell flew out of her sleeve, swelled in the wind, and instantly became about 10 feet in size, floating above her head. BRBR, the bell is bronze in color and exudes a faint pink light. BRBR, the bell shook gently, making a tinkling sound. The sound was melodious, but it contained a strange power that made people feel excited when they heard it. BRBR, Albizia bell. BRBR, Zhao Wuji's expression changed. Although it was just an imitation of the imperial weapon, it was far more powerful than the holy weapon. BRBR, immediately afterwards, a trace of blood spilled from the corner of Yueying's mouth, and she sacrificed the blood to the acacia bell. BRBR, buzz, BRBR, the Albizia bell trembled viol. NTLY, and the pink light instantly enveloped the entire void. BRBR, wherever the light passed, a strange aura filled the air. BRBR, that is the aura of acacia, which can arouse the deepest desires in people's hearts, causing monks to lose their mind and disorder their spiritual power. Even monks in the Mahayana stage cannot resist it. BRBR, the attacks of the 9 supreme elders hit the aura of acacia, but were weakened layer by the pink light, and their power was greatly reduced. BRBR, explode. BRBR, Yueying shouted loudly, and the Albizia bell exploded. BRBR, the terrifying shockwave spread crazily around the explosion point, and the pink acacia gas spewed out like a volcanic eruption, sweeping across 100 miles in an instant. BRBR, the 9 supreme elders were shaken by the shockwave and flew backwards, each one spitting blood. BRBR, Chu Xuanxiao's expression changed and he stepped back. Tian Wenjing was also shocked and backed away. BRBR, the entire Tianjue Valley was completely enveloped in the pink light, and you couldn't even see your fingers. BRBR, when the light dissipated, the figures of Yueying, Xianyuan Yun, and Xianyuan Tian had disappeared without a trace. BRBR, only a faint bloody crack is left in the void, which is the trace left by forcibly tearing apart the space. BRBR, damn it. BRBR, Zhao Wuji's face was ashen, the 9 of them took action together, but they still let Yueying run away. BRBR, in the turbulent flow of the void. BRBR, Yueying grabbed Xianyuan Yun with one hand and Xianyuan Tian with the other, and fled frantically in the direction of the Lingxian Imperial clan. BRBR, her face was as pale as paper, and blood kept flowing from the corners of her mouth. BRBR, the self-destruction of the Albizia bell caused her vitality to be severely damaged. What was even worse was that the Albizia chi that spewed out after the Albizia bell self-destructed was pouring into her body crazily. This moment. BRBR, her reason was being eroded bit by that aura, and the desire in her body was burning like a fire, making her whole body unbearably hot. BRBR, we must go back as soon as possible. BRBR, she gritted her teeth, forced on her remaining spiritual power, tore apart the space, and fled frantically. BRBR, however, she overestimated her ability to bear it. BRBR, the spirit of joy is so overbearing that even if she is at the 6th level of the Mahayana stage, it is difficult to suppress it. BRBR, less than 10,000 miles away, the spiritual power in her body began to become disordered, the scene in front of her began to blur, and her consciousness began to fade. BRBR, boom. BRBR, a bloody ray of light fell from the sky and crashed into the mountains below. BRBR, I don't know how long it took. Xianyuan Tian woke up leisurely. BRBR, he opened his eyes and found himself in a dark and damp cave. BRBR, the cave wall is uneven, gravel is scattered on the ground, and a faint light penetrates through the cracks above the head, illuminating a mottled light and shadow. BRBR, he struggled to sit up and glanced around. BRBR, not far away, Yueying was sitting cross-legged, her face flushed horribly. BRBR, her body was trembling slightly, her forehead was covered with fine beads of sweat, her breathing was rapid and disordered, and she was obviously trying her best to suppress the acacia energy in her body. BRBR, farther away, Xianyuan Yun was leaning against the cave wall, eyes closed, not sure whether he was unconscious or awake. BRBR, Xianyuan Tian looked at Yueying, his eyes gradually becoming complicated. BRBR his throat rolled. The breath of acacia can evoke the strange power of people's deepest desires. Once they cannot suppress it, they will completely lose their reason and become a slave of desire. BRBR at this moment, he was also filled with the spirit of acacia, and coupled with Yu Ying's alluring appearance. He almost couldn't control himself. BRBR that cold and beautiful face, that slender figure, that cold as frost temperament, if I could kiss her, BRBR Shanyuan Tian's throat rolled. He knew that his thoughts were dirty, but once those thoughts came up, he could no longer suppress them. BRBR however, he still held back. BRBR Yu Ying is closest to the Albizia bell and inhales the most Albizia gas. BRBR as long as Yu Ying can't suppress the joyous energy in her body, why not ask him? BRBR the corner of Shanyuan Tian's mouth raised a sly smile. When Yu Ying could no longer suppress it, she would naturally kneel in front of him and ask for his help. BRBR when the time comes, he can do whatever he wants. BRBR the more Shanyuan Tian thought about it, the more excited he became, and his breathing became heavier. BRBR he did not notice that Shanyuan Yun, not far away, had opened his eyes at this moment. BRBR Shanyuan Yun looked at him quietly, looking at the obscene smile on his face, and felt a deep disgust in his heart. BRBR this is the person she desperately saved, and this is the child she regards as her own? BRBR in order to save him, she did not hesitate to use the dark escape evil talisman and endure the evil curse. In the end, she was imprisoned and humiliated by Chu Feng. BRBR now, he is here again, coveting Supreme Elder Yu Ying with such dirty eyes. BRBR seemingly noticing her gaze, Shanyuan Tian also looked over. BRBR especially when he saw the collar around her neck, Shanyuan Tian's eyes flashed with hatred. BRBR Aunt Yun, what's on your neck, let me take it off for you. BRBR unexpectedly, when Shanyuan Yun's jade hand touched the silver mirror ring, Chu Feng's handsome face suddenly appeared in his mind. BRBR compared to Chu Feng, Shanyuan Tian was not even qualified to carry her shoes, let alone touch her with those dirty hands. BRBR what's more, the master put it on her personally. How could she cool it off without the master's order? BRBR no need. BRBR hearing this, Shanyuan Tian couldn't help but frown. BRBR the three of them had already escaped from Chu Feng's clutches, so why was Aunt Yun still wearing that thing? BRBR Aunt Yun, are you still blaming me? BRBR at the same time, Yu Ying's face became redder and redder, her breathing became more and more rapid, and her body trembled more and more violently. BRBR she could feel that her sanity was collapsing little by little. BRBR the spirit of acacia was so overbearing that even if she tried her best to suppress it, she could hardly suppress it. BRBR damn it. Immediately send a message to the clan and ask them to come and respond quickly. BRBR as long as the reinforcements arrive and take her back to the Lingxian Imperial clan, the powerful people in the Mahayana stage of the clan will definitely be able to help her resolve this aura of joy. BRBR okay. BRBR Shanyuan Yun glanced sideways at Shanyuan Tian, and then looked at the jade talisman in his hand. BRBR this is the jade talisman Chu Feng gave her just in case. BRBR Taishang Elder, I'm sorry, this is the master's task. BRBR she tapped her fingertips lightly, and a spiritual light penetrated the jade talisman. BRBR however, she did not send a message to the Kanglan Imperial clan, but sent a message to Chu Feng, informing her of her current location. BRBR Shanyuan Tian, I don't hate you, but I want to thank you. BRBR of course, she didn't say the second half of the sentence. BRBR thank you for giving me a master. BRBR Tianju Valley. BRBR the acacia energy in Chu Feng's body is being devoured and refined by the heaven refining diagram. BRBR he was naturally contaminated by the breath that spewed out when the Albizia bell exploded. BRBR but to him, this breath is nothing at all. The heaven refining diagram can refine all things, and the mere breath of acacia is nothing more than a tonic. BRBR after a while, the last trace of acacia spirit was refined. BRBR Chu Feng opened his eyes, and a glimmer of light flashed in his eyes. BRBR at this moment, the message jade talisman in his arms shook slightly. BRBR he took out the jade talisman, penetrated his consciousness, and a line of small words appeared in front of his eyes. BRBR thousands of miles southeast of Tianjue Valley, the nameless mountain range, the cave halfway up the third peak, come quickly. BRBR Chu Feng raised his brows and raised a smile at the corner of his mouth. BRBR sure enough, you are the most sensible. BRBR he stood up, ignoring the blushing elders, and disappeared in a flash. BRBR another stick of incense passed. BRBR Yu Ying finally reached her limit. Her eyes became blurred, her breathing became heavy, and her body was so hot that it seemed to be burning. BRBR the cold and beautiful face was now flushed, her eyes were as charming as silk, her red lips were slightly open, and her breath was like blue. BRBR, she looked at Shan Yuan Tian, the only man in the cave. BRBR, help me. BRBR, her voice was hoarse and trembling, with a strong charm. BRBR, Shan Yuan Tian's heart skipped a beat. BRBR coming. BRBR finally here. BRBR, looking at Yu Ying's charming appearance, his breathing became heavy. BRBR, those eyes were fixed on her rising and falling chest, and an uncontrollable impulse surged in her heart. BRBR, Yue Ying, you finally begged me. BRBR, he stood up and walked towards Yue Ying step by step, the smile on his face was extremely obscene. BRBR, don't worry, I will definitely help you. BRBR, he stretched out his hand to unbuckle his belt. BRBR, however, just when his hand was about to touch the belt, Chu Feng appeared in the cave out of thin air. BRBR, the water here is too deep, you can't control it, so I'll do it. BRBR, Chu Feng, you. BRBR, Shan Yuan Tian couldn't help but bled when he heard the familiar voice. BRBR, before he finished speaking, Chu Feng punched him in the back of the head. BRBR, Shan Yuan Tian's eyesight went dark and he fainted. BRBR, Chu Feng threw it casually, and Shan Yuan Tian's body was thrown out of the cave like a rag bag, rolling down the cliff and missing. BRBR, Yu Ying's eyes widened, looking at Chu Feng who suddenly appeared, her eyes filled with disbelief. BRBR, you, why are you here? BRBR, in order to prevent being caught up, she deliberately chose to deviate and return to the Elixirs Emperor clan to suppress the aura of joy in her body. BRBR, if no one had tipped off the information, Chu Feng would never have found this place so quickly. BRBR, she seemed to have thought of something, turned her head suddenly and looked at Shan Yuanyun. BRBR, it's you traitor. BRBR, Shan Yuanyun bit her thin lips tightly. At this moment, her reason had already been swallowed up by the aura of joy, and she was holding on to wait for Chu Feng to come. BRBR, the moment she saw Chu Feng, she immediately rushed towards him, knelt in front of him with a charming look on her face, and hugged his thigh tightly. BRBR, Elder Yue Ying, I'm sorry, this is the master's task. BRBR, you. BRBR, Yue Ying's eyes were splitting. Even in the critical moment of life and death, she never forgot to rescue Shan Yuanyun, but this traitor actually betrayed her. BRBR, she really couldn't understand that Shan Yuanyun had only been in the Kanglan Imperial clan for a few days, but he was so determined to follow Chu Feng. BRBR, what did Chu Feng give you to make you rebel against the clan? BRBR, at this moment, she wanted to rush forward and kill the traitor. BRBR, but at this moment, her whole body was so weak that she couldn't even stand up, let alone make a move. BRBR, senior, you, don't waste your strength. What else can you do now? BRBR, Chu Feng walked toward her step by step, not afraid at all. That this powerful person in the Mahayana stage would kill someone. BRBR, the energy of Acacia goes deep into your bones. You don't want to explode and die. BRBR, Yu Ying trembled all over and looked at him with horror in her eyes. BRBR, you, what do you want to do? BRBR, Chu Feng stepped forward and said meaningfully. BRBR, senior, let me help you practice. Kneel down. BRBR, hearing this, Yue Ying couldn't help but sneer. BRBR, it's useless even if you kneel down and beg for mercy. BRBR, before she finished speaking, her body suddenly stiffened. BRBR, a strange power surged out from the depths of his soul and swept through his body instantly. BRBR, the force ignored her will and forcibly controlled her body, like a big invisible hand, pressing down on her shoulders. BRBR, plop. BRBR, Yue Ying's knees fell heavily to the ground, making a muffled sound. BRBR, she knelt behind Chu Feng, maintaining the posture of slapping with one palm, but she could no longer move forward. BRBR, what's going on? BRBR, Yue Ying struggled desperately to stand up, but found that her body didn't obey her orders at all. BRBR, she could feel her anger and murderous intent, but she could not vent them. BRBR, that feeling is like being trapped in a body that does not belong to you, and you can only watch yourself being manipulated and manipulated. BRBR, she suddenly remembered the look Shan Yuanyun looked at her, pity and ridicule. BRBR, that mark. BRBR, Chu Feng turned around, with a smile on his lips. BRBR, senior, do you feel comfortable kneeling and talking? BRBR, Yu Ying looked up at him, with fear in her eyes again. BRBR, what exactly did you do to me? BRBR, Chu Feng stretched out his hand and gently raised her chin. BRBR, from now on, you are mine. If you obey, I will consider letting you regain your freedom. If you don't obey, BRBR, Shan Yuanyun stood aside, looking at Yu Ying's shocked, angry but helpless look, and couldn't help but shake his head. BRBR, Elder Yue Ying, the mark just now is the heart-eating demon pattern. BRBR, once this mark is carved, from now on, your life and death will depend on the master's thoughts. BRBR, Yue Ying's pupils shrank, and then she retorted disdainfully. BRBR, nonsense, even a small mark wants to control me. I am in the Mahayana stage. BRBR, before she finished speaking, Shan Yuanyun interrupted her. BRBR, what about the Mahayana period, can you stand up? BRBR Yueying was stunned. She shrugged her shoulders, but her body could not stand up. BRBR, even if she didn't want to believe it at this moment, she had to admit that what Shan Yuanyun said was true. BRBR, thankfully, she thought Chu Feng really kept his word, but she didn't expect him to be so despicable. BRBR, she suddenly turned her head to look at Chu Feng and asked angrily. BRBR, you actually put such a restriction on me. BRBR, Chu Feng looked at her appearance, spread his hands, and said innocently. BRBR, senior, you just wanted to kill me, I was just taking precautions. BRBR Yueying was so angry that she was shaking all over and said bitterly. BRBR, you took away my pure essence and carved restrictions on me. I have never seen anyone as shameless as you. BRBR, Chu Feng raised his eyebrows and retorted. BRBR, I let my senior go, but he wanted to kill me, each other. BRBR Yueying was choked to the point of being speechless, she really wanted to kill him. BRBR, but she didn't expect that this seemingly harmless junior would actually retain such a skill. BRBR despicable. BRBR so despicable. BRBR Yueying gritted her teeth and stared at Chu Feng, wishing she could cut him into pieces with her eyes. BRBR at this moment, Chu Feng raised his eyebrows slightly. BRBR, someone is coming. BRBR, he looked outside the cave, and his consciousness spread like a tide. BRBR, several powerful auras are rapidly approaching this mountain peak. BRBR Yueying also sensed those auras, and her eyes suddenly lit up. BRBR, the people from the Lingxian Imperial clan are here. BRBR, she looked at Chu Feng, her face full of pride. BRBR, Chu Feng, you are dead, let's see where you are going to escape this time. BRBR, however, Chu Feng just glanced at her, as if he was looking at a fool. BRBR. You don't want people from the Lingxian Emperor clan to see you like this, right? BRBR Yueying looked down and her face turned red instantly. BRBR, her dress was messy and the hem was wrinkled. BRBR, anyone who looks at this look will know what just happened. BRBR Yueying was ashamed and angry, and began to arrange her clothes in a hurry. BRBR Chu Feng looked at her panic, but he did not run away in a hurry. The person who came was the Mahayana stage, and he could not run away at all. BRBR senior, I'll leave those people outside to you. BRBR Yueying paused with her hands and raised her head to look at him. BRBR, what do you mean? BRBR Chu Feng pointed outside the cave and ordered. BRBR, go and take them away. BRBR, you're dreaming. BRBR Yueying refused without thinking and asked her to take away the people from the Lingxian Emperor clan. She wanted to tear Chu Feng into pieces, so how could she help him? BRBR, but as soon as she finished speaking, her body stood up uncontrollably. BRBR, she watched herself walking towards the cave entrance step by step, her heart full of horror. BRBR, no, don't. BRBR, she desperately wanted to stop and shout for help, but her body didn't listen to her at all. BRBR outside the cave. BRBR, 5 figures suspended in the air are none other than Shan Yuanju and the 3 supreme elders. BRBR, Shan Yuanju's eyes fell on the entrance of the cave and his brows furrowed slightly. BRBR, that 1,000-foot-long phantom just now, that golden beam of light that penetrated the sky and the earth, the center of all visions, is on this mountain peak. BRBR, but at this moment, it is peaceful here. BRBR Shan Yuanju was about to speak when a person suddenly walked out of the cave entrance. It was Yueying. BRBR, her hair was meticulously tied behind her head, and she could not see the embarrassment she had just now. BRBR, there was only a trace of imperceptible humiliation hidden deep in those eyes. BRBR clan leader. BRBR Shan Yuanju looked at her, his brows slightly relaxed. BRBR elder Yueying, I just sensed that someone here has awakened the immortal martial spirit. Do you know who this person is? BRBR Yueying was silent for a moment. At that moment, she desperately wanted to tell the truth. BRBR, she wanted to tell Shan Yuanju that Chu Feng was here. BRBR, the bastard who took away her pure essence and carved a restriction on her body is here. BRBR, kill him quickly. BRBR, however, when the words came to my lips, they turned into another sentence. BRBR, the person who awakened the immortal martial soul is Shan Yuantian, and he is adjusting his breath in the cave. BRBR, as soon as these words came out, several supreme elders were moved. BRBR, Shan Yuantian? BRBR, the Shan Yuantian whose sword bones were dug out? BRBR, he actually awakened the immortal martial spirit? BRBR Shan Yuanju was also stunned, and then a trace of joy flashed in his eyes. BRBR, although Shan Yuantian's sword bones were dug out, if he could awaken the immortal martial spirit, it would be a blessing in disguise. BRBR, the value of the immortal martial spirit is far greater than that of the sword bone. BRBR, okay. 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 BRBR Shan Yuanju said 3 good words in a row, with a smile on his face. BRBR, this son is indeed the Qiliner of our Lingxian imperial clan. With this immortal martial spirit, his achievements in the future will be limitless. BRBR, he looked at Yueying and asked again. BRBR, where's Shanyuan Tuan, isn't he with you? BRBR, when Shanyuan Tuan was mentioned, Yueying's expression immediately became serious. BRBR, we were ambushed by the Kanglin imperial clan. Chu Feng ambushed 10 Mahayana monks in Tianjue Valley, BRBR, in order to protect Shanyuan Tian and me. Shanyuan Tuan lured away the 10 Mahayana monks on his own. At this moment they should be fighting with them in Tianjue Valley. BRBR Chu Feng. Shanyuan Ju's eyes flashed with murderous intent. Does that little beast really think that our Lingxian imperial clan is easy to bully? BRBR, he waved his hand and said in a deep voice. BRBR, let's go to Tianjue Valley. BRBR, yes. BRBR, the three supreme elders responded in unison, their bodies turned into streams of light, and they galloped away in the direction of Tianjue Valley. BRBR, after a moment, the four figures disappeared into the vast sky. BRBR Yueying stood at the entrance of the cave, looking at the direction they were leaving, with no expression on her face. BRBR, only the depths of those eyes were full of unwillingness. BRBR, her body didn't obey her orders at all, and she could only watch the opportunity slip away, watch those people leave, and watch herself continue to become the devil's plaything. BRBR, there were footsteps behind her, and a big hand stretched out from behind and hugged her waist. BRBR, Chu Feng's voice sounded in her ears, with a hint of smile. BRBR, good job. BRBR Yueying's body stiffened, and the hand roamed around her waist wantonly, but she could not resist. BRBR, I could only grit my teeth, endure the humiliation, and let him hold me. BRBR, the next moment, Chu Feng let go of his hand, suddenly jumped, and fell towards the bottom of the cliff. BRBR, follow up. BRBR, as soon as she finished speaking, Yueying's body followed her involuntarily. BRBR, Shanyuan Yun glanced at her and jumped down. BRBR, the bottom of the cliff. BRBR, the rocks are rugged and thorny. BRBR, Shanyuan Tian huddled in the rubble, covered in blood and with weak breath. BRBR, he was thrown from the cliff and smashed to pieces, with more than a dozen bones in his body broken. BRBR, after a while, Shanyuan Tian opened his eyes with difficulty and struggled to get up. BRBR, he must tell the clan leader everything that happened here as soon as possible, so that they can rescue Yueying and enshrine her, and kill Chu Feng. BRBR, however, just when he took out the message jade talisman, Chu Feng fell from the sky and landed in front of him. BRBR, seeing Chu Feng, Shanyuan Tian's pupils shrank suddenly. BRBR, Chu Feng. BRBR, he retreated and shouted towards the void. BRBR, sir, please save me. BRBR, before he finished speaking, Yueying and Shanyuan Yun floated down one after another. BRBR, the moment Shanyuan Tian saw Yueying, his eyes suddenly lit up. BRBR, the supreme elder, kill Chu Feng quickly, quickly. BRBR, his face was full of pride and he couldn't help but sneer. BRBR, Chu Feng, you are finished. BRBR, however, Chu Feng just glanced at him, and his eyes were like looking at a dead person. BRBR, keep his essence and blood and kill him. BRBR, Shanyuan Tian was stunned for a moment, then burst into laughter. BRBR, Chu Feng, are you crazy? Are you asking the supreme elder of my clan to kill me? BRBR, he laughed so hard that tears almost came out. BRBR, who do you think you are? How can the supreme elder listen to you? BRBR, however, a look of horror soon appeared in his eyes. BRBR, because he saw Yueying actually walking towards him, and there was a faint murderous intention lingering around her. BRBR, sir, what do you want to do? BRBR, Yueying did not speak, but continued to walk towards him. BRBR, those eyes were as cold as frost, without a trace of warmth. BRBR, the next moment, her figure appeared in Shanyuan Tian in front of him, the slender hands gathered a terrifying power that could tear him into pieces. BRBR, Shanyuan Tian's eyes widened with horror. BRBR, I am the holy son of the Lingxian Emperor clan, you can't kill me. BRBR, Yueying's hand paused slightly. Of course she didn't want to kill Shanyuan Tian, but she couldn't control herself. BRBR, the heart-eating demon pattern was forcibly controlling her body. BRBR, this is the master's order. BRBR, the master's order? BRBR, Shanyuan Tian felt as if he was struck by lightning, and his mind went blank. BRBR, what did he hear? BRBR, the proud elder Yueying in the clan, the 6th-level Jew of the Mahayana period, the world's strongest man, actually called Master Chu Feng? BRBR, before Shanyuan Tian recovered, a terrifying suction force came from above his head. BRBR, the essence and blood in his body was forcibly drawn away like a flood. BRBR, no dash. You don't want to spit on others. BRBR, Shanyuan Ju sneered, his eyes full of hatred. BRBR, I still want to deny it. Chu Feng deceived Shanyuan Tuan and Yuing into Tianjue Valley under the guise of exchanging the name of our elders, but you, the Kanglan imperial clan, were hiding in secret. BRBR, he continued speaking word by word, gritting his teeth. BRBR, we have found Shanyuan Tuan's body, do you still dare to quibble? BRBR. Chu Feng opened his mouth, he indeed did not send anyone to kill Shanyuan Tuan. BRBR, but Shanyuan Ju said that he had a nose and eyes, and even the body was found. What on earth is going on? BRBR. His peripheral vision glanced at Chu Feng again. Chu Feng looked calm, standing beside Yuing like an outsider, with no expression on his face. BRBR. Chu Feng had a vague guess in his heart, but now was not the time to ask further questions. BRBR. Moreover, Shanyuan Ju did not give him a chance to explain. BRBR. Do it. BRBR. Shanyuan Ju shouted loudly, and the pressure around him exploded. BRBR. The three elders behind him took action at the same time, and the terrifying attacks enveloped Chu Feng and the others. BRBR. Chu Feng's expression changed, but he had no intention of fighting head-on with the opponent, otherwise Chu Feng's plan would be exposed. BRBR. Let's go. BRBR. He shouted sharply, and his body instantly turned into a stream of light and fled towards the void. BRBR. Chu Shanfeng and Chu Shanming reacted very quickly. Following closely behind, the three figures rushed into the void in the blink of an eye and disappeared into the sky. BRBR. Want to run? BRBR. A cold light flashed in Shanyuan Ju's eyes, and he wanted to catch up with him as soon as he moved. BRBR. However, at this moment, Yu Ying's figure stood in front of Shanyuan Ju. BRBR. Clan leader, wait. BRBR. Shanyuan Ju paused and looked at her with a frown. BRBR. What are you doing? BRBR. Yuing took a deep breath and said solemnly. BRBR. Clan leader, don't chase after the poor bandits, be careful to lure the tiger away from the mountain. BRBR. Tune the tiger away from the mountain? Shanyuan Ju was stunned. BRBR. Yuing nodded, glanced around, and said in a deep voice. BRBR. It is strange that Chu Feng and the others suddenly appeared here. BRBR. They knew that we were outnumbered, but they still dared to stay and confront each other. This is unreasonable. BRBR. She paused and continued. BRBR. What if they just want to distract us and then send someone to strangle Tianer, then they will fall into their trap. BRBR. Shanyuan Ju's heart trembled, and the more he thought about it, the more frightened he became, and cold sweat trickled down his back. BRBR. The insidious Kanglan imperial clan first killed our supreme elder, and then tried to kill our talented genius. This hatred is irreconcilable. BRBR. BRBR. Lingxian imperial clan, meeting hall. BRBR. At this moment, the hall was full of people, and sitting on the main seat in the center was Shanyuan Ju. BRBR. Today we have gathered you all to announce something big. BRBR. His eyes swept across the audience and he said loudly. BRBR. Shanyuan Tian has awakened the immortal martial soul. BRBR. As soon as these words came out, the whole place was in an uproar. BRBR. Shanyuan Tian, the Shanyuan Tian whose sword bones were dug out? BRBR. Shanyuan Ju raised his hand and pressed it, signaling for everyone to be quiet. BRBR. When the discussion subsided, he continued. BRBR. I don't need to say much about the value of the immortal martial spirit. Those who possess the immortal martial spirit are enough to become the pillars of our Lingxian imperial clan in the future. BRBR. So, I declare Shanyuan Tian to be the emperor's son of our Lingxian imperial clan. BRBR. I object. The emperor has always entered the secret realm of the Lingxian for training. Only the winner can become the emperor. How can it be determined in just one word? BRBR. Yes, this is unfair to the other saints. BRBR. Shanyuan Tian cannot be treated so specially because he has awakened the immortal martial soul. If he is really powerful, he should compete fairly with other saints. BRBR. Shanyuan Ju's face was a little ugly. He did not expect that he would encounter such strong opposition when he established Shanyuan Tian as the emperor. BRBR. These old guys usually pretend to be deaf and mute, but when it comes time to share the benefits, they jump higher than anyone else. BRBR. Everyone, BRBR. Just as he was about to speak, he was interrupted by the Supreme Elder Shanyuan Hongtu. BRBR. The secret realm of Lingxian was left by the ancestors of our clan, specifically to test the Holy Sun. BRBR. Only those who pass the test of the secret realm are qualified to become the Emperor's son. This is a rule that no one can make an exception to. BRBR. Shanyuan Ju's face became even more ugly. Just when Shanyuan Ju was in a dilemma, the palace door was pushed open. BRBR. Immediately afterwards, Chu Feng walked in. BRBR. Patriarch, I am willing to enter the secret realm of the spiritual immortal together with the other saint sons and compete fairly for the position of the Emperor's son. BRBR. As soon as these words came out, the whole place fell silent instantly. BRBR. Everyone was stunned. No one expected that Chu Feng actually agreed. BRBR they prepared so many reasons and so many rebuttals, but they themselves took the initiative to demand fair competition? BRBR how can they object to this? BRBR Shan Yuanju was also stunned, and then a complicated light flashed in his eyes. BRBR he knew why Shan Yuantian did this, it was because he didn't want to embarrass him. BRBR I don't want him, the leader of the clan, to be embarrassed in front of everyone. BRBR this child, a warm current surged in Shan Yuanju's RT, and he looked at Chu Feng with eyes filled with relief. BRBR Tianer, BRBR Chu Feng raised his head and said seriously. BRBR clan leader, I understand what the group leader thinks, but the rules are the rules, and I can't let you break the ancestral precepts for me. BRBR he paused and said firmly BRBR and I am confident that now that I have condensed the immortal martial soul, I am not afraid of anyone among my peers. BRBR Shan Yuanju looked at him, was silent for a long time, and finally nodded. BRBR in this case, in 10 days, the Emperor's Son conference will be held as scheduled. BRBR at that time, all the saints will enter the secret realm of the spirit fairy and compete fairly, and the winner will be the Emperor's Son. BRBR the opposing elders around had nothing to say at this moment. BRBR people themselves demand fair competition, what else can they say? BRBR Shan Yuan Hongtu opened his mouth, and finally just sighed and sat back. BRBR after the discussion, everyone dispersed one after another, but Shan Yuanju left Chu Feng behind. BRBR the two of them were the only ones left in the huge meeting hall. BRBR Shan Yuanju walked up to Chu Feng and looked at his slightly pale face, with a hint of distress in his eyes. BRBR Tianer, what happened to your grandfather? BRBR he paused and said in a low voice. BRBR Chu Feng lowered his head and said nothing. His shoulders shook as if he was sobbing, but in fact he could hardly help laughing. BRBR Shan Yuan Tuan died in his design. Of course, he couldn't bear that Shan Yuan Tuan was too lonely. So he sent Shan Yuan Tian over. BRBR Shan Yuanju sighed, took out a simple na ring from his arms, and handed it to him. BRBR this is your grandfather's na ring, and it contains his life savings. Now it belongs to you. BRBR Chu Feng looked at the na ring, and a complicated light flashed in his eyes. BRBR he stretched out his hand to take it, and his spiritual consciousness penetrated it. BRBR the next moment, he almost laughed out loud. BRBR the na ring has a vast space, and the spiritual stone inside there are at least 80 million pieces in the pile. BRBR there are dozens of heavenly materials and earthly treasures, including 10,000 years Ganoderma lucidum, dragon blood grass, Shanbing chalcedony, phoenix bloodstone, each one is priceless. BRBR dozens of rubbings of techniques, and countless jade bottles of elixirs. There is another holy weapon suspended in the center of the space, exuding a faint pressure. BRBR fully developed. BRBR Chu Feng tried his best to hold back his smile, which turned into a slight twitch. BR in Shan Yuanju's eyes, it turned out to be an expression of excessive sadness and holding back tears. BRBR he reached out and patted Chu Feng's shoulder, and his tone was softer. BRBR Tianer, don't be too sad. If your grandfather is still alive, he doesn't want to see you so depressed. BRBR Chu Feng took a deep breath and raised his head, his eyes full of gratitude. BRBR, thank you, clan leader. BRBR Shan Yuanju nodded and was about to turn around and leave when Chu Feng suddenly spoke. BRBR, clan chief, I have one more thing to ask for. BRBR Shan Yuanju paused in his steps and turned to look at him. BRBR say. BRBR Chu Feng hesitated for a moment and then said. BRBR I want to practice in seclusion, stabilize my immortal martial soul, and improve my cultivation, but BRBR he paused and said a little embarrassed. BRBR I just hope that the clan leader can give me more cultivation resources. BRBR hearing this request, a look of surprise appeared on Shan Yuanju's face. BRBR he has also explored the Shan Yuan pattern Neji, and there are many natural and earthly treasures in it. BRBR he looked at the Neji in Chu Feng's hand and couldn't help but ask. BRBR there are a lot of good things in your grandfather's Neji. Isn't it enough for you to refine? BRBR Chu Feng shook his head and looked serious. BRBR the clan leader doesn't know something. After I awakened the immortal martial spirit, the speed of refining heavenly materials and earthly treasures was 100 times faster than before. BRBR 100 times? BRBR Shan Yuanju's eyes widened and he looked at Chu Feng in disbelief. BRBR, are you telling the truth? BRBR Chu Feng nodded heavily and even raised his hand as if to swear. BRBR I would never dare to deceive the clan leader about this matter. BRBR Shan Yuanju took a breath of cold air. BRBR refining is 100 times faster. What is this concept? BRBR it means that Shan Yuan Tian can refine resources that others need 100 years to refine in 1 year. BRBR this means that Shan Yuan Tian's cultivation speed will be 100 times that of his peers. BRBR This means that as long as there are enough resources, Shanyuan Tian's cultivation level will soar. BRBR Okay. 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 BRBR Shanyuan Ju said 3 good words in a row, his eyes full of excitement. BRBR He raised his hand and took off the neji on his hand and handed it to Chu Feng. BRBR This Na ring is my private treasury, and the resources inside are much more than those of Shanyuan Tuan. From now on, it is yours. BRBR Chu Feng took the Na ring, and with a sweep of his consciousness, he saw that there were hundreds of millions of spiritual stones inside. BRBR He took a deep breath and suppressed the ecstasy in his heart. BRBR Thank you, Patriarch. I will definitely live up to the Patriarch's expectations. BRBR Shanyuan Ju nodded with satisfaction and promised. BRBR As long as you can become the Emperor's son in 10 days, I can satisfy you whatever you want in the future. BRBR Back at his residence, Chu Feng closed the door and set up a soundproofing ban. BRBR This is an independent small courtyard located in the core area of Healing Imperial Clan. It was the original residence of Shanyuan Tian. BRBR The courtyard is not big, but it is extremely delicately decorated, and the aura is so rich that it is almost impossible to dissolve it. BRBR Chu Feng sat cross-legged on the bed and took a deep breath. BRBR 2 Na rings were suspended in his palms, exuding a faint aura. BRBR The legacy of Shanyuan Tuan. BRBR Shanyuan Ju's private treasury. BRBR These things are enough to drive any monk crazy, and now they all belong to him. BRBR Chu Feng played with the 2 Na rings in his hands, with a smile on his lips. BRBR Shanyuan Ju, you are really. I cry to death. BRBR As soon as he finished speaking, Chu Feng directly activated the heaven refining diagram. BRBR The spiritual stones in the ring poured out like a torrent, filling the entire room in an instant. BRBR The spiritual stones are piled up into mountains, emitting all kinds of spiritual lights, making the whole room look like a fairyland. BRBR Refining the heaven diagram, refine it for me. Chu Feng raised his eyebrows, and a trace of confusion flashed in his eyes. BRBR He had been immersed in the gentle countryside for the past 3 days and had long forgotten the time. BRBR What's more important is that when he returned to the clan, Shanyuan Ju didn't even mention the wedding to him. BRBR Seeing his appearance, Yueying couldn't help but raise the corners of her mouth slightly. BRBR Although Chu Feng replaced Shanyuan Tian, he did not conduct a soul search on Shanyuan Tian, so he did not know many things about Shanyuan Tian. BRBR If she hadn't been there to remind him, this guy would probably reveal his secret sooner or later. BRBR Shanyuan Tuan made a marriage arrangement for his grandson Shanyuan Tian before his death. Today is the day when you go to the Yi family to welcome the bride. BRBR Chu Feng was stunned for a moment and then realized what he was doing. BRBR By the way, he is Shanyuan Tian now. BRBR That old guy Shanyuan Tuan has arranged a marriage for his grandson. BRBR Yi family? BRBR Chu Feng sat up and looked at Yueying. BRBR Wouldn't she be an old woman to marry the ancestor of the Yi family? BRBR Yueying couldn't help laughing when she heard this. BRBR The laughter was clear and sweet, with a hint of narrowness. BRBR Although Yi Qingmei is of high seniority, the whole Zhongzhou knows that she is famous for her stunning beauty. BRBR Chu Feng raised his eyebrows and couldn't help but look at Yueying. BRBR Shanyuan Tuan arranged this marriage for his grandson just to marry a beautiful woman? BRBR Yueying shook her head and continued. BRBR Of course not. It's not the master's fault for severely injuring Shanyuan Tian. BRBR Shanyuan Tian's sword bones were dug out, and his cultivation foundation was greatly damaged, making it even more difficult to recover. BRBR Yi Qingmei is a rare creation immortal body that can only be seen in 10,000 years, which can help him practice. BRBR creation immortal body. BRBR A glint flashed in Chu Feng's eyes. Of course he had heard of this kind of physique. People who practice with this kind of physique can break through the shackles of the realm. BRBR It turns out that Shanyuan Tuan had this idea. BRBR let Shanyuan Tian marry Yi Qingmei and use her immortal body to repair the foundation and even go further. BRBR Unfortunately, Shanyuan Tian is dead. BRBR He is the one who is going to welcome the bride now. A meaningful smile appeared on the corner of Chu Feng's mouth. BRBR Interesting. BRBR He looked at Yueying and suddenly slapped her on the butt. BRBR Why are you still standing there? Why don't you help me get dressed? BRBR Yueying took a deep breath, suppressed the shame and anger in her heart, got up and got out of bed, and fetched the groom's clothes. BRBR However, as soon as she got close to Chu Feng, her hands trembled slightly. BRBR It was not because of nervousness, but because the memory of these 3 days was so profound that as soon as she got close to Chu Feng, she could not help but think of those scenes. BRBR Chu Feng looked down at her slightly red ears, and the smile on his lips became thicker. BRBR This woman doesn't say anything with her mouth, but she is very honest with her body. BRBR Wudon City, Yi Mansion. BRBR Today's Yi Mansion is decorated with lanterns and colorful decorations, with red lanterns hanging high and a festive atmosphere everywhere. BRBR Outside the gate of the mansion, people and monks had already gathered to watch. BRBR Come on, the wedding team of the Lixian Emperor clan is here. BRBR Someone shouted, and the crowd suddenly became commotion. BRBR In the distance, a huge team is slowly approaching. BRBR The team stretched for several miles, with flags fluttering and solemnity. BRBR At the front of the team, on a tall dragon-scaled horse, sits a young man wearing a red groom suit, who is Shanyuan Tian. BRBR The door of the mansion opened wide, and Yi Chanqiu led a group of Yi family members to file out. BRBR Welcome to the Holy Sun. BRBR Yi Chanqiu took a step forward and saluted with his hands in hand. BRBR Chu Feng nodded slightly as a return gift. BRBR His gaze crossed Yi Chanqiu and fell on everyone in the Yi family. BRBR Finally, his eyes fell on a young man behind the crowd. BRBR The young man had sharp eyebrows and starry eyes, and a handsome face, but at this moment, his face was full of sinisterness. He was staring at Chu Feng, as if fire was about to burst out of his eyes. BRBR Chu Feng glanced at him and then looked away. BRBR It's just that I secretly muttered in my heart that this boy is very lucky. BRBR The bride is coming out. BRBR I don't know who shouted, and everyone looked at the door of the house. BRBR A graceful figure slowly walked out with the support of several maids. BRBR Yi Qingmei was wearing a bright red wedding dress, with a red hijab covering her head, so her face could not be seen clearly. BRBR But just her graceful figure and her unearthly aura are enough to make people imagine. BRBR The skirt of the wedding dress trailed to the ground, floating gently with her steps, like a red lotus in full bloom. BRBR The chest is bulging high. Although it is covered by the wedding dress, the amazing curvature can still be seen. BRBR Everyone was so fascinated that they even forgot to breathe. BRBR Although you can't see the face clearly, you can imagine the peerless face under the hijab just based on this temperament. BRBR Yi Qingmei walked to the sedan chair and stopped. BRBR According to the rules, she should get on the sedan at this moment. BRBR I object. BRBR At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded. BRBR Everyone turned to look at Yi Chen, who strode out of the crowd and stood in front of the sedan chair. BRBR. He pointed at Chu Feng, his face full of unwillingness. BRBR I object to this marriage. BRBR The whole audience was in an uproar. BRBR Yi Chanqiu's face changed drastically and he shouted angrily. BRBR Gizi, are you crazy? BRBR The crowd of people watching immediately exploded and couldn't help but talk about it. BRBR What is Yi Chen going to do? BRBR Is he crazy for robbing a marriage in front of the Lixian imperial clan? BRBR You are so young and energetic. He is going to kill the Yi family. BRBR Chu Feng looked at Yi Chen without any expression on his face. BRBR He just glanced at him lightly, as if looking at an ant. BRBR There was only indifference in his eyes, as if Yi Chen was not worth a second glance. BRBR Yi Chen was aggravated by his gaze and was about to continue speaking when a sudden change occurred. BRBR Bang. BRBR A big foot suddenly came from the side and kicked him hard in the face. BRBR Yi Chen screamed and flew upside down like a kite with its string broken, falling heavily several feet away. BRBR The person who made the move was none other than the eldest elder of the Yi family, Yi Hong. BRBR Say what you say, say what you say. BRBR Yi Hong rushed forward and kicked Yi Chen again, kicking and scolding him at the same time. BRBR The talented man and the beautiful woman are a perfect match. It's your turn to oppose me. BRBR Bang. 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 BRBR One kick after another, kicking Yi Chen until he was rolling on the ground. BRBR Yi Chen struggled to get up, but Yi Hong, with quick eyesight and quick hands, stepped on his mouth. BRBR That foot pressed hard on his mouth, preventing him from saying a word. BRBR BRBR Yi Chen struggled desperately, but couldn't break free at all. BRBR Yi Hong stepped on his face, turned his head, and showed a flattering smile to Chu Feng. BRBR Congratulations to the Holy Sun on your wedding. BRBR That smile must be as bright and brilliant as if nothing happened just now. BRBR Chu Feng looked at him, the corners of his mouth slightly raised. This old guy is really good at being a good person. BRBR He nodded, his eyes falling on Yi Chen who was stepped on the ground. BRBR Let him come to drink the wedding wine. BRBR Yi Hong was stunned for a moment, then nodded repeatedly. BRBR yes, 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 don't worry, Holy Son, he will definitely arrive, he will definitely arrive. BRBR, BRBR it's late at night. BRBR the banquet dispersed and the guests enjoyed themselves. BRBR Chu Feng, led by several maids, arrived at the new house in the backyard. BRBR the new house is extremely exquisitely decorated, with bright red wedding candles burning, making the whole room glow red. BRBR the large carved bed is covered with a mandarin duck brocade quilt, and a curtain with auspicious dragons and phoenixes hanging above the bed. BRBR Yi Qingmei sat on the edge of the bed, her head still covered with a red hijab. BRBR Chu Feng walked up to her and stopped. BRBR he picked up the jade ruby beside him and gently lifted the corner of the red hijab. BRBR the red silk slowly slid down, and at that moment, Chu Feng's breathing stagnated slightly. BRBR under the hijab is a breathtakingly beautiful face. When you look at it, those beautiful eyes seem to be able to draw away the soul of a person. BRBR beautiful. BRBR so beautiful. BRBR even though Chu Feng was used to seeing beauties, he had to admit at this moment that Yi Qingmei's beauty was on another level. BRBR Chu Feng looked at her with a hint of surprise in his eyes. BRBR but he quickly regained his composure and sat down next to her. BRBR it was quiet in the new house. BRBR only the crackling sound of burning red candles is particularly clear in the silent night. BRBR after a while, Chu Feng spoke. BRBR you and I are married, can I trust you? BRBR Yi Qingmei was Sli. GHTLY startled, a little confused. BRBR but she nodded quickly, her voice soft and firm. BRBR I have no second thoughts about my husband. BRBR Chu Feng looked at her, looking at the serious look in her eyes, and raised the corners of his mouth slightly. BRBR okay. BRBR he suddenly raised his hand and took off his disguise in front of Yi Qingmei. BRBR the face belonging to Shanyuan Tian began to change slowly. BRBR a moment later, a completely different face appeared in front of Yi Qingmei. BRBR Junyi Chuchen, with deep eyes and a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. BRBR Chu Feng. BRBR Yi Qingmei's pupils suddenly shrank. BRBR you, BRBR she stood up suddenly and looked at the person in front of her in disbelief. BRBR who are you? BRBR Chu Feng stopped pretending and showed his cards. BRBR my name is Chu Feng, Shanyuan Tian is dead, you have to keep this matter a secret. BRBR Yi Qingmei froze on the spot, her mind going blank. BRBR Shanyuan Tian is dead? BRBR the person in front of me is Chu Feng from the Kanglin Imperial clan? BRBR he is pretending to be Shanyuan Tian and lurking in the Lixian Emperor clan? BRBR countless thoughts flashed crazily in her mind, shock, doubt, vigilance, BRBR but soon, all emotions were suppressed by one thought. BRBR this is a huge secret and a huge opportunity. BRBR Yi Qingmei took a deep breath, suppressed the turmoil in her heart, and began to quickly weigh the pros and cons. BRBR the Yi family has been friends with the Lixian Emperor clan for generations. If she tells the Lixian Emperor clan about Chu Feng pretending to be Shanyuan Tian and lurking in the Lixian Emperor clan, the Lixian Emperor clan will definitely reward her. BRBR heavenly materials, earthly treasures, and cultivation resources are all there. BRBR with those resources, she has hope of breaking through the Mahayana stage. BRBR with the cultivation of the Mahayana. Period, the Yi family can truly rise. BRBR as for the man in front of me? BRBR just a junior in the void refining realm. BRBR although she is well known in Zhongzhou, but her cultivation level is so high, she is only half a step into the Mahayana. BRBR thinking of this, a cold light flashed in Yi Qingmei's eyes. BRBR the next moment, her spiritual power suddenly exploded, and a majestic pressure instantly enveloped the entire new house. BRBR then, she raised her hand and slapped Chu Feng. BRBR she used all her strength in this palm. BRBR she wants to kill Chu Feng with one strike and ask for credit from the Lixian Emperor clan. BRBR however, the moment she took action, a bright formation suddenly lit up under her feet. BRBR the array pattern spread instantly with Chu Feng as the center, covering the entire room in the blink of an eye. BRBR the stars have changed. Chu Feng looked at her and smiled. BRBR it would be a pity to kill you. BRBR he raised his hand, and a heart-eating demon pattern formed on his fingertips. BRBR seeing this, Yi Qingmei's pupils shrank suddenly. BRBR you, what do you want to do? BRBR Chu Feng did not answer, but pressed his fingertips on Yi Qingmei's abdomen. BRBR Yi Qingmei stiffened and wanted to struggle, but was suppressed by Yu Ying's pressure and could not move. BRBR she could feel that her soul was being eroded by a strange force, and she was establishing some kind of unbreakable connection with Chu Feng. BRBR Chu Feng gently patted her cheek, with a hint of playfulness in his tone. BRBR you will know what to say later. BRBR, a line of clear tears fell from the corners of Yi Qingmei's eyes, and she nodded uncontrollably. BRBR, I listen to my master. BRBR, BRBR, Kanglan Imperial Clan. BRBR, the night is already dark, but the lights in the main hall are brightly lit at this moment. BRBR, Chu Feng stood outside the hall with his hands behind his hands, looking up at the golden beam of light penetrating the sky in the north. BRBR, even though he was tens of thousands of miles away, he could feel the vast pressure. BRBR, Emperor Spiritual Root. BRBR, next to him, Chu Xianxiao also looked up at the golden light, his eyes full of shock. BRBR, someone from the Lingxian Imperial Clan has awakened the Imperial Spiritual Root. BRBR, a glimmer of light flashed in Chu Feng's eyes, and a thought suddenly appeared in his mind. BRBR, do you think the person who awakened the Emperor's Spiritual Root will be Chu Feng? BRBR, the two looked at each other, with a strange look flashing in their eyes. BRBR, it can't be such a coincidence, right? Chu Xianxiao murmured. BRBR, Chu Feng was about to speak when suddenly there was a burst of rapid footsteps. BRBR, Clan Chief. Patriarch. Something bad has happened. BRBR, the third eld. Ran over in a panic, his voice trembling. BRBR, the people I placed in the Lingxian Imperial Clan sent news that Xianyuan Tian of the Lingxian Imperial Clan has awakened his Imperial Spiritual Root. BRBR, he ran to Chu Feng out of breath and continued. BRBR, that is a legendary existence. Xianyuan Tian has awakened the immortal martial soul, and now he has awakened the Emperor's Spiritual Root. This person will definitely become Chu Feng's powerful enemy in the future. BRBR, he kept talking, becoming more and more anxious as he spoke, and cold sweat dripped down his forehead. BRBR, however, a burst of laughter suddenly interrupted his words. BRBR, ha 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 ha. BRBR, the third elder, was stunned and looked up. Chu Feng was laughing so hard that he almost burst into tears. BRBR, he looked at the two people who were laughing so hard that they couldn't stand up straight. His mind went blank and he was completely confused. BRBR, Chief, what are you laughing at? BRBR, his throat rolled, and his tone was full of confusion. BRBR, Xianyuan Tian has awakened the Emperor's Spiritual Root, and will definitely be Chu Feng's strong enemy in the future. How can you laugh more happily than Chu Feng has awakened the Emperor's Spiritual Root? BRBR, Chu Feng and Chu Xianxiao looked at each other and laughed even louder. BRBR, Lingxian Imperial Clan. BRBR, Yi Chen sat alone in front of the desk, holding a wine bottle in his hand and pouring wine into his mouth. BRBR, the amber wine flowed down the corner of his mouth and soaked his clothes, but he didn't notice it. BRBR, Xianyuan Tian. BRBR, he murmured the name, his eyes full of resentment. BRBR, why should he? BRBR, he slammed the wine bottle to the ground with a bang, and the wine splashed everywhere. BRBR, why should a waste with his sword bone be dug out? Marry me, the ancestor of the Yi family. BRBR, at this moment, the simple ring on the ring finger of his right hand trembled slightly. BRBR, a faint spiritual light overflowed from the ring and condensed into an illusory female figure beside him. BRBR, the female figure slim and graceful, with a beautiful face and a faint white light lingering around her body. BRBR, her figure is illusory and transparent, and she is obviously in a remnant state, but her earthly aura still makes people dare not underestimate her. BRBR, what's the use of drinking to drown your sorrows like this? BRBR, Yi Chen raised his head, his eyes full of unwillingness. BRBR, Master, I am not willing to accept it. BRBR, the woman sighed and said with relief. BRBR, as long as you understand the Dan Emperor's inheritance on the Dan Wall tomorrow and become the strongest alchemist here, you will have whatever woman you want. BRBR, after a pause, a glimmer of light flashed in her eyes, and she continued. BRBR, when the time comes, even Yi Qingmei will obediently kneel under you and beg you to favor her. BRBR, hearing this, Yi Chen's eyes flashed with light. BRBR, yes, I still have the Dan Emperor inheritance. BRBR, when he discovered the Danbi inheritance left by the Dan Emperor in the secret realm, he also met the master at that time and taught him alchemy practice. BRBR, Master, has the restriction on Danbi been broken? BRBR, the woman smiled slightly and nodded. BRBR, it will be broken tomorrow. BRBR, Yi Chen clenched his fists, his eyes full of excitement. BRBR, great. BRBR, he paced back and forth in the hall, the gloom on his face swept away. BRBR, when I get the inheritance of the alchemy emperor and become a 9th grade alchemist, I will have whatever I want. BRBR, when the time comes, not to mention the ancestors, even the saints from the imperial clan will have to kneel in front of me. BRBR, as soon as he finished speaking, a bright golden light suddenly shone in from outside the hall. BRBR, the brilliance of the light instantly illuminated the entire side hall with splendor. BRBR, Yi Chen turned his head suddenly and looked outside the hall. BRBR, that is the direction in which the vision fell, and it seems to be Xianyuan Tian's wedding room. BRBR, Xianyuan Tian has awakened the Emperor's spiritual root? BRBR just now he was imagining that he would become the alchemy emperor, possess Yi Qingmei, and possess all the beauties in the world. BRBR but in the blink of an eye, Shanyuan Tian, who took away his beloved, actually awakened his imperial spiritual root. BRBR this emperor's spiritual root should be mine. If my ancestor becomes my woman, she can help me awaken the emperor's spiritual root. Shanyuan Tian robbed me of this opportunity. BRBR he clenched his fists and said coldly. BRBR Shanyuan Tian, just wait for me. BRBR outside the wedding room. BRBR dozens of figures stood in the sky, surrounding the entire yard. BRBR the leader is none other than Shanyuan Ju, and he is followed by several supreme elders. BRBR the barrier condensed by Yuing completely isolates the entire courtyard from the outside world. Even powerful people like them in the Mahayana stage cannot penetrate the barrier and see what is going on inside. BRBR Yuing actually put up a spiritual barrier. What's going on? BRBR Shanyuan Tian awakened the emperor's spiritual root. Why should we isolate the outside world for such a big thing? BRBR awakening the emperor's spiritual root is not a problem at all. It requires an extremely stable state of mind. Shanyuan Tian was decapitated by Chu Feng and his Taoist heart was already flawed. Could it be that, BRBR you mean, he has developed inner demons? BRBR everyone was talking about it, with worries on their faces. BRBR Shanyuan never spoke, just stared at the barrier. BRBR for a long time, he said in a deep voice. BRBR wait. BRBR everyone stopped talking after hearing this, and just waited. Quietly. BRBR time passes minute by minute. BRBR I don't know how long it took, but the spiritual barrier finally slowly dissipated. BRBR the door opened, and Chu Feng, who regained Shanyuan Tian's appearance, walked out. BRBR his face was calm, with a faint golden halo lingering around him, making him look heroic. BRBR Yuing followed closely behind, her face indifferent, as if nothing happened just now. BRBR the expression of Yi Qingmei who was following him was a little unnatural. Seeing so many people from the Lingxian imperial clan, Yi Qingmei wanted to tell the truth. BRBR after all, even if Chu Feng can control Yuing, it is impossible to control everyone in the Lingxian imperial clan. BRBR however, her thin lips moved, but she could not say a word. BRBR alas, BRBR she sighed in her heart, as if she had accepted her fate. BRBR Chu Feng walked up to Shanyuan Ju and bowed in unison. BRBR I've met the patriarch, I've met all the supreme elders. BRBR Shanyuan Ju took a step forward and glanced at Chu Feng. After confirming that he was safe and sound, he breathed a sigh of relief. BRBR but he immediately frowned and looked at Yuing. BRBR why did the supreme elder put up a spiritual barrier? But what went wrong? BRBR since being controlled by Chu Feng, Yuing has told too many lies, so she is easy to find at this moment. BRBR when Shanyuan Tian awakened the emperor's spiritual root, he had inner demons. I just helped him suppress them. BRBR inner demon? BRBR Shanyuan Ju frowned, and then looked at Chu Feng with a worried look. BRBR inner demons arise when the emperor's spirit root is awakened. Once it is not handled well, it is likely to affect the foundation of cultivation. BRBR Chu Feng lowered his head in time, with a trace of shame on his face. BRBR the clan leader is worried. I thought about being humiliated by Chu Feng that day, and my Taoist heart was a little unstable, and I almost went crazy. BRBR thanks to the intervention of the Supreme Elder, the inner demon was suppressed. BRBR Shanyuan absolutely did not have the slightest doubt about this, because when Shanyuan Tian was crippled by Chu Feng, his Taoist heart must have been left with flaws, and it is understandable that he would have inner demons. BRBR he reached out and patted Chu Feng on the shoulder, with a soft tone. BRBR just suppress it, those are things in the past. BRBR now that you have awakened the immortal martial soul and the emperor's spiritual root, your talent is no less than that of Chu Feng. In time you will be able to trample him under your feet. BRBR Chu Feng raised his head, his eyes full of gratitude and determination. BRBR, thank you, Patriarch, for your teaching. I will definitely not disappoint the clan leader's expectations. I will repay the shame Chu Feng gave me 100 times. BRBR Shanyuan Ju nodded with satisfaction, then turned to look at the supreme elders behind him. BRBR, this is the Qiliner of my Lingxian imperial clan, with the immortal martial soul and the emperor's spiritual root. This child will definitely become the great emperor in the future. BRBR Yi Qingmei watched this scene quietly, his eyes full of complicated light. BRBR these people are the pillars of the Lingxian imperial clan, the peerless experts in the Mahayana period. At this moment, they are all kept in the dark by Chu Feng and are being played around by him. BRBR they thought they were cultivating a peerless genius, but they did not know that they were cultivating the holy son of the Kanglin imperial clan. BRBR Yi Qingmei looked at Chu Feng's calm face, and felt a deep sense of absurdity in her heart. BRBR this man. He was so scary that she even began to wonder, even without the heart-eating demon pattern, would she have chosen to expose him? BRBR to whom? BRBR, can they fight against these idiots who were tricked? CA. And you beat Chu Feng? BRBR. Yi Qingmei shook her head, already having an answer in her heart. BRBR. At this moment, Shangyuanju suddenly turned to look at her. BRBR. Yi Qingmei, you will become a member of our Lingxian Emperor clan. BRBR. Assist Tian'er in his practice well, your benefits will be indispensable in the future. BRBR. Yi Qingmei lowered her head and said respectfully, BRBR. Yes, clan leader. BRBR. Shangyuanju took out a Nai ring from his arms and handed it to Chu Feng. BRBR. Tian'er, you have awakened the Emperor's spiritual root. This is the cultivation resource that the family rewards you with. BRBR. Chu Feng took the Neji and penetrated it with his spiritual consciousness. There were mountains of spiritual stones inside. BRBR. Thank you, clan leader. BRBR. Shangyuanju nodded with a smile, gave a few more instructions, and then left with a group of supreme elders. BRBR. Everyone dispersed, leaving only Chu Feng, Yueying, and Yi Qingmei in the courtyard. BRBR. Yi Qingmei looked at the backs of those leaving and murmured, BRBR. The Lingxian imperial clan is hopeless.